What happens when you teach a weak commoner to plant potatoes and run in circles? Simple, you accidentally create the strongest mage in the empire. Meet Ammon Drake, a teacher who just wanted to get rich and retire, but ended up at a broke academy, where the headmistress gambles the budget on snail races and the fencing teacher lives in a sleeping bag. He has zero mana Zaro aura, but he takes down dragons with his bare hands and clowns on sword gods with a literal stick. Buckle up, because this is the wildest recap you are going to see today. To kick off our story in classic style, looking like a movie scene, we get an aerial view of the capital, Arzia. And right in the middle of all that hustle, a dark-haired young guy shows up thinking HES finally landed in the right spot. In his head, the kid has finally arrived at what he considers his new home. The dude is beaming about reaching this goal, not that it's his actual house, but let's just say it was a lifelong dream of his. Poor little guy, HES all hyped up believing HES winning at life by making this dream come true. But hold your horses, the story explains what we are. This right here is the Ammon at H Academy, an elite school founded by Emperor Ammon at H himself. On top of that, the narrative tries to sell the hype about the institution, swearing it has the best teachers in the world and top-tier education. Basically, every noble rich kid dreams of studying there, since it became a tradition and a symbol of insane prestige. That's exactly why our future MC, Ammon, is standing there grinning from ear to ear. HES the son of a broke noble from the Arma Mountains, but he managed to become a teacher. The plan is to make some connections and pull his family out of the mud, but someone yells "Hey rookie" and kills his vibe. Confused by the shouting, Ammon looks back trying to figure out what the deal is. Turning around, he realizes there's some heavy moving going on. A guy with a box asks where to put the junk, and another crazy dude tells him to throw it all away. Then, an old-timer who seems to be the supervisor comes up pressing Ammon, asking if HES gonna understand they're slacking off on the clock. As a rookie, he should be working the hardest, but the MC is totally lost. Without much explanation, the man dumps a pile of boxes on his chest, orders him to take them to another room near a table, and gives him that dry welcome. Ammon, innocent as can't be serious. It must be some welcome test, a prank for beginners, who knows. Once inside, carrying the heavy load, the MC asks if the school is under renovation, but the guy looks at him in disbelief. Have you been living under a rock, buddy? You don't know anything, do you? That's when the guy drops the bombshell. Headmistress and her L made some bad bets, lost all the school's money, and bankrupted the institution. In other words, my friend, you barely started the job and things are already looking ugly. The kid mentions that, unfortunately, he was out of the loop. The man retorts saying that since he was just a day laborer, he didn't need to know the details anyway. Quickly, Ammon corrects the misunderstanding, already losing patience, explaining HES not a mover, but the new teacher. But at that moment, he notices something bizarre when he looks to the side. It seems reality finally hit him about the state of the place. There's a bearded guy passed out on the floor, surrounded by bottles of booze. The kid even wonders if they let a homeless guy invade the premises. Thinking about it, since nobody seems to care, this drunk must be some employee who just gave up on life. Right then, our boy has the brilliant idea to dump the box on the supposed employee, thinking nobody will notice. The problem is, as soon as the supposed employee sees the book in the box, things go south. The guy jumps up, desperate, screaming that the book is his. Ammon is completely confused. What do you mean it's yours, you lunatic? The weirdo starts yelling that he is actually Professor Marion Rumdum, and that book and that junk belong to him. Where does Ammon think HES taking his treasure? The professor starts screaming "Catch the thief" at the top of his lungs, and the mover, who I thought was a supervisor, joins the pile on. Since he doesn't know Ammon, he gets ready to lay the smackdown on the supposed burglar. Trying to save his own skin, the kid yells that HES not a thief and definitely not a mover. HES a teacher man. But the mover doesn't want to hear it. In his head, besides not working, the scumbag decided to steal, so HES gonna get what's coming to him. The scene turns into chaos, the drunk screaming on one side and the mover yelling on the other. And Ammon, in the middle of the crossfire, keeps shouting that HES a teacher to see if anyone listens. A while later, with the dust settled, someone explains to Ammon that the bankruptcy notice was sent via magic portal. The MC justifies himself saying he comes from the Arma Mountains, the middle of nowhere where technology doesn't reach into carriage takes a month. It's the sticks of the sticks. Walking down the hall, that drunk professor, now a tiny bit more sober, explains that the royal family ordered the doors closed, and that's why everyone already bailed. But hold on, the kid tries to stay optimistic, thinking there's still hope since there are people left there. But, looking around, he thinks, forget it. This place isn't just bankrupt, it's doomed. The room that was supposed to be the teacher's sanctuary has now turned into a complete dump. Ammon, poor guy, almost passes out just from the smell. For sure, the miserable drunk had a party and turned everything into a pigsty. The professor tries to defend himself, claiming the mess is the fault of the items the rookie tried to steal. Ammon warns that if HES called a thief one more time, he'll steal for real just out of spite, since there's still valuable stuff there. there. Ammon even comments that he understands the bankruptcy blues, but turning the teacher's lounge into a dive bar was a low blow. The professor is confused until he realizes the kid is talking about the bottles of troubled juice scattered around. The drunk replies with the most shameless look, "Oh, you're talking about this, huh?" Man, Ammon sees the guy pulling out another bottle and isn't digging the attitude at all. Since his patience is short, he grabs the bottle from the drunk's hand and whacks the guy on the head. "Stop drinking, you damn fool." The bearded professor starts crying. Not from the pain in his head, obviously, but for the waste of the precious drink that just bit the dust. Without an ounce of pity, Ammon turns his back and walks away. After that scene, we go into a flashback back at Baron Reek's house, out in the sticks. Since gossip runs wild in the countryside, the news that Ammon became a teacher at Ammon at Age Academy spread fast. The people are happy because they know the title of Baron is just for show. Since the family is broken, the only thing they produce are some sad potatoes. Coming from that poverty, the MC killed himself to get this job and signed a 3-year contract. The catch is that the termination fine is so high that if he leaves, the family will have to sell their souls. Back in the present, Ammon looks out the window with a face like HES at a funeral. He thinks, yeah pops, things went south. Get ready to eat potatoes for the rest of your life because we are screwed. However, there is still a light at the end of the tunnel. There are 2 students enrolled and 2 other teachers lost in the school. So, the kid comes up with a plan. Focus on these students. What if one of them is the heir to some rich guy who got left behind? He can still cut his losses. If his luck turns around, he can still do some serious networking and set himself up for life. The problem is, here comes another bucket of cold water. The students aren't exactly gold mines. The first one is a kid named Boris, a commoner whose village got wiped off the map about 2 years ago, meaning the kid doesn't have a dime to his name. Translation, the kid's a commoner in his village got wiped off the map, which means any hope of our MC making a quick buck just went down the drain. On the flip side, the second student is Chloe, who hails from a place further away, the kingdom of Aaron. The catch? Her kingdom was basically erased from existence during a war last year. The MC can only think, good lord, are you serious? They gave me a student who's broke, even more than me, and another one from a royal line that doesn't even exist anymore. Trying to keep up the leadership vibe, the MC says, relax, guys, the main teacher has arrived. We're all in the same sinking ship, but we can still make this work. The kids, realizing they aren't gonna get kicked to the curb, start crying tears of joy. There's even a kinda sad moment between the trio, but the only thing going through the MC's head is, I am so screwed, like, royally screwed. While the 2 students are clinging to and like leeches, all 3 of them freeze when they spot something weird on the floor. The MC points to something that looks more like a giant caterpillar and asks if that happens to be the class mascot. Boris says, no way, are you crazy? That thing right there is the fencing teacher, Slowfield. Hearing that, the MC comments that, man, this situation just gets worse by the second. Just then, the teacher starts wiggling around inside her sleeping bag. Seeing that the MC is a rookie, she warns him that the headmistress is looking for him, so HED better get a move on. Oh, and of course, she tells the kids to go study by themselves so she can keep napping. Ammon can't believe the audacity of this woman. Where does she think she is? A spa? Come on, lady, get up and get to work. But then a burning question hits the MC. What kind of crazy headmistress hires this circus of a staff? Well, when he gets to her office, the answer comes pretty fast. Man, the office is fancy as heck. Pure luxury, my friend. Getting closer, we come face to face with our beloved headmistress. She says it's a pleasure to meet the new employee. And yes, she's a high elf, and a stunner at that. Her name? Enro. The MC introduces himself as Ammon Drake and says HES starting today. He even thinks, hey, she seems surprisingly normal, just an elegant elf, right? Except out of nowhere, the headmistress hits him with a totally random question. She asks which name sounds more like a winner, George the Destroyer, or Steel Slug. The MC glitches out like, huh? What is this lady talking about? And RL says, all excited, that she's gonna bet 10 gold coins on Steel Slug. That's when it clicks for the MC. The wretched woman is analyzing a betting sheet. The headmistress denies it instantly, acting all offended, saying that a noble elf would never bet on something as barbaric as horse racing. She explains that this is much more refined. It's a giant snail race. The MC takes a deep breath, holding back his rage, thinking, that doesn't change the fact that you're blowing our money, you lunatic. The headmistress is shocked and asks if HES not familiar with snail racing. Ammon answers dryly that no, HES never heard of this gem, and RL then explains that this sport is all the rage and has become super famous in the Elven Kingdom. The thrill basically comes from seeing which snail can climb the world tree first. Since a competition is coming up, she was analyzing where to invest. That's when our MC finally connects the dots of this disaster. The employee's voice echoes in his head. The headmistress's investment failed. She lost everything, and the school went bankrupt. Remembering this makes the vein on Ammon's forehead pop with rage. The guy accuses an RL of gambling away the school's funds, but she fires back. Hold on. The odds are 10 to 1, and gonna win it all back and get the academy out of the read in the blink of an eye. Ammon, totally out of patience, snatches the magazine out of her hand. The woman isn't happy about it and starts yelling, asking what he thinks HES doing. But our guy, annoyed, says HES the one who should be asking questions here. Oh boy, a tug of war starts over the magazine. The MC pulls from one side, the headmistress pulls from the other, while he asks if she really had the nerve to gamble away the education budget. But the headmistress just keeps repeating that Steel Slug is gonna win. And when that happens, she's gonna rake in 50 times the bet amount. Ammon points to the photo and says, look at this, you nutbog. That Snail is old and weird. How is he gonna win? But the headmistress insists she trusts her elven eye and is sure her athlete is a champion. However, with all that tugging, the magazine can't take it and drips right down the middle. The headmistress is devastated, thinking her big chance is gone, but Ammon gives her a reality check. HED never let her blow the school's last dime on gambling. She corrects him, it's not gambling, it's investing. High-risk investing. Sure, but it's still investing. That makes the MC furious. He asks what kind of crazy plan this is. The headmistress explains that yes, it was an investment, because she was going to use the prize money to start a dragon banana orchard. Hold on, the worst part is she isn't totally wrong. The dragon banana is a super rare and valuable fruit in this world. The problem is, this fruit takes 3 years just to sprout and another 12 to bear fruit. In other words, for a human, that's a lifelong project. But for an elf, that's a piece of cake. The headmistress says if they wait just 15 years, the profit is guaranteed. Easy to say when you live for over 1,000 years, right? For her, 15 years is like a long weekend. Ammon, outraged, asks, just 15 years? Are you kidding me? And the worst part is she answers with total innocence. Yeah, duh. 15 measly years it'll fly by. The MC gets up from his chair fuming with rage, and the headmistress shrinks back thinking, oh, what's he gonna do? Yikes, man. With all the yelling, it sounded like the world was ending right then and there. The scream was so loud it even scared the crows off the roof. And get this, she wasn't the one screaming. It was Ammon, straight up calling his boss a dumb elf to her face. Looks like respect for authority has left the building. After calming down, our boy says, dead serious, that HES gonna take the reins. Either he sinks this ship for good, or he gets them out of the storm. A while later, Ammon goes back to the headmistress's office, knocking on the door and politely asking if he can come in. This time, he walks in looking sharp like a model teacher. But just between us, I think he just activated professional con artist mode. As soon as he walks in, Ammon drops an excuse me, dumb elf. She grumbles that she doesn't like the nickname, but it looks like she's gonna have to deal with it. Ammon then starts his act. He says HES thought it over regarding the investment. He starts baiting her, saying a prestigious headmistress would never bet on snails out of addiction, but rather for the noble future of the academy, right? NRL, caught off guard and totally flustered, falls right for his smooth talk. She stammers, tries to keep her composure, and says, of course, that's obviously why I did it. Ammon bows in an exaggerated way and apologizes, faking regret for doubting her vision. The headmistress, getting her mojo back, says she forgives him, but next time he needs to keep it together. Switching gears, he says HES become very interested in this race. After all, if it's popular among elves, wise and immortal beings, it must be high culture. Almost an art form, right? All hyped up, the headmistress grabs Ammon's arm and drags him to watch this so-called race together. The kid asks if it's horses, but she corrects him right away. It's a giant snail race. Man, the MC had always heard that elves were sacred beings living over in the world tree. But seeing the scene, he starts to think that concept of sacred is a little twisted. And he comes to that conclusion because HES already in the stands watching the madness unfold. That bunch of elves, who were supposed to be elegant, are screaming like die-hard fans at a championship game. The headmistress is worse than all of them, yelling desperately for the creature to move because she needs to win that cash. Trying to bring the woman's soul back to her body, since she seems possessed by the gambling spirit. Ammon gives her a nudge and asks, hey headmistress, when does the race actually start? The woman looks at him like HES crazy and asks if HES lost it. The race started ages ago. The slugs are out there competing. It's just, you know, at their own pace. Ammon comments that she must be hallucinating because nothing is moving, but the headmistress insists HES the blind one. According to her, it's absurd that he can't see the frantic action. In her head, the slugs are speeding down the track and the competition is heating up super intense. Watching this imaginary scene, the headmistress panics, thinking her athlete just got passed. But Ammon realizes this whole thing is bizarre. The wretched things have barely moved an inch and the woman is already suffering in anticipation. Meanwhile, the crowd of point years keeps going, totally pumped up. Except in the middle of this crowd, the MC has that bored look on his face, calculating that at this pace, the slugs will reach the finish line sometime next century. Ammon thinks his plan is in motion, but man, what a historic mess has he gotten himself into. Regret is hitting hard with every decision that brought him here. Analyzing coldly, the competitors even look like they're in peak physical shape. Not. The kid's sarcasm is screaming because this race is pathetic. The worst part is the negative speed. This race probably won't finish today, or even tomorrow. A good while passes, and our boy is already yawning, fighting not to fall asleep up right there. The MC comments just to make conversation that the competitor hands actually started off well, but that now, unfortunately, HCS falling behind the pack. The scene then flashes back to a few hours earlier. The headmistress shows a photo of a legendary snail named Superman, telling the MC to focus on that champion. Hearing the track record, the MC asks if Shess gonna do the obvious thing, bet on the favorite, and guarantee the win, but she says there's more to it than that. She shows the updated betting chart in the magazine, with the odds in the competitors. NRL asks if the MC has his eye on Steel Slug or another favorite, but the kid surprises her and points to an underdog way down at the bottom of the list. The headmistress warns him it's a bad idea. This hands guy is a terrible choice, the weakest and slowest of them all, but her little MC puts his foot down and insists on him. His argument is that it's really sad to be the weakest, so HES gonna bet out of pity. The headmistress glitches out, asking, say what? I thought I was the crazy addict here, but it's that old story. To talk to a crazy person, you gotta be a little crazy yourself. The MC launches into a pep talk, saying Hands is an underestimated professional who only loses due to psychological pressure, and that their faith will turn the slug into a giant. And here's the kicker or the slug. If that little creature wins, the payout is 500 to 1. That makes the elf's eyes sparkle with greed. Back to the present time in the never-ending race. We see the elf crowd in despair, tearing their hair out because they lost a ton of cash on the favorites. Observing the chaos, Ammon thinks nothing here makes sense. He turns to the headmistress and asks if the horror show is over yet. By the look of defeat on her face, the MC deduces that, unfortunately, the academy is gonna stay in the red and in debt. But that's not bad. It's all part of the MCS scheme. If the academy goes bankrupt for real, his contract is voided, and he goes home without paying a fine. The rascal doesn't want to save the school. He just wants his freedom. Pretending to console his boss, Ammon asks her to stay calm. Worst case scenario, the academy closes its doors and everyone moves on with their lives. Except out of nowhere, the announcer declares that the winner is Hands. Yep, the upset happened. BMC is in shock. How did the slowest animal in the universe, which he chose specifically to lose, just win? Man, the headmistress almost has a stroke from joy, thanking Mother Nature and every god out there for this miraculous victory she didn't expect. But for one to laugh, another has to cry. Our homie Ammon didn't like it one bit, because this means the academy isn't going bankrupt today. To make the humiliation worse, they announce that the champion Hands wants a handshake from his biggest investor, which means the MC. Now you ask me, how do you shake a snail's hand? Remember I said they're giant snails? Yeah, there's a lot of slime involved. The kid raises his hand looking totally uncomfortable, disgusted just thinking about the goo. But there's no running away. It's the price of victory. Besides the slimy handshake, of course, they have to pose for the official photo. Once the fuss died down, a while later, the headmistress comments that it was an honor to be greeted by the legend of the tracks, but Ammon retorts that it wasn't an honor at all. It was just gross. But getting to what matters, what is she going to do with the 500 gold coins she won? NRL guarantees she's gonna pay the academy's expenses. The MC breathes a sigh of relief, thinking she had come to her senses and wasn't going to bet it all again. She explains that her dream is to restore the school's glory. Since the imperial family cut their allowance, they need cash to attract new people. So, the plan is, pay the basic bills and use the rest too. Invest. She asks if he caught on to the brilliant idea. Ammon almost falls over. This investment story again? Does she want to lose everything she won all over again? But calming down, the MC realizes that you really can't save that dump with conventional methods. Investing might be the way out, as long as they were very careful. Cut to the next scene. They are at the Golden Road Merchant, and her L is fixated on a construction project for something called the Temple of Bladon. The problem is that it says in huge letters on the document, low return. Apparently, the headmistress's business vision is worse than a doorknob. She asks for Ammon's opinion, and he looks at it thinking, man, this is bad news. First off, the temple is going to be in uncharted territory with Iroh infrastructure. Worse, since it's on the coast, it's a sitting duck for pirate trades. Basically, a terrible idea. The headmistress praises the kid for his insight. The little MC flashes a smile and says thanks, but he asks for a quick second to hit the restroom. But notice, it's that kind of restroom break, if you catch my drift. The MC walks up to a guy and says, excuse me. From the looks of it, that place is a bank. And that little guy there is the banker. The MC tells him HES gonna invest 2 gold coins in the Temple of Bladon project. Yeah, it's pretty weird. The MC told the headmistress it wasn't worth it, but now HES investing his own cash? Oh man, now I get it. The rascal knows that even though the return is low, it's a solid investment for the future since the temple is for the god of war, so it'll have tons of believers. But there's a catch, right? He can't let the headmistress invest in this deal, or the academy won't shut down. Back at the table, NRL comments that the MC looks much better. He says yeah, he really just had to go. Handing over the documents, the headmistress says she didn't understand a word of those papers, so she's gonna trust him with all the investments. While analyzing the investment investment booklet, the little devil version of the MC pops up thinking, hey, it was thanks to him that the school won all that money. So, HES gonna give bankruptcy another chance. The sneak pays attention and points to another project in the book, the King Mango Cultivation Project. It has a best seal, but it indicates the cultivation period is at least 7 years. But the miserable Ammon says, this is the one. If we invest here, it's easy money. The headmistress looks at this King Mango story and questions the choice. She says she mentioned a fruit in the past and he called her crazy. When she talked about the dragon banana, she was wrong. But now that he decided to plant King Mango, suddenly HES right. The MC says he knows it takes 2 years to sprout and 5 years to bear fruit. The headmistress then questions why on earth he chose this option then. The MC says she just needs to think a little harder about it. Does the imperial family really want to keep the academy bankrupt for that long? 15 years would be too risky. On the other hand, 7 years. That's a decent amount of time. They only have to endure the pressure from the imperial family for 7 little years. And our Elden says that 7 years is a long time for a human, isn't it? Ammon agrees, and she asks if he won't suffer waiting that long too. Well, in his mind, Ammon is already planning to use some money he saved up to flee the academy and retire. But out loud, he says that yes, 7 years for a human is a long time, but Shess going to protect the academy until the end, right? This investment is going to be solely for her good and the good of the academy. Hearing that, the headmistress falls for his smooth talk. She even calls him, all emotional, Professor Ammon, as if the scoundrel were a saint. Ammon thinks now is the moment of truth, deciding the investment amount. Melting into tears, the headmistress says Shess gonna invest for 1,900 gold coins. They're only keeping 100 to pay the costs. And guys, literally, the academy's entire net worth is just 5,000 gold coins, and the crazy woman is betting it all, dying for the academy to go under. The MC starts clapping with a fake little smile. He says HES impressed with her decision, but inside, HES celebrating that the wretch fell right into the trap. This is the first MC I'm starting to dislike, man. I'm starting to feel a little angry at him. A little while later, we're already at the King Mango farm. A man asks the old guy if it's true, and the old guy says yes, it is indeed true. He can't even believe it, but it really happened. Shame I don't know what happened, right? Because we're just seeing a mango, but nobody is saying anything. But the next morning, in front of Ammon at H Academy, the MC sees something on the ground and asks, what the heck is that? Well, he stumbles upon a wooden box and a letter. A letter that looks like it has a bit of blood on it. Zooming in to try and understand what's written, we see it's a call for the investors of the Temple of Bladon. But there's already another letter. It says, Dear and merciful chief investor of King Mango. Meanwhile, we see Rumdum walking down the street happy as a clam. This time HES drunker than usual, so he praises the bar owner, the beer, the street man, HES praising everyone. But suddenly, he stops and lets out a ha. Looking down, he wonders why there's a black dog sleeping right there in the middle of the path. Alright, this time HES gonna be nice and throw a little treat for the dog. Actually, what he threw was paper right, and he threw it right in the MC's face. That's no dog, that's our boy. I just didn't understand what HES doing on the floor and lying in the middle of the path. But Rumdum, who is wasted and can't tell the difference between anything, couldn't care less. HES happy he gained 10 good deed points. Now he can go drink another one. While the professor walks away, our dear in RL sees the MC on the ground. She kneels beside the kid and starts screaming for him. She tries to understand what happened, but it's unclear. Looking a bit to the side, she notices something weird. There's a piece of totally rotten seafood over there. Where did the MC get that from? Well, since she really can't determine what's happening, she imagines the MC is starving. Our beloved saga of misunderstandings continues. But hold on, to clear everything up, we go back in time a bit. Ammon is there, holding that letter for the King Mango chief. In the letter, it said he thanks him for the great interest in the huge donation. It says they developed a new cultivation method, and this method reduces the harvest time to 1 year. Yeah, looks like we figured out why the MC is lying on the ground looking so sad. As a result, they plan to give a share of the profits for the next 10 years. And as a thank you, they also sent some mango prototypes. And man, I don't want to say anything, but the mangoes look beautiful, see, they look juicy. Holding the other letter, he can't believe what that means. That investment in the Temple of Bladon, well, a rebellion happened and the temple was cancelled. The investment firm went bankrupt, man. In other words, the only little bit of cash the MC had, which was his own, he lost. And what he had from the academy, yeah, it doubled, if not more, right? That was why the kid ended up falling down hard and desperate. I imagine it was just because of the mangoes. But to make matters worse, his investment was also cancelled. Later on, a mug full of mango juice pops up on screen. Actually, the fancy name is King Mango Smoothie Elven Style, made with those prototype mangoes that just arrived. Then NRL hands the drink to Ammon, giving him a lecture about how he should have told her he was starving. The MC says thanks but is totally lost, having no clue where she got that idea from. But hey, when the boss is talking, you just gotta roll with it. So he stays quiet and chugs the smoothie in one go. As soon as it goes down, the MC is blown away by the divine taste of the stuff. But thinking about it, this makes him even more depressed. After After all, with a product this top tier, the manga business will never go bust, and his plan just went down the drain. And RL takes the chance to let him know that, since he was the key player in the investment, the kid is gonna get a special bonus. While the MC thanks her, she mentions she'd give even more, but unfortunately, she can't just burn through the Academy's cash however she pleases. In Ammon's head, he thinks, oh right, and who is the crazy lady who bet the entire vault on a snail race 5 minutes ago? Savoring the smoothie, the MC reflects that the bankruptcy plan is toast with all this money coming in. Now that HES stuck there, the only way out is to actually save the stump. The big problem is, how do you save a school in ruins with a staff that looks like they escaped from the loony bin? The headmistress is a gambling addict, the magic teacher is always drunk, and the fencing teacher is laziness personified. Well, to cool his head and think of a solution, where does our little MC end up? At a bar, of course. The bar owner walks up telling him to stop punching the table, otherwise the furniture won't make it. But the question remains, what is he doing drinking in broad daylight? Ammon vents to the owner, saying he barely got the job and already found out that, from the boss to the co-workers, everyone is nuts, which complicates his life a little bit. Suddenly, a familiar voice pops up in the room. Yep, that sneaky drunk Marion also punches the clock at the bar pretty early. Arriving without ceremony, the professor asks the MC if he can take the seat next to him. Trying to keep it formal, the MC introduces himself as Ammon Drake. The bearded guy replies saying HES the one in charge of magic classes. His name is Mar. Man, just when he was gonna finish, the MC gives him a bone-crushing handshake. The drunk starts yelling that they tried to shred his hand, but the kid plays dumb, saying it was just a firm handshake, a manly thing. Anyway, the drunk tries to finish the intro Mario. The professor, all embarrassed, corrects him saying his name is Marion Rumdum. Ammon balls over that name, Marion Rumdum. He is absolutely sure HES heard of this legend somewhere before. Marion asks why the rookie is huffing and puffing so much, looking like he wants to put out a fire with his nose. The MC replies it's just the despair of seeing the Academy's future looking so bleak. Big Mario then raises a philosophical question. What is the fundamental role of the Academy? Ammon answers the obvious, to teach and nurture the students. The drunk agrees and dads. As long as they have students, the future will never be totally dark. Look at that. Seems like the booze brings out some wisdom every now and then. Even the MC has to agree, thinking that for a guy falling down drunk, he actually spoke some truth. But cheap philosophy won't cut it. Running the Academy without royal funding is gonna be a nightmare. But just then, someone yells about the imperial competition. Right then, the bar owner orders a poster to be ripped off the wall, grumbling that the local academy went bust ages ago and there's nobody to participate in that. Ammon realizes this is their biggest headache, the Empire's official recommendation to close the school's doors. But a light bulb goes off in the MC's head. If they do well in this so-called Emperor's competition, maybe they can get the closing order cancelled. On impulse, right when the guy was gonna tear the paper, the MC jumps in screaming aloud and oh. Cut the scene and it's already nighttime. The guys at the bar comment that it was a rough day. The problem is the table. The one they said was indestructible. Yeah, it got left with the imprint of the MC's hand. The owner looks at the damage, outraged, thinking, who is the animal that did this? Who could it be, right? Who was punching the table earlier? But never mind that, because back at the academy, Ammon is already calculating the time left until the competition. Determined, he decides to ramp up Chloe and Boris's fencing classes. By the brightness of the sun, looks like it's already the next day. The MC goes to the teacher, who's lying there looking like a caterpillar in a cocoon. He calls her, but she's mumbling nonsense while she sleeps. When she finally wakes up and introduces herself as Sloth Field, the MC recognizes the last name immediately. The Field family is legendary. Their head is a grand sword master. It's a heavyweight lineage. Ammon reflects that if she's from that family, she should be a beast with a sword. But why the heck is she in this deplorable state of laziness? Out of patience, he starts shaking the sleeping bag, ordering her to teach. The woman yells for him to stop poking her, but it's no use. The MC is ticked off. The teacher finally gets up, but lays it out straight. She doesn't lift a finger for free. That's when Ammon pulls out the bag of coins and says, lady, money isn't the problem. Now get up and go to work, please. Man, I thought I liked money, but this girl, her eyes practically shine like headlights. With payment secured, Sloth jumps to her feet and starts correcting Boris and Chloe's posture. Ammon watches from afar, satisfied, thinking things are finally gonna move forward. The MC keeps wondering why she carries that bag around everywhere. Is there food in there? The woman notices the stare and asks if he doesn't have to go teach. Ammon says no. The headmistress told him to just observe, even though he wanted to be teaching his history classes. Sloth comments that, thinking about it, general studies actually fits his nerd face pretty well. Analyzing his movement, she realizes that, by the way he walks, the guy has never trained a martial art in his life. Straight up, she asks if the MC knows fencing. When he says no, she invites the kid to train together, but she's really just wanting to push the heavy lifting onto the rookie. Ammon thinks learning from a field will be useful, but little does he know Sloth is just planning to beat him up to vent her anger. The girl is so cheeky, she says that, since the training is gonna be light, she won't even get out of her sleeping bag. Nobody told the rascal to wake her her up with a beating. Now HES gonna feel the weight of a master's hand. Out of the blue, Ammon charges right at her. Sloth is kinda shook, realizing the kid is actually fast. The worst part is she can barely block. She knows there isn't a drop of mana coming from him, so how in the world is he this strong? Looks like Shess gonna have to switch gears and actually take this seriously. So she ditches the sleeping bag and goes on the offensive. Now we're talking. The real brawl begins. But in a twist of fate, Sloth ends up tripping over her own sleeping bag. Yeah, nobody told you to leave your junk lying around, right? That's what you get for being sloppy. The worst part is that now, she literally face planted. And our MC man doesn't waste a second and comes in hot. Lucky for her, HES a polite guy and pulled the punch right before hitting her head. With a little sadistic smirk, our boy says she should have left the sleeping bag in a better spot. This makes Sloth pretty salty. She even thinks about using Hearse or Dora against a civilian. Yeah, unfortunately she didn't want to, but Shess gonna have to wipe that smug look off this rookie's face. The MC says he knows what that is. It's an aura blade, right? The girl screams no. It's sword door, you dummy. Where did he come from anyway? The MC answers super calmly that HES from the Armor Mountains. Sloth gets kinda impressed when she hears that. The Armor Mountains? Isn't that the dangerous region way out at the end of the world? The MC says it's more or less around there. After you pass the mountains, there's a plain. Sloth says she knows it well. That's the Garden of Silence, right? Basically, the edge of the continent. The girl asks if he came on foot and the MC says yeah. It took about 2 weeks. Sloth, of course, is jaw-dropped. That would be the travel time by horse. How did the crazy guy do that on foot? Ammon says it was a total drag. The path was infested with monsters. There were ogres, trolls, a little bit of everything. Sloth asks okay, but then what? What did you do? The MC answers like it was nothing, the usual, right? I took them all out. The girl can't believe it. To defeat a troll, you usually need a battalion of 100 knights. But the MC says no. Are you crazy? That's way too many people for no reason. One good axe swing cleans up the mess real quick. That leaves the girl thinking hard. She can't understand how a guy this strong has such a poker face. Seeing her turn to leave, the MC asks if she isn't going to finish teaching fencing. But the girl says nope. She's done for today. Laziness kicked in. Well, after that half-baked training, the only thing left is to go to the next class. Magic Theory, where the teacher is that bearded guy, Marion Rumdum. The crazy dude is there, asking the class what the key to the magic circle for mana flow is. Boris answers that that's easy. It's the vertices of the pentagram in the center. The drunkard says HES impressed. Looks like the kid knows Archmage Molan's theory. But hold on, HES gonna show it in practice. The MC isn't too thrilled about that idea, right? For sure. This can't be safe coming from a drunk guy. But the drunk couldn't care less. He starts casting the spell right away. And with the power radiating from him, a gigantic and complex magic circle starts to appear in the middle of the room. Our MC starts getting impressed and even thinks about the drunk's name, Marion Rumdum. That sounds a little familiar. HES, sure, HES. Seen that name before in the newspaper or history book. Oh, that's right. HES, a former mage from the Magic Tower who single-handedly wiped out an entire troop of enemy knights. The guy is known as a legendary war hero. Yeah, looking closely, you can tell it's the same guy, except now HES bearded, washed up, and his liver is crying for help. The funny thing is, the class manages to be incredible precisely because HES wasted. The MC thinks that if it weren't for the booze, the class would be perfect. Little does he know. That's where the MC falls for the illusion. If the wretch teaches this while sloshed, imagine the insane level when HES sober. Determined to fix the professor, he goes over there and asks for a quick word. The professor doesn't like it much, grumbling that the rookie is interrupting the flow of the class. But the MC insists, it's just a minute, my guy. Come here real quick. Since the scoundrel refuses to go quietly, the MC grabs the professor by the collar and starts dragging him out, saying this is all to restore his dignity. But of course, he warns the students not to just sit there spacing out waiting. You guys can start copying and taking notes onwards on the board until the master gets back. The class, scared of the MC, obeys immediately and starts writing everything down frantically. Except outside, man, the conversation starts getting pretty physical. We hear some weird noises and the professor yelling, "Why did you punch me in the stomach, you lunatic?" Inside, hearing the racket from the conversation, the two students start breaking out into cold sweat from nerves. Outside, Marion is writhing around and complaining about the pain, while the MC just gives him a super dry my bad. The professor questions, in disbelief, if a punch to the stomach is really a cure for being drunk. Ammon guarantees it is, saying that back in his homeland in the mountains, it works like a charm. Marion calls him crazy and asks who taught him such barbarism. Our boy replies that it was his dad, and that it always works like a dream. Once the shock wears off, the professor admits that, surprisingly, he really did sober up. Back in the classroom, now sober, Marion announces HES gonna pick up the explanation where he left off. Except, when he starts writing on the board, Marion freezes and gets visibly confused and shy. Apparently, the wretch is incapable of teaching. The MC looks at that and thinks, you gotta be kidding me. The guy only functions on ethanol fuel. When HES sober, he turns into a stuttering mess who can't explain anything to save his life. Yeah, Ammon realizes the situation here is way more bizarre than he imagined. As he tries to speak, the kids are totally lost. His explanation turns into a uttering jumble that makes zero sense. But the problem gets solved fast, because bro Marion pulls 2 bottles of wine out of thin air, down them both, and gets right back in the zone. The MC almost has a heart attack, yelling, "I don't believe it. Where did this lunatic get that booze?" But what can you do, right? At least now, properly fueled, he goes back to explaining the evolution of magic with brilliant clarity and enthusiasm. The students are jaw-dropped at the transformation. Like sober he was a disaster, but drunk, the guy is a teaching genius. Ammon shrugs and thinks whatever works if the education is high quality. The rest is just details. Once class is over, Marion sits on the floor and keeps chugging his bottles, thinking this is the best time of the day, drinking in peace. Just then, Ammon approaches, but Marion warns him right away that HE's not in the mood for another therapeutic punch and asks him not to kill his buzz. The MC says no, this time it's serious talk. He says he realized who the professor is, the legendary Marion Rum Dum war hero, and he apologizes for being rude earlier. Marion says it's cool. I mean, his head hurts from the hangover and his stomach hurts from the punch, but other than that, it's all good. Taking advantage of the opening, the MC pulls out a book on mono reinforcement circles and says he has a technical question. The kid points out that the revision proposed by the Archmage in the book would decrease efficiency if the flow was wrong, which surprises the professor. The MC's suggestion is to change the vertex to a square, simplifying the whole spell structure. The professor, excited, asks if Ammon studied advanced magic. The kid lies through his teeth, saying his dad taught him just the basics. Big Marion looks suspicious, realizing the rookie didn't just correct a complex error, but found a better solution than an Archmage. He grabs the kid by the shoulders and asks what else he knows. But, for some reason, right after grabbing the MC, he lets go, turns his back, and bolts without explaining anything. Ammon is left confused, but concludes that, despite the craziness, the technical quality of the teaching there is absurdly high. The problem is that the group of students is gonna need some urgent special training. The 2 students are super weak, basically level 1, and their current skills aren't good for much. But leave that for later, because right now there's another priority. Let's focus on the sacred lunch break in the cafeteria. After grabbing his grub and looking for a table, the MC spots Sloth and Marion sitting together, but both of them look away immediately, making it very clear he is not welcome there. Sloth whispers something to Marion, who grumbles and nods in agreement. Here's the deal, they are scared. The rookie has a genius theory and a strong body. If he masters fencing and magic, HE's gonna turn into a monster and ruin their peace. Unfortunately, their cushy gravy train job is at serious risk of ending. That's why they decide to form the Anti-Ammon Alliance, an informal union to stop the MC from ruining their easy life. Back to Ammon, since he got rejected by his colleagues, he goes to another table. He decides to sit with the students Chloe and Boris. While eating, the MC asks if they've heard about this imperial competition. The 2 are surprised and admit they don't really know much about it. After Ammon explains, Boris hangs his head bummed out. The MC insists, saying victory would bring more than just money or prizes. The student says, without much confidence, that he'll think about the opportunity. The problem is, in his head, it's almost impossible for a commoner to beat a noble in an official match. Ammon fires back saying that's nonsense, since the empire is full of new nobles who were born commoners and moved up in the world. He says this so naturally that it even scares the kids. Hearing that stirs something in Boris, he starts to believe that, even being a nobody right now, he might have a chance to become someone. Right then, Ammon grabs the kid's shoulder to give him that moral support. He reveals that his nickname in the past was Ammon, the cowardly weakling, to show he understands what it's like to be underestimated. But actually, that's total baloney. He claims he was the Fire Fist, but we know HE's just making stuff up to impress them. It was that smooth talking that allegedly got him the teaching gig, a job that, let's be real, isn't for just any random scrub. Boris, innocent as can be, is totally floored by the story. Even though the kid thinks that nowadays any bozo can become a teacher, Ammon corrects him, saying it's not a free-for-all. Getting there is a pretty big deal. Getting back on track, here's the straight talk. If the kid grinds hard enough, he might become a noble one day and eat meat until he bursts. Way different from him, who despite being a broke little noble, spent his life living on potatoes and water. Anyway, the burning question is, does he have the ambition to become a noble or not? Biting into a piece of chicken with gusto, Boris confirms that yes, his dream is to move on up in the world. Hearing that takes a load off Ammon's shoulders. At the end of the day, HES only got these 2 students to do the heavy lifting in the competition. With the deal sealed, the MC announces there's gonna be an extra class in the afternoon and asks if they're ready to sweat it out. Boris accepts right away, all hyped up, and Ammon turns to call on Chloe. However, when he looks at the girl, she's making that face like she'd rather be anywhere else. Boris steps up and explains that the girl is terrified of people, aka social anxiety. That's why she's standing there shaking like a leaf, trembling without being able to say a word. Ammon thinks the contest is gonna be swarming with people, so maybe it's too much for her, but the girl surprises him by saying she wants to go anyway. Her goal is to overcome this paralyzing fear. The guy smiles in agreement, but deep down he just wants to use her as a stepping stone for his own success. Yeah, the Reg always has an angle. Despite the scheming, his confidence rubs off on the students, who get happy and ready for training. Poor things, little do they know that hell on earth is waiting for them right around the corner. Cut to the next scene, there's the MC setting the pace and shaking off the rust. Right behind him come Boris and Chloe, repeating the mantra, sound mind, sound body, sound body, sound body. While they grind, the Slackers Union, Aka, Sloth and Marion is just watching, counting the laps. And from what they saw, the kids are already past lap 80. After that marathon, it's obvious the students are dead, basically running on fumes. Thinking the kids are made of iron like him, the MC reflects that their stamina is pathetic, but he sends the gang straight to magic theory class. Back in the classroom, Ammon drops a gem, and that is how magic was proven. After an explanation worthy of a doctorate, he asks if they understood, but their blank stares say no. Boris admits it's all great to him, but the teacher finds it weird, swearing that was just the basics of the basics. Marion is the one puzzled by this, realizing the MCS method is magnificent, but way too advanced. The guy comments that it's bizarre they don't know that, but since the brain didn't work, let's go back to the field to exercise the body. Sloth is in disbelief hearing that HES gonna send the kids to the physical grinder again. And sure enough, my friend, they are already on the field running with their little legs almost turning to jelly. Ammon is right on their tail, screaming that if they stop, it'll be much worse. A while later, with the two of them almost passing out, the MC complains that the youth of today is way too weak. At that moment, someone taps his shoulder, interrupting the torture. It's Marion and Sloth, wanting to know what kind of madness the MC is pulling. Ammon says it's just a basic little workout, but thinks these slackers never wanted to do anything, and now they decide to work in metal? Sloth questions if 100 laps were really necessary, and the MC justifies it saying the field is small, so doing just 10 would be a warm-up for seniors. Marion asks about the theory class and notes that he was teaching advanced magic theology. Ammon says yes and offers to teach the bearded guy later. The worst part is, even though they look impressed, the MC wonders why HE is getting chewed out by both of them. Look at their faces. Sloth comments that the crazy guy's training is Spartan style, way too painful for kids who are grown adults. Marion suggests it's better to pump the brakes and take it slower. Stubborn? The MC says no. HES gonna keep up the insane pace and tells the two of them to beat it. Except after that snappy comeback. Man, the two veterans loom over him with the killer aura. Immediately, the goal that was 100 laps drops to 50 like magic. Sloth says the kid is nuts. Just because his backyard was the killer mountains he climbed up and down doesn't mean the kids can handle it. You can't measure everyone by monster standards. Marion finishes the lecture. The kids need the basics first. Not everyone had an OP mage dad like his. In the academy, there are students of all levels, so the teaching method can't be standardized based on the top tier. Now that is what they call real education. The little MC swallows the scolding in silence. Meanwhile, Sloth wraps it up saying he needs to understand what is normal for society, and not just for his own little world. Actually, the one dropping this hero talk is Marion. He even quotes that classic line, "With great power comes great responsibility." The MC takes a second to think about it and says, yeah, I guess the drunk is actually right this time. So it was decided, Marion teaches the practical side of magic, while Ammon focuses on explaining complex theories in combat mindset. As for physical training, the routine remains insane. Sloth is still there, trying to sleep in her usual bag, but the difference is that now, after the light jog, fencing class kicks in, and since the running drill was over and a certain someone was still snoring, you guys already know the solution, right? It's a big whack on the head to wake her up. At least this time, Sloth comments while rubbing the bump that running a lot before sword training actually builds insane stamina. Back in the day, noble parents thought it was an outrage to see their kids sweating and running. Go figure that logic, right? How do you expect to have wind for battle without cardio? Running is the basics of the basics. Marion asks if the MC is going to adapt the teaching for each student, but Sloth cuts him off saying yes, but for physical stuff, it's total equality. Rich, poor, royalty, or commoner. Everyone is going to run until their legs fall off. Meanwhile, Ammon announces that the next level of training is going to be 1 versus 2. And guess what? Yep, the students are going to have to try and hit him. Marion thinks that's kinda risky in figures. The little MC's gonna end up getting wrecked by the kids. But nope, even though Ammon isn't a sword master, the kid grew up dodging monsters, so his dodge game is god tier. The wretch just stands there, mocking Sloth and the students, saying they are way too slow. After 2 days of getting beaten by the MC until they toughened up, Ammon claps his hands and announces that the game of tag is over. Now they're moving on to real combat. Except things got serious because, apparently, he ended up creating 2 little monsters thirsty for victory. Well, after that mess, we cut the scene to the Amur guard post. At the entrance, one of the guards greets the drunk, calling him Viscount. The MC is impressed, thinking damn, this booze hound has a noble title. But Professor Marion arrives all pompous, puffing out his chest and showing the Feeder family crest. That shows HES connected to a Marquis. Yeah, the guard got the title wrong, but the important thing is that pulling rank worked. The soldier, kinda embarrassed, says it's all good and lets the troop in. Looks like the group is heading to a training arena. I thought the so-called real combat would be against monsters, but no, it's gonna be an all-out brawl against the local guards. By the way, the little bald guard getting ready over there is named Pitt. Guard Pitt. It seems ironic for a guy with that mug to have a movie star name. Ammon announces that today's practical class is simple. Beat the snot out of the proud city guards. My friend, you gotta hit with intent, no mercy or pity. Boris, full of energy, asks if he can go first. The MC gives the green light. Go get M, my boy. Make us proud. Guard Pitt laughs in the kid's face and tells him to be careful not to get hurt. You know how it is, right? He says HES gonna go easy on the child so he doesn't get in trouble. Except as soon as the fight starts. Oh, sweet lord. The kid charged in looking like the devil himself, swinging wildly all over the place. The MC stands in the corner, all proud, realizing his pupil is killing it. Boris's speed increased insanely thanks to those marathons of laps around the field. And using the basic feint tactic stop by sloth, HES managing to land precise hits. The basics done right are deadly, my friend. That ends up making our homie, the discount Brad Pitt, pretty angry. No way is he getting heat from a brat. The guard finally sees an opening and prepares a counterattack. But when he throws the strike, the kid is already gone and hitting him from below. And the worst part is, a second later, the kid has already retreated and is coming in again from another angle. The little guard starts thinking, are you crazy? This kid is possessed. And to top off the massacre with a flourish, Boris lands a wooden sword strike right on the guy's bald head. Man, that was mean. The hit was so hard it probably made his scalp even smoother. He turned into a t-shirt print. While the MC praises the performance, Boris is there looking at his own hands, unable to believe he beat a grown soldier. Ammon keeps it real. Hey buddy, the one who trained you, the great Professor Ammon. Did you think all that suffering was just for show? Now that Boris has had his moment to shine, it's Chloe's turn. She stammers, shakes like a leaf, but there's no way around it. She's gonna have to face the challenge. The funny thing is she isn't even scared of the soldier or his sword. Her greed is the stares. In her head, there's an infinite crowd judging her every move, and from so much fear and social anxiety, the girl freezes and ends up falling to her knees on the ground. Already starting to cry, the little one thinks she's useless, that she can't do it and she's gonna freeze up again. But that's when, in the middle of the despair, Ammon shouts her name to break the trance. When she opens her eyes, startled, she sees the MC right there asking if she's okay. He explains calmly that she can relax. Those guards are irrelevant. They'll see her once in their lives and then never again. And to help, he drops the golden tip, use the potato theory. The only thing she needs to do is imagine everyone there is a potato. If it helps, imagine they are potatoes from her homeland. Chloe closes her eyes and starts imagining. The guard is a potato, the audience is a sack of potatoes, and suddenly, she feels calm. When she opens her eyes and stands up, her posture has changed. Now she's full of energy and ready to make some mashed potatoes. Basically, you could say her determination bar just filled up to the max. However, when staring the guard right in the face, she realizes the jerk has that little smirk on his face, thinking the fight is already in the back. Seeing the guy's attitude, she goes on the offensive. The attacks look light, but they're fast and aim right at the potato's weak spots. Marion is jaw-dropped, totally confused. How is little Chloe fighting like that? What kind of sorcery is this? The MC, all full of himself, replies, relax, that's just pure talent from the master right here. The bearded guy gives him the side eye and says HES getting too big for his britches, taking back any compliment he might have thought about giving. But focusing back on the bet down, we see Chloe charging at Potato Man with zero mercy. The strategy is clear. She hits and runs, stick and move, like an annoying mosquito that bites and flies off before getting swatted. The guard starts breaking out in a cold sweat, realizing too late that the little girl is way faster than him. To seal the deal, she aims a surgical strike right at his wrist. The impact is solid and ends up fracturing the guy's arm bone. Did you hear that crack? Cause I heard it from here. Unable to hold his sword and screaming in pain, the little guard practically taps out right there. And just like that, our dear Chloe, with her potato slayer mode activated, comes out victorious. All choked up and crying, Professor Marion shouts Chloe's name and says that's enough, declaring that the kids are his saviors. The story explains that, from that day on, the students started training daily with the guards. The soldier actually begs Boris not to aim for the head. In a cute chibi version scene, the MC chases after his students, Boris and Chloe, who are running away from him across the training yard. With an evil little smile, Chloe hits the guard one more time, and he complains that the darn brat is hitting the exact same spot again. The story explains that, as they gain confidence, the students' skills improved a ton and before they knew it, it was already the eve of the competition. The MC tells them they worked hard and are going to eat something delicious today. The students scream Ammon is the best, and Boris immediately asks, is there gonna be meat, steaks, a barbecue? With a chill smile, the MC announces they are heading to the arena, and that only the winner will earn the the right to that fancy meal. The students let out a sigh of defeat, and one of them asks the professor if HES sure this is a good idea. The MC watches the gladiator fight from behind the bars. The crowd is screaming like maniacs. One bettor says if his fighter loses he can't go home, and another yells that he has to win at all costs. Boris wants to snitch to Sloth that Ammon brought them to this place. Chloe is only thinking about hot dogs, and the MC says HES gonna compete, place bets, and then explain the rules to the kids. In their chibi versions, the MC explains that the rule, there is hands only the two students, shocked, asks say what. The scene shows a muscular fighter in combat, and the MC explains that hitting vital points, gouging eyes, and biting is all fair game here. Boris protests, saying they only learned in fencing. The MC ignores him, finishes the registration in the bet, and asks the boy if, without a sword, HES just gonna sit there sucking his thumb. The MC says that, even though it's a junior competition, there's no guarantee the opponent will fight with good manners. Boris, worried, thinks that might actually be true. Ammon puts his hand on the boy's head and calls his name Boris. With an encouraging smile, the MC tells Boris not to worry too much and to trust in what he learned in himself. Looking at his teacher, Boris thanks Professor Ammon and that he can't believe what the professor taught them. A purple-haired dude watches from afar while the MC says that, now that they're registered, it's time to head to the seats. Professor Marion cheers excitedly, and the purple guy thinks, are those academy students? Because except for that random guy, I've never seen those faces before. The mysterious man takes a sip of his drink, thinks what a fool, and that this isn't a place for little kids. It is announced that the match between Eggpunks and Boris is about to start. The boy stands at the arena entrance, visibly nervous. Completely terrified, Boris wonders what HES is supposed to do. On the other side of the arena, Eggpunks, old and muscular, cracks his knuckles with a sinister smile. This kid looks strong, but what is this brat who still smells like milk doing here? The bald guy continues, saying he fights for real, even if his opponent is a child. Boris, determined, assumes his fighting stance. In a memory, the MC tells the students they aren't strong yet and are still at an inexperienced stage. In the flashback, Ammon smiles and says that's why HES going to teach them a special technique. He explains that if the opponent seems too strong and they have no chance of winning, they should use this trick. The secret technique is revealed, hit their vital point back in the present. Boris lands a perfect strike right in his opponent's family jewels, who lets out a scream of pain. Eggpunks has an expression of pure agony, and the narrator announces that Eggpunks' eggs have popped, and Boris is declared the winner. In the audience, the MC celebrates, all excited, while Marion and Chloe are in shock. Ammon turns to Chloe, see what Boris did? Do exactly that. She replies, yes, professor. With a confident smile, the MC shouts that HES rooting for Chloe and announces he bet 2 gold coins on her victory. The mysterious man squeezes his wine glass tightly, thinking angrily that if those brats mess with his business, HES gonna be ticked off. The mustache boss orders someone to call the fixer Dexon. The subordinate reminds him there's a guy named Random Jack there, but the boss cuts him off. That has nothing to do with it. Jack wouldn't recognize anyone. Then the subordinate drops the ball and Dexon is off duty today. The boss gets upset and yells, what? A muscular guy has his back turned, closing up shop for the day, and the boss is like, hey, why are you stalling? Meanwhile, back at the fighting arena, the MC, Boris, and Professor Marion watch the fight with shocked expressions. The MC just thinks of Chloe's name. The girl lands a powerful blow on her opponent's abdomen, who lets out a groan of pain and wonders if she was always this skilled. The fighter, irritated, calls the girl a brat while she nimbly dodges his attacks. Chloe keeps dodging the guy's strikes with fast and precise movements, leaving him totally frustrated. Professor Marion comments, it's crazy how she fights barehanded considering she only learned fencing. The MC replies, in the Field family, fencing training includes unarmed combat too. Ammon continues, without a weapon, it turns into a corkscrew punch. With a sword, it's a slashing strike. Chloe lands a punch on the opponent's face, and Marion comments, oh, I get it now. The MC actually knows what HES talking about. The bearded guy asks, so, did Ammon learn fencing from Sloth? The MC replies, no way. I asked nicely and she wouldn't even teach me. Marion thinks this anti-teaching alliance against Ammon is still going strong, holding a bag full of cash. The MC congratulates Chloe and Boris, telling them they both worked their butts off today. Ammon says that to celebrate their victory, the professor is treating everyone, and the kids cheer. Marion asks if HES paying for him too, but the MC replies he doesn't buy stuff for people with bigger paychecks than his. The bearded professor gets annoyed, saying the MC shouldn't discriminate like that, and asks if he knows how expensive his bar tab is gonna be. He thinks those damn brats are gonna pay for this next time. The scene shows a totally empty coin purse with just a single leaf floating down into it. In a raggedy chibi version, the MC moans about how those kids were hungry enough to drain his wallet dry, and that he lost every dime he made today. With his hand on the headmistress's office door, Ammon thinks he should hit her up for some competition expenses suddenly. The MC busts the door down in a panic, screaming and asking what's wrong with the headmistress. A blonde girl without fears, the headmistress, is crying a river of tears, sobbing Professor Ammon's name and saying her King Mango is gone. She keeps crying, saying it was the only one left. The MC, totally confused, wonders what the heck is going on. The camera reveals a creature with white hair and red eyes munching on mangoes from a box, and the MC wonders if that's a thief. With dollar signs in his eyes, the MC thinks that if they catch the thief, there might be a reward. The story highlights that Ammon only thinks about money, even in a situation like this. The MC grabs the headmistress by the shoulders and tells her not to worry, leaving her surprised by his sudden change of attitude. With a powerful leap, Ammon launches himself at the thief, shouting that he'll handle this. The scene focuses on the face of the supposed white-haired thief, who just keeps devouring the mangoes. Flying toward the intruder, the MC screams that HE's gonna use all his strength to catch that scumbag. Desperate, the headmistress screams for him to wait. In the blink of an eye, Ammon takes a massive punch to the face, and the story reveals that this person is actually the vice principal. Sitting elegantly on a red sofa, the white-haired man says he'll introduce himself properly. He is Bresla, the vice principal of Ammon at H Academy. In a chibi version, the MC grumbles, bummed out because he thought he was gonna score a reward. Vice Principal Bresla asks what Ammon just said. The MC apologizes for not recognizing him, and the elf replies that it's cool, as long as he understands the situation. Bresla lets out a sigh, holding a letter, and complains that he faces all kinds of drama as soon as he gets back from vacation, which he took exactly because his workplace was about to vanish. He continues, saying HE's been managing the place while trying to stop that idiot from doing stupid stuff. The MC, surprised, asks managing, while the headmistress looks nervous. The MC asks, so the vice principal was running the academy the whole time? Bresla confirms that's right. It never trusts that hard-headed elf with anything. The headmistress complains, hard-headed is a bit much, isn't it? He says bluntly, NRL. Holding a ledger, Bresla asks NRL, what is this item listed as temporary income of 3,000 gold? The headmistress stammers, and he snaps, speak up. NRL stammers that it was the prize from a snail race. The vice principal's eye glows with a red light of pure irritation. The headmistress shrinks in fear, letting out a terrified little squeak at her deputy's reaction. In the chibi version, Bresla scolds her, it was pure luck you got this temporary income, but what if something went wrong? Do you have any sense of responsibility as a headmistress? NRL apologizes, and the MC stands there thinking about the person who convinced her to invest in snail races in the first place. Bresla continues, advising that if she's gonna invest again next time, she should put the money into the King Mango farm. Shocked by the suggestion, the MC, in his tiny chibi form, can only think, excuse me? The MC asks which farm he said they should invest in. Bresla replies that, based on the owner's letter, it's a guaranteed when Ammon thinks it might be true, but his face says HE's definitely not buying it. Bresla claims that the cafeteria staff shortage was a critical issue and asks the director to sign the recruitment paper. She, without a second thought, just agrees with an okay. The MC panics and tries to stop the director from signing, yelling for her to wait a minute. He questions why on earth they're hiring cafeteria staff when they only have 3 teachers and 2 students. Putting a hand on Ammon's shoulder, Vice Principal Bresla tells him to listen up, rookie. Grabbing the MC's face, the elf says they can't let the morale of the remaining crew drop because of lousy food. He claims the right move is to improve the food quality first to boost motivation. The MC grabs the papers to take a closer look, telling himself to stay calm and analyze the situation. He realizes all the documents are about the cafeteria, staff recruitment, expansion plans, and even a meat supply contract. The guy wonders if the academy is turning into a restaurant or something. Bresla, the vice principal, comments that the current meat supplier is awful to and they need to find a new one. Right at that moment, the MC calls his name. The white-haired man turns around and asks why Ammon is calling him. The MC informs him that he'll have to participate as the supervising teacher in the Emperor's Cup competition, which starts tomorrow. Shocked, the vice principal thinks what? And asks why it has to be him. Ammon says that if the vice principal represents the academy in the competition, the Emperor will see them in a whole new light. Bresla, annoyed, wonders where he got that idea to him. It's obvious the academy is becoming a restaurant. The vice principal tries to wiggle out of it, suggesting the director would be a better choice, but Ammon throws himself on the floor and begs, saying it has to be him. Director NRL, in her chibi version, gets all emotional thinking about Professor Ammon and how much he cares about the academy. Little does she know, with fireworks exploding in the sky, a huge banner announces the Emperor's youth competition, with a message from him welcoming the children of the Empire. The MC reads a flyer and thanks everyone for showing up on that glorious day, commenting that the Emperor is famous for being the most democratic ruler. With a huge grin on his face, the Emperor raises his fist and shouts for the competition to begin. Ammon looks at the poster and reads the Emperor's full name, Sanrio Arja Ammon at H, also known as Ammon at H the 18th. He also notices the guy's photo is totally photoshopped. The student Boris walks up and calls for Professor Ammon. The MC turns around and asks what happened to him. The kid looks worried and just stands there for a moment, totally speechless. Boris eventually gives up and says it's nothing. Ammon, with a little smirk, replies that it's all good then. While watching the fireworks from a person's face in the sky, the MC lets out a long, deep sigh. The fireworks keep going, now shaping into a buff guy, and Ammon can only think about how much Axbear money the Emperor blew on this nonsense. Seeing yet another firework image, this time of someone making a finger heart, the MC wonders if this is really what they're taxes are paying for. The scene focuses on a chicken and veggie skewer that looks simply delicious. Man, that's making me hungry. A mouth opens wide to take a generous bite out of the skewer, with a speech bubble confirming the obvious: it tastes amazing. The MC is with his students Boris and Chloe, asking if the skewers are good. They say yes, and Ammon replies, of course they are, they cost an arm and a leg. Chloe, looking all cute, offers a piece of her skewer to a girl standing nearby, telling her to give it a try. Out of nowhere, someone shoots Chloe and the skewer flies out of her hand, hitting the ground as she lets out a little shriek of despair. Ammon and Boris dive to the ground to save the food, with the MC yelling for Chloe not to worry because of the 5-second rule. The girl, dying of embarrassment, begs him to stop, thinking about how pricey that skewer was. The girl gets annoyed with the whole commotion. A young guy with long dark hair is seen from behind. Chloe asks where Prof. Marion and the vice principal are. Boris says he doesn't know, he only saw them at the opening. The MC tosses the saved skewer and thinks about making whoever caused this pair up. Suddenly, Ammon makes a shocked face and thinks, wait a second. The MC, standing next to the director, thinks that a lot of dark elves have an obsession with something, staring at a gigantic pile of dirty plates. Ammon wonders if the vice principal was starving during vacation, because this looks way worse than before. The scene reveals Professor Marion and Vice Principal Bressler devouring a mountain of food. Ammon loses his patience and screams at them, calling them stupid idiots. The scene cuts to a screen with chibi versions of the students running around in panic. A voice calls out for Professor Ammon, and the MC turns around and asks what's up. Marion and Bressler are on the floor, bowing and asking if this is an insubordination. The MC drops a so what, and complains that, because of this, his students won't even get to eat properly. Annoyed, Ammon blames the two of them for blowing all the money on a single meal. With a sinister little smile, the MC grabs the vice principal and thinks that every boss with a bad reputation eventually gets stabbed in the back by their own oops. Ammon continues, saying that taking them out completely is an exaggeration, so he suggests beating them until they almost pass out. With a serious look, Ammon asks if they know there's a private betting pool going on at the competition. The MC places his bet, putting down 6 silver coins on Boris and Chloe to win their first matches. The guy at the counter hands over a confirmation ticket and says it's a done deal. Holding the ticket and crying tears of despair, Ammon thinks he can't believe he did that again, while the attendant thanks him for his business. Staring at the ticket, the MC tries to delude himself, thinking that since those two students have beaten adults before, it's a safe bet. The scene shows a packed arena, and the story announces that the first category of the competition is swordsmanship. An announcer asks the participants to step forward. Chloe and Boris are seen from behind, walking steadily toward the arena. The MC looks at the students, thinking he trusts them and for the love of God, win this thing. Then he drops the threat: if they lose, they'll starve for the rest of the competition and walk all the way back to the academy. Boris and Chloe feel the weight of the professor's words and look terrified. The pressure, folks, the pressure. Boris holds his shoulder, complaining of pain. The narration explains that the results of Ammon's special training have finally kicked in. With a victorious smile, the win is declared for Chloe Aaron. From a distance, the MC shouts, all proud, telling her she's the best. The story explains that the competition kicked off with Chloe's first win, while Boris had a really tight fight against his student from a famous academy. In the arena, Boris and his opponent trade heavy blows, and the sound of wooden swords echoes everywhere. In the audience, the guy with the mustache comments on whether the kid is a common or a woman. Next to him replies that HES doing surprisingly well. With a pained expression, Boris thinks HES not doing good at all, and that his shoulder is hurting more and more. The MC, smiling smugly, thinks those 60 silver coins were a way to easy and mentally thanks Chloe. He calculates Boris's chances are 1 in 100 because he's a commoner, but figures he can still win. Faith in the investment. In a quick move, the kid charges full speed at his opponent, screaming at the top of his lungs. Boris leaps toward his opponent while the MC yells from afar that he trusts him. With sweat running down his face, a voice echoes in the kid's mind, telling him they believe in him. In a flashback, the kid's parents say he'll be better off on his own and that he'll do great at the academy. With a hand on little Boris's head, he promises he won't let them down and that they can leave everything to him. The narration explains that, after entering the academy, he realized one thing: to be considered average among the nobles, he had to work 10 times harder. One night, while the kid was training alone near a lake, someone asked if he was still practicing. It was Professor Ammon, who with a smile, said that watching Boris motivates him to surprised. The kid just calls out his name. In their chibi versions, the MC asks if it's 100 laps, and the student complains, saying that's way too much. Back at the lake, Boris calls out to his professor. Sitting on a bench, the kid asks why the MC invited him to join the competition. Ammon looks thoughtful, not sure what to say, probably because the answer involved money. With a serious look, the MC stares at the starry sky, mulling over his student's question. Then Ammon, all curious, throws the question right back, asking why Boris was training alone at that time of night. The kid says, well, obviously so I can win, right? And it looks like that confidence paid off, causing the fight. Boris jumps in, screaming HES gonna win, and with a perfect strike, sent his opponent opponent's weapon flying. Grimacing like HES, lifting a weight heavier than his credit card bill, the kid lets out a war cry as he finishes the move. Boris lands with style while his opponent's sword goes flying, ending the match. But the MC is confused, scratching his head and wondering why the opponent is backing off right now. Boris' opponent, acting all cocky, taunts him, asking what happened and where all that fighting spirit went. The guy keeps mocking him, questioning if that was the limit for a commoner, while Boris defends himself with his wooden sword, which is already starting to crack under the pressure. Lying on the ground and already ticked off, Boris yells at the other guy to shut up, saying he doesn't know anything. Looking like he just bit into a lemon, the kid lifts his sword with difficulty, feeling immense pain. Gripping the sword with all his might, Boris thinks this can't be happening, and that things just got real complicated. Breaking into a cold sweat, the kid panics when he realizes his shoulder just locked up and won't move. Taking advantage of the opening, the opponent charges in faster than gossip in a small town to deal the final blow to Boris, who is totally defenseless. The kid can only watch in shock as the opponent's strike tears a piece of his clothing. With a mocking smirk, Boris' opponent calls him a little commoner. In the blink of an eye, the wooden sword cuts through the air, heading straight for the kid. The opponent yells for him to just go home while landing a brutal blow on Boris, who lets out a scream of pain. With the wooden sword on his shoulder and a look of defeat, Boris thinks that, well, that went south. The announcer declares that the winner is the student extra Lotta, while the camera pans over the gigantic competition arena. The MC, in pure despair, is already mourning his 6 silver coins. Meanwhile, the spectators nearby comment that the other guy showed no mercy to the commoner. A man in the audience comments that the commoner kid is amazing. Another agrees, saying he defended himself really well against the heir of the Lotta family, leaving Ammon with a face like say what. The spectator continues, saying that even though he is a commoner, he is looking forward to the kid's future. Later, meeting up with his student, Ammon arrives, calling him a brat. The scene shows Boris all bandaged up, and the MC asks what happened to his face. The kid apologizes for losing in the first round. Ammon says it's fine and that he did great, but he needs to have a little word with him. The MC cuts straight to the chase and asks why Boris didn't mention his shoulder was hurting. Boris explains that if he said anything, he wouldn't have been allowed to enter the contest, and he really wanted to win. Ammon then asks how the special classes were. In a flashback, we see the kid training like a maniac, and he replies that it was hard but fun. The MC agrees and asks if he didn't gain confidence in things he used to think were impossible. With a rare, gentle smile, Ammon says the results aren't the most important thing, but the process is, and that plenty of other chances will come up. Placing his hand on the kid's head, the MC tells him to use this experience as a lesson and keep pushing himself. Ammon makes the kid promise that from now on, he'll speak up about any injuries. Boris agrees. On stage, an announcer declares that the fencing division of the competition has finally reached the final rounds. He continues, saying several youths of the Empire showed talent, especially Chloe, who came out of nowhere and did really well. Everyone is eager to see what she'll do. The final match between Chloe, Aaron, and Draymond is announced. From the stands, the MC thinks this random guy is just some random commoner who doesn't even belong to an academy and probably sucks. The story informs that the two competitors have entered the arena. Ammon, watching the scene, is already banking on close victory. Suddenly, the MC's expression changes from confidence to pure shock, and he can only think, huh? The scene focuses on someone's feet walking it. The mystery guy has arrived. In a flashback, a shadowy figure tells a boy to hide his abilities as much as possible during the contest. The story reveals that the boy is Raymond, the secret grandson of the Empire's Grand Swordmaster, the Heavenly Sword King Ray and Belt. Roman gives a small bow and says he'll be in Chloe's gear. The crowd starts gossiping. One guy comments that Chloe is gonna win easily, while others are already thinking about going to the bathroom or buying snacks. Chloe thinks this is no fun at all and that it's better to end it quickly. A low-level competition isn't entertaining for her. Raymond raises his wooden sword and says HES, going to show just a tiny bit of his skills. The fight between Chloe and Raymond is announced to begin, and the girl's eyes go wide in pure astonishment. Faster than my will to get out of bed on a Monday, Raymond charges and unswings his wooden sword. The kid's attack whizzes past Chloe's face, who manages to block it at the very last second. The wooden sword moves so fast it leaves a trail in the air, showing that this is serious business. Raymond keeps up the attack, striking from above and forcing Chloe to duck so she doesn't turn into dead meat. In the audience, the MC and the vice principal watch the fight. Ammon thinks that, judging by that guy's moves, HES definitely not a nobody. It's as if the image likens Raymond's attack to a wild boar charging full tilt. The MC finishes his thought, saying it's exactly like looking at a wild boar. The announcer comments that Raymond is dominating the fight with heavy yet fast moves. Chloe is barely managing to defend herself. Suddenly, the kid vanishes from her sight, leaving her wondering where he went. He reappears crouched down, attacking from below with a totally unexpected strike. The blow lands squarely on Chloe's leg, and she lets out a scream of pain from the impact. The The announcer calls a point for Raymond. Smiling, the kid asks if it's getting fun now. Annoyed, Chloe says she hasn't even started yet. Chloe is shocked by her opponent's words as he keeps telling her she's terrible. Voices from the crowd start echoing in the girl's head, with comments like, she wasn't this bad before. It's boring watching her get beat up without doing anything, and telling her to stop messing around. The whispers keep haunting her. In the reflection of her eye, we see the image of people watching. She thinks she had gotten over this, but she's scared all over again. Chloe sees herself surrounded by people, completely frozen with fear. In a flashback, the girl is getting bullied by other students, calling her a mess, a stinky pig, and asking if she still thinks she's royalty. With a sad look, she thinks that she never wanted any of this to happen in the first place. In another memory, young Chloe asks her dad why HES sending her to study abroad out of the blue. He says if she wants to succeed, there's no other choice. She reflects that being royalty with no claim to the throne was a fate she had no choice but to accept, and she remembers the name Jason. Sitting on the grass, young Chloe pets a pig and wonders how she's going to live from now on. The pig lets out an oink and steps on the girl's foot, but she doesn't even flinch. The narration explains that, even though she was abandoned, losing her royal dignity was something she just couldn't accept. The scene shows her receiving a Bravest Child of the Year award. She wonders why the other students got so mad about that. The girl explains that after her country fell, the bullying really kicked into high gear. Ammon watches as Chloe thinks that ever since then, she's been terrified of people staring at her. The announcer warns she'll be disqualified if she just stands there and asks if she's going to continue. In the stands, the MC thinks anxiously if Chloe wins, they secure 1 gold coin and 50 silver ones. Ammon screams Chloe's name at the top of his lungs, and the girl seems to snap out of it. The MC's voice echoes in her mind, yelling for her not to forget what he told her. The girl grips her sword tightly, remembering the advice to imagine strangers as potatoes. Down in the arena, Ramen wonders if that guy is a teacher and thinks HES got a seriously loud voice. Suddenly, the kid takes a hit to the head and lets out a yell. The announcer shouts that competitor Chloe just scored a point. In the stands, the MC asks the vice principal if that student is from the kingdom of Aaron. Bressler confirms it and comments that the pork dishes from there were delicious, and it's a real shame. Professor Marion, drunk as usual, explains that the kingdom of Aaron was famous for livestock and the roads were always blocked by pigs. Back in the fight, Chloe raises her sword, thinking about cussing out her opponent big time. The MC remembers the advice he gave the girl, just pretend everyone is a potato. He realizes he might have really screwed up. Ammon realizes he might have created a monster. In the arena, Chloe unleashes a lethal move called pork stir fry. Raymond is shocked by the power of the girl's attack. The blue-haired kid braces himself for the impact of the incoming strike. The scene shows Chloe charging with hers or glowing, while Roman gets pushed back by the sheer force of the attack. Their wooden swords clash with incredible force, creating a blast of energy right in the middle of the arena. Spooked, Ramen wonders if that's an ore blade, but quickly dismisses the idea, remembering it's banned in this duel. Watching the two glowing swords cross together, the kid wonders how she got such a sudden power boost. Chloe stares down her opponent and asks what HES looking at. With a sinister smile and eyes glowing in the dark, the girl asks if HES just an insignificant pig. In a flash, Chloe dodges an attack from Raymond. Looking up with a face like he just figured it all out, Ramen thinks that, thanks to this, HES realized something, and he mentally thanks his grandfather. With a terrifying smile, Chloe stares down at her opponent who's lying on the ground. Sitting on the arena floor defeated, Raymond thinks he was just a frog in a well. The announcer declares the match over and the winner is Chloe Aaron. The announcer calls the end of the match and declares Chloe Aaron the winner. The MC celebrates like a maniac, thinking he finally got some cash. Suddenly, Ammon's celebration is cut short. Chloe is lying on the ground, passed out, with her wooden sword beside her. Ammon calls her name, looking worried. An announcement tells everyone to stand as His Majesty. The Emperor is about to congratulate the winners. Laughing, the Emperor says the fights were a blast to watch. The Emperor then calls the competition winner to the podium. Ramen walks toward the stage. The MC, annoyed, thinks his dear Chloe should be up there. The narration explains that she's resting since she passed out. The story goes that the fight only ends when someone walks out of the arena. Since Chloe decided to take a nap in the middle of the ring, Ramen took the win. Ammon is salty about it, thinking it makes sense technically, but the whole thing feels kinda fishy. But then the Emperor asks everyone to hold their horses, saying the other competitor did an amazing job. With that, he calls Chloe Aaron up to the podium. The Emperor thanks both of them from the bottom of his heart for putting on a show, and as a reward, he announces HES giving 10 gold coins to each of them. Then, he turns to Chloe and asks if she's really from the kingdom of Aaron. The poor girl, all nervous, confirms it, and he tells her she's strong for everything she's been through. Chloe, stuttering, says it's fine and that dump of a kingdom deserved to disappear. The Emperor, super chill, replies that it wasn't the Empire's fault and even apologizes. Ammon actually gets emotional, thinking the guy is a total saint. The Emperor then asks Chloe if that guy who kept screaming at her during the fight was her teacher. She confirms it, and he comments that he's seen seemed pretty interesting, making Ammon nervous, and to the total surprise of the nation, the emperor calls for Chloe Aran's teacher to come up to the podium. Ammon is so shocked, he almost falls over backwards. While walking toward the stage, Ammon thinks that never, not even in his wildest dreams, did he imagine this would happen to him. With the smirk of someone who just won the lottery, the MC thinks the road to success starts with the first step, and he walks up saying, "What's up, your majesty?" The emperor laughs and says Ammon is a very talented young man to have such an amazing student, and mentions he'll give him 10 gold coins too. Ammon, with eyes shining brighter than Christmas lights, thanks him. Suddenly, the emperor comments that Ammon's face looks familiar and asks for his name. The MC, focused on the cash, replies that his name is Ammon Drake. As soon as he hears the name, the emperor's face drops instantly. He squeezes the money bag tight, repeating the surname Drake like it's a curse word. Ammon confirms the name, and out of nowhere, the emperor explodes, screaming, asking who he thinks he is to call him majesty. The MC is totally confused. With a look of pure hatred, the emperor yells that it's no wonder Ammon's face reeks of greed, and that he can only be a scumbag from the Drake family. Ammon, totally spooked, apologizes and wonders if the emperor has some beef with his family. The king replies that Ammon's greed is proof enough, and the MC thinks annoyed, "But you were the one who offered the money first, buddy." The emperor, running out of patience, tells Ammon to just take the money. The MC, without a second thought, grabs the cash. But at the very last second, the emperor yanks the money bag back and chuckles, saying he wouldn't get that lucky. Ammon says the emperor caught him off guard, but that he accepts the reward. The king, however, just says HES, getting on hands over the cash. But when the MC finally goes to grab the money, the emperor pulls it back again and says, "Oops, it's lit." With the smile of someone plotting a murder, Ammon wonders if this guy is really the saint of saints. He decides it's better to keep his mouth shut, because if he screws up, his family could be in deep trouble. The plan was to play dumb, and the MC's train of thought is interrupted by a flick to the forehead, while the emperor yells at him to try and land a real hit. Suddenly, a woman wearing a tiara appears, calls the emperor honey, and asks what this nonsense is all about. She says that, as emperor, he needs to be serious. The emperor laughs and says he got carried away by the excitement. The story then reveals the woman is none other than Empress Victoria. The boss has arrived to set things straight. The empress turns to Ammon and asks if he said he was from the Drake family, and the MC confirms it. With a serious look, the empress says it seems Ammon isn't aware of the historical feud between the Ammon and H family and the Drake family. The MC is completely lost, wondering what on earth she's talking about. The empress tells him to just understand that there's a reason for the emperor acting that way, and that, for today, he is dismissed. Ammon just nods. The MC leaves, thinking that, in the end, he walked away without the 10 gold coins. The scene cuts to a starry night, showing that some time has passed. Raymond is shown lying on the ground, and a voice asks how the fight went. He replies that he won, and the voice just goes, "Okay." A white-haired man with a sword in hand asks if Raymond won while hiding his skills, like he ordered. The story introduces the grandpa of the year, the Empire's Grand Sword Master Rain Bent. The kid stays quiet, not answering his grandfather's question. His silence says it all. Rain Bent laughs and asks if he didn't hide anything, then drops him to Mistory philosophy, saying the world is a tough place. Raymond agrees, saying his grandfather is totally right. The old man continues, saying there are many hidden bastards out there. He mentions HES been called a Sword King, but HES sure there's someone much stronger than him. Raymond, seeing his reflection in the sword blade, replies yes. The grandfather then asks who it was that made him show his true skills. The kid replies it was a student named Chloe Aaron from Ammon at H Academy. Rain Bent looks thoughtful, commenting that she's a survivor of the Aaron royal family, which is no small thing. Raymond adds that she had a teacher, which makes the grandfather even more curious. He says that if his grandson had to fight for real, the girl's teacher must be someone incredible. With a sinister smile, Rain Bent lets out a laugh and says the story is getting very interesting. The scene changes to the academy, with a sword stuck in the ground. We already know trouble is brewing. Meanwhile, a new crisis hits Ammon at H Academy. Director Narelle is crying harder than someone watching a soap opera finale. The MC, in shock, stammers and asks her to repeat what she just said. Ammon in a suit informs them that, as punishment for disrespecting the emperor, it has been recommended that Professor Ammon Drake be fired. The suit says Ammon should be grateful. It's just a firing and not something worse. Shaking in his boots, Ammon thinks about the firing and wonders what HES going to do now. He says if he had known, he would have been happy just seeing the emperor from a distance. The MC lets out a scream of rage, while the director thinks it's such an injustice. Little does she know. Ammon, with a smile at his face, wipes away a fake tear and asks himself why he chose the hardest path. The director, confused, asks what exactly happened. The MC explains he doesn't know for sure, but it seems his family and the emperors are fighting. The director gets indignant, saying they can't fire Ammon for such a silly reason after everything HES done for the academy. With a dreamy look, Ammon says yes, a lot of things happened. He remembers how he got the money for the academy, how he organized special training for the students, and how he straightened out the vice principal. Ammon says he has a lot of good memories there, but there's nothing they can do. The director agrees, saying they really can't. In her chibi version, she cries tears of joy, thinking Ammon is finally free. The director, with a grin stretching from ear to ear, finishes her sentence, saying they can't do anything, except ignore it completely. Ammon, shocked, screams, WHAT. She explains that the academy already has a recommendation to close down, so one more is just a drop in the bucket. The school is running as usual, so ignoring one more order won't change a thing. Ammon, desperate, screams for them to just do what the emperor ordered. Director in RL says that, as the head of the school, she finds the situation unacceptable and that it goes against her principles as an educator to let such a good teacher walk away. In his mind, the MC, completely out of patience, screams that he gets sitting for them to just fire him already. Vice Principal Breathless says it's still too early to give up. Ammon, with his hands on his head, replies that it's the perfect time to quit. The vice principal asks if it really is a recommendation for dismissal, and Ammon confirms it, begging on his knees to be fired. But Breathless says he can't do that. The MC, ticked off, thinks the pig knows exactly what he wants and is doing this on purpose. The vice principal even has the nerve to ask how he could possibly fire such an amazing teacher. With a sinister smile, Breathless whispers that Ammon can check in anytime he likes, but he can never leave. Out of nowhere, a voice screams, asking if Professor Ammon is getting fired. It's Professor Marion sprinting into the room. He says it's absurd to fire such a talented teacher after all. Who's gonna handle all the boring grunt work for him? Marion says HES is going to request an audience with the emperor. The director says Shess sending a message to someone. The vice principal mentions HES hungry. And Ammon, amidst the chaos, screams for everyone to freeze. Rid with rage, the MC yells that if they aren't going to fire him, they should at least give him a break. And just like that, Ammon's attempt to escape the academy went down in flames once again. The story takes us to Ammon's hometown, the Drake estate. Grinning like a fool, Ammon thinks, all happy, that HES finally back in his home sweet home. But the peace is short-lived. A blonde girl without fears shows up all hyped, shouting that it's her first time there. She comments that the place looks like the middle of nowhere. A bearded guy next to her says it's a great day to get wasted, while a pink-haired girl smells something delicious. Ammon can only think, why did I bring this cringe crew with me? In a flashback, someone informs Ammon that he has 3 days of leave. He just replies that he understands. Back in the present, Ammon calculates it would take 15 days just to get home and that the academy doesn't allow banking more than a month of vacation. The MC thinks it's time to negotiate and asks the director if her town is also nearby. She says yes and tosses him 1 extra day of vacation. That wasn't exactly what he wanted. He then asks if he can't get an advance on his vacation, but the director, with a little smirk, says not a chance. Suddenly, the director in her chibi form has a bright idea. The scene cuts to the director packing her bags, saying she can use teleportation magic. Ammon, suspicious, thanks her but asks why she is packing. The blonde explains that since she needs to bring him back, Shess just going to tag along. Ammon, in shock, screams, EXCUS hear me? She continues, all excited, saying she always wanted to see the Arma Mountains and that it would be a great spot for a field trip. The director says Shess going to tell the others. Ammon panics and tries to stop her, yelling that his house isn't a tourist trap. Holding the vacation form, the director asks if he doesn't want the time off anymore, threatening to rip the paper to shreds. The MC asks why everyone has to come along and begs to be left in peace. A hand appears holding up one finger, while a voice proposes a deal. The director offers two options. Either he takes 4 days off without teleportation, or he uses the magic and takes the whole squad with him. The MC turns red with rage, grinding his teeth. Back in the present, the director is enjoying the scenery, while Ammon, right behind her, thinks this situation is a living nightmare for him. The vice principal looks at them, says potato, and then says welcome. Ammon's father, Kajin Drake, welcomes the guests with a smile, telling them to make themselves at home. Everyone is seated at the table. The director thanks him for the hospitality. The bearded professor in his chibi version says he brought some top-shelf wine for them to crack open later. Kajin gets all excited about the bottle and praises his son for having such great colleagues. Ammon, face-palming, thinks his dad shouldn't delude himself. The MC thinks he needs to get these freeloaders away from his dad. Meanwhile, the gang is already partying hard. Ammon calls his dad, who is hugging the wine bottle, and Kajim asks what he wants. With a serious expression, the MC says he has an important question to ask. He remembers the furious look on the Emperor's face, screaming that he was Drake. The boy also recalls the Emperor saying he didn't know about the beef between the Ammon and ancient Drake families. In a library, Ammon asks his dad if there's ever been any bad blood between their families, and Kajim replies that it's about time he found out. The MC's dad reveals that the Drake family is a line of distant relatives to the Ammon and H family. Ammon is so shocked he screams, WHAT. The boy questions why they are just barons if they are related to the Emperor. His father interrupts and calls his name. Kajim hands an ancient book to Ammon and says he will find the answers in there. The MC takes the book, looks surprised. His father explains these are records from the time of the first emperor and that they also share his blood. While he flips through the book, his dad continues, saying they copied everything down for generations, but there are no records from his grandfather's era. The scene shows the pages of the book being turned rapidly. The first page reveals the title, Year 1, Conversation with G.R. Emery Arya and Archduke Drake. Ammon thinks shocked that his family used to be Archduchess. The record goes on to say that the emperor wanted to beat the crap out of the Steel Drake guy. In Year 3, it's noted that Archduke Drake beat the living daylights out of him. The emperor, annoyed, yells at the historian to stop writing down this embarrassing stuff. In the 6th year, the emperor wrote, all formal, that it is impossible to deal with that Duke Drake. The Duke hit back with a long live the ex-emperor, and the current one just flipped the table. Ammon can only think, this is where we lost the title, right? The image shows the poor historian flying through the air, with a thought bubble saying he should have listened. Right below, the record of Ammon at H the 8th describes Marquis Drake as a tough nut to crack, with the Drake family crest stamped right there so nobody forgets the beef. And the historical T keeps spelling. Ammon at H the 11th slapped Count Drake then. Ammon at H the 14th and Viscount Drake had their little spats too. The MC wonders how far this downfall is gonna go, while a footnote says they were joined at the hit back then. And the grand finale, Crown Prince and Rio accused Beau Yen Drake of stealing his sausage and demanded he be demoted from Viscount to Baron. Yep, you heard that right, a sausage. Ammon slams the book shut, wondering, all annoyed, if they actually have the nerve to call that an official chronicle. An illustration shows a little playground squabble turning into a full-blown brawl between parents. The MC concludes the whole feud is nothing more than a kid's fight that turned into grown-up beef. Talking to his dad, Ammon vents that it's a shame how they got demoted all the way down to a simple barony. The MC then asks if anything went down between his dad and the current emperor. Kajim denies it, saying he has never even seen the guy in his life. He explains the beef was between Ammon's grandpa and the emperor, and that the Great War only ended a few years ago. The MC's dad starts theorizing that maybe this bad blood is why their people weren't called for the war. In a random panel, the vice principal shows up eating potatoes, just to kill the mood. Ammon suggests maybe they were just forgotten because they live in the middle of nowhere, and Kajim looks thoughtful, considering that's a very real possibility. With the book closed on the table, Ammon's dad warns that this is top secret info, known only to the emperor's closest advisors in the Drake family. He orders his son never, under any circumstances, to leak this story. The MC thinks to himself, and who was I gonna leak this to? The local gazette? Ammon, still confused, asks why his dad is only spilling the beans now. Kajim, calm as a cucumber, retorts, and what were you gonna do if you knew before? Go around smashing everything, and points to the cracks in the table. The MC insists he wouldn't have done anything, but his dad doubts it, saying he unfortunately takes after his mother. Suddenly, a female voice comes out of nowhere and asks Kajim who that dark elf is. Ammon's dad spins around, completely surprised, and stammers the name Julia, saying she's back. The scene cuts to Ammon and his dad with expressions of pure terror. Enter Julia Drake, Ammon's mom, with a smile on her face. The MC, still in shock, calls her mom. Detail, she's dragging someone unconscious by their hair. Ammon, obviously, asks what that is. Julia explains, totally chilled, that she found a person digging up their potato field, so she took care of them. Ammon looks at the figure lying on the ground and asks if it's a dark elf before recognizing the poor guy. The MC says the person all dirty and passed out is, in fact, the vice principal of the academy where he works. The scene shifts to a bush, where a voice whispers, asking if the others also saw the vice principal getting dragged into the house. Hiding in the brush, the director, the bearded professor, and a few students watch the scene in shock, and one of them asks what kind of crazy place this is. A voice whispers for everyone to hide because people are coming. They watch a group of men passing by, carrying giant monsters on their backs like they were backpacks. The group keeps speaking at the men covered in raid carrying the monsters, and someone comments shocked, asking how they managed to capture so many beasts that size. The camera focuses on one of the hunters, who's all dirty and has the kind of face that makes you cross the street to avoid. Out of nowhere, a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes appears in front of the blonde girl, who lets out a panicked scream. The creature asks who they are, saying HES never seen them around. In the background, a familiar voice asks what's going on. Ammon appears, and the shadowy figure recognizes him instantly. The MC puts a hand to his forehead and sighs, saying he heard a noise that sounded like a pig slaughterhouse and that, apparently, it wasn't a monster. One of the hunters asks Ammon when he got back. While the group keeps hauling the slay monsters, the MC walks over and replies that he just arrived. The teacher comments that the day's harvest doesn't look that great, even though it's an absurd amount of monsters. The director notes that monsters have been scarce lately, while the bearded professor can only think about how much he wants a glass of that wine. Ammon, already out of patience, tells the gang to come out of the bushes and say hi. He introduces them as the director, the teachers, and the students from the academy. The director apologizes for the scream, and one of the hunters says he understands. Two of the hunters, beaming with pure pride, say the young master has really become a wonderful teacher. They even encourage encourage him to keep working hard, saying that at this rate he might even become the director. Little do they know, the MC with a smile faker than a $3 bill thinks, "I'm just gonna finish my 3-year contract and get the heck out of here. Please don't jinx me like that." Ammon stretches, thinking that while HE's happy to see them, it's getting way too noisy. He decides it's getting late and everyone should head inside. Suddenly, the MC stops in his tracks and looks back with a "you gotta be kidding me" face, wondering what the heck is happening now. The scene reveals all his guests lying on the floor, each tripping in their own little world. The director thinks that Ammon, in the end, was on the innocent side. A student thinks everyone there is a delinquent. Another thinks Professor Ammon is cool. A student grumbles that now he understands why his special classes were hell. The bearded professor is down, complaining that the alcohol content of the drink is too low. The MC, looking at this mess, can only wonder what is wrong with these people. The director, with a look of astonishment, points at the MC and asks what he is eating at that exact moment. Taking a bite out of a giant drumstick, Ammon replies with his mouth full, "It's meat." The blonde, indignant, asks if that's monster meat and how he has the guts to eat something like that. Meanwhile, the scene shows everyone stuffing their faces at a banquet, and Ammon's dad offers her a piece. The director says she'll stick to the potatoes because, no matter how long she lives among humans, she just can't stomach meat. The MC, still chewing, replies, "True, you are an elf." The whole table bursts into laughter. The bearded professor tells Kajim that his jokes are going too far, but Ammon's dad replies, dead serious, that he wasn't joking. In another corner, Ammon's mom consoles the vice principal, promising to pack some potatoes for him to take home. The MC smiles satisfied, thinking that things are finally peaceful for the first time in a long while. As if on cue, a massive explosion goes off right nearby. The bearded professor and the students get spooked by the noise and wonder what that was. One of the students, in their cute chibi version, asks Professor Ammon what that sound is. The MC adjusts the huge axe on his shoulder, gives a sinister little smirk, and says it's just a pest and they can go get it. The student finds it weird and asks why he needs an axe for that. Ammon replies, because this pest is a monster. The kid goes pale instantly. Ammon turns around and shouts, asking if everyone has their weapons. The hunters reply, "Yes, young master." All hyped up, the MC yells that they're gonna get rid of it real quick so they can go back to eating. The scene reveals a pack of disgusting green monsters, ready to attack. Without a second thought, the village hunters charge at the monsters, ready to turn the beasts into barbecue. Ammon, with his axe, screams all ticked off, asking how they dare interrupt his rare moment of peace. He delivers a powerful blow with the axe, aiming straight for one of the monster's legs. A giant Orc jumps toward the MC, ready to crush him, but Ammon swings the axe with all his might, screaming that HE's gonna take the lean and tasty meat from that beast's neck. The scene ends with someone's foot stomping hard on the ground, surrounded by a bunch of green monsters and a creature. The MC yells for them to enjoy the whooping they're about to get. Smiling, Ammon spins his axe in a circular attack, saying HE is going to serve up some real ribs for the crew. Ammon fights bravely against 3 winged monsters. The scene shows the monsters' wings and bodies getting sliced to pieces by the attacks, turning into a total mess. The female teacher is completely shocked. The bearded teacher, hurling because he's so grossed out, thinks a total psycho has joined their academy, and the girl just stammers in agreement. Ammon stops in front of a defeated monster, tired from actually moving for the first time in ages. The blonde teacher watches the MC from afar, wondering how he manages to fight so well using just brute strength. Ammon jumps toward more enemies. Someone else thinks it was a great idea not to teach him any sword techniques. Imagine the wreckage. The camera focuses on a character's face as they prepare for their next move. Sitting on top of a pile of defeated monsters, Ammon wipes the sweat from his forehead and says it's been a while since he hunted, so it was pretty tough. The locals and visitors approach, super impressed. One of them says that, as expected of the young master, he cleaned house. Another says he looked a bit rusty. The MC reflects that this must be the result of getting to soft working as a teacher. One of the students, innocently, asks what soft means, and another asks if it's some kind of food. The bearded teacher walks up with his hand on his chest and congratulates Ammon on the great work. The MC is asked if that was the whole horde of monsters. He replies yes, for now, but he feels a big one is coming. The bearded guy, face flushed from booze, asks if it's a drake. The MC gets confused and thinks, Drake? Isn't that my family name? Ammon stands up, annoyed, and screams, asking if the professor just called his people monsters. The older professor explains HE is talking about drakes, a subspecies of dragons. The MC warns him not to say that even as a joke, or he'll get an earful, and the bearded guy, curious, asks from whom. The MC looks at the forest and says that, anyway, he felt like those monsters were running from something. He wonders what would make ogres and dragon subspecies, who usually don't mix, appear together out of nowhere. The bearded teacher, in his chibi form, agrees that Ammon is a point in the situation is super weird. The story explains that drakes are known for their massive bodies, resembling castle walls, and skills that look like iron armor. Plus, they are so violent that compared to ogres. The MC, standing next to a defeated ogre, confirms this is true, especially when it comes to the elder drake. He comments that, according to legends, students. If one of those suckers shows up, everyone is toast. Rubbing his chin, Ammon wonders if the Elder Drake isn't just a super rare monster that only appears in books. He concludes that's probably true and there's nothing to worry about. The scene cuts to two Elder Drakes happily devouring the potato patch, proving that sometimes books are wrong. Someone in the background screams, cursing the beasts at the top of their lungs. The vice principal panics, screaming that they're going to eat all the potatoes and that those are his potatoes. Meanwhile, the MC, dead serious, corrects him. Those potatoes aren't yours. The MC covers his face with his hands, dying of embarrassment over the whole scene. The bearded professor approaches Ammon and asks if his dear friend would trust him, a powerful sixth circle mage. With a magic circle glowing in his hand, he declares that the monsters are going down. The professor casts his spell, engulfing one of the drakes in a pillar of flames, and the monster doesn't even blink. The spell explodes, but the drake walks out without a single scratch, with just a little smoke coming off its skin. Apparently, it's fireproof. The bearded professor gets thrown backward by the force of his own attack and screams in pain. The female teacher, watching from the sidelines, drops her jaw at what just happened. She watches the drake calmly chewing on potatoes and thinks that creature is the same type her father once defeated. Sword in hand, she charges forward, determined, saying she'll fight to defend the potatoes too. The girl attacks the drake, but her sword shatters the instant they touch the monster's hard skin. The MC, in his chibi form, comments sarcastically, if swords worked on them, I would have turned those into kebags with my axe a long time ago. Ammon turns to the crowd and yells that, since things have reached this point, they have no choice but to join forces and exterminate those potato thieves. Everyone responds with a super hyped YS. Someone's hand touches the drake's scaly skin, while Voice asks a lady to pull its hind legs a little harder. Their plan is peculiar. The scene shows several people literally trying to pull and hold the giant drake by the arm. One screams to hold the tail tight, while another complains about being dragged and curses the whole situation. Even while being held back by a mob, the drake keeps trying to eat the potatoes on the ground. Someone screams furiously for the beast to spit the potatoes out, and with all that going on, Ammon is just lost. A man with long hair appears floating and smiling while someone shouts elder. He then says, looking amused, just as I suspected, this is Ammon's doing. The elder, calm as can be, flicks the giant drake's ear, calling it a little rascal, like he's dealing with a puppy. Holding the drake's head, the man asks what kind of naughty behavior that is, while the monster lets out a whimper, clearly intimidated. Then, the elder orders the drake to go back home immediately. The drake trembles with fear and lets out another whimper, obeying its master. And just like that, the elder drake turns around and bolts, leaving everyone jaw-dropped. Someone even asks out loud if the monster really just ran off like that. Ammon says thanks, and the elder says not to worry and asks about work. The MC replies, I guess so, and the elder laughs, surprised that he's actually teaching students now. The MC decides to introduce his colleagues. The scene shows the bearded professor on his knees and the blonde teacher sitting down. The elder notes they don't look too good, but Ammon replies, that's just how they are. Ammon points to the sign and introduces the other two as the director and the vice principal. The elder, hand on chin, lets out an oh-ho, looking all interested. The director and the vice principal approach, and the man wonders, surprised, if an elf and a dark elf are holding such important positions at the academy. The old man, introducing himself as Casella, goes straight to them undead and says, so you are Ammon's superiors? Take good care of him, okay? The two poor ladies just stand there with blank stares, not understanding a thing about what's going on. A mysterious voice asks what's going on, while the camera focuses on the director looking like she's in pure panic mode, with tears streaming down her face. With her voice shaking like a leaf, the director can only stutter the word dragon before blacking out and falling backwards stiff as a board. Seeing this, Ammon and the vice principal rush to help the passed out lady, while the MC screams her name. The story then questions why on earth a black dragon would be living in a human village, showing the Drake family mansion in the background. Sitting next to the bed where the director is rolled up like a burrito, Ammon explains that the dragon is just an elderly neighbor who's been around since he was a kid and is friends with his dad. The MC continues the story, saying that Elder Casella is old and sick, so he doesn't go out much. He also mentions that the dragon doesn't know others of his kind, so visiting their estate is the poor guy's only joy. How sad. Holding a handkerchief, Ammon concludes that he is a very lonely old man. The director, from under the covers, blurts out, is he basically like a stray dog that got kicked out of the pack? Seriously? Zero compassion there? The MC, in his tiny version, says that since the estate is a mess, she'd better go back to the academy while he stays to clean up the damage. The scene shows everyone crying over the destroyed potato field and the vice principal sobbing over his little potatoes. The director agrees instantly, but then the MC's hand lands on her shoulder, and he drops the bomb. Actually, I'd like you to stay. Ammon explains that he heard elves have special magic to help crops grow strong. In his cute version, the MC reveals that the owner of the Mango King farm spilled everything in a letter, saying she went there on her day off to cast a spell. The scene shows the chibi director doing a rain dance for mangoes while thinking, all annoyed that the guy promised to keep it a secret. The director, crying out of fear, says if she stays there she's going to totally lose it and that her hands are already shaking. But Ammon turns into the devil himself, complete with horns and a dark aura, and says there is no way she's escaping. He throws it in her face that she dragged everyone there on a whim and now wants to bail. The blonde scoffs, saying he thinks she can't leave, but she has teleportation magic. She starts reciting the spell, asking to be guided to her destination, but suddenly lets out a scream of terror, thinking she saw Elder Casella again. The MC bursts out laughing and reveals it was a prank, saying the Elder had gone out for a walk in the village. But just to ruin the joke, the real Elder Casella appears out of nowhere behind Ammon and greets him. The MC is like, "How did you spawn here?" while the director lets out another panic scream. The scene cuts to the room, with the director passed out on the bed again. The Elder explains he used teleportation and asks when Ammon is coming back to the estate. The MC replies it'll take a few months to save up vacation days. With a gentle smile, the Elder says that's perfect and help prepare a gift for him. Ammon, immediately interested, asks if the gift is gold. Not greedy at all, right? Casella replies that no, it is something much more precious. The MC is left without a clue as to what this so-called present could be. The scene shifts to a hoe being struck into the earth, time to get to work. The story explains that the monster attacked on the field trip into a rural work camp, with everyone, students and teachers alike, planting potatoes. The image shows the potato field all green with healthy plants ready for harvest. In the end, everyone poses for a group photo, celebrating the success of the crops with big smiles on their faces. At night, under the full moon, someone thinks that the work continues the next day. With a tired face, the MC thinks that this vacation didn't feel like a vacation at all. Ammon walks alone along a trail, thinking he only wanted to visit the estate to ask his dad for advice before quitting his job, but the plan went totally wrong. Sitting at his desk, the MC analyzes the finances and realizes the situation at the estate is looking pretty ugly. He looks at a graph and sees that while he was away, monster attacks decreased, and because of that, income dropped too, since selling monster meat used to bring in good money. Holding a document, he thinks that the cash his siblings bring in isn't anywhere near enough to cover the losses. Suddenly, a crazy idea crosses Ammon's mind. Am I a disaster magnet? He wonders why an army of monsters decided to attack right when he arrived. The MC also remembers that it's almost impossible for an Elder Drake, a legendary creature, to just show up out of the blue like that. He questions if the academy, his first job, is also a mess because of him. But then Ammon shakes his head, concluding that it's all that crazy elf's fault. The MC then straightens his posture and tells himself he needs to succeed, and fast. Out of nowhere, he hears a strange noise and wonders what it is. The sound keeps coming from the forest, and he immediately thinks, is it another monster? Hiding behind a bush, Ammon realizes the sound is coming from a specific direction. His eyes go wide with surprise when he finally sees what's happening. A blonde girl is training with a sword, and the MC wonders if that's Sloth, the lazy one. He watches her movements, impressed, and wonders if that is the true swordsmanship of the Field family. Hiding, Ammon gets annoyed, thinking the girl didn't even help on the farm and spent all this time training instead. The camera focuses on the girl's hands, all bruised from gripping the sword so tight while she breathes heavily. The MC notices the state of her hands and is shocked, wondering if she trained until she bled. The girl, exhausted, leans on her sword, her whole body shaking with fatigue. Ammon watches from a distance and doesn't understand why she is so desperate. Then it clicks, he understands why she's always sleeping in corners. She was secretly practicing her swordsmanship the whole time. The MC stands there, just watching the girl in silence, deep in thought. He decides he has a ton of questions, but for now, ATS just gonna play dumb and pretend he didn't see a thing while the girl keeps up her intense training. Days later, at Ammon Age Academy, a voice asks if the person in front of them is the director. The director, all smiles and playing with butterflies, confirms it and asks what they want. A masked man recognizes her, shocked, and asks where Professor Ammon Drake is. The scene shifts to a desk buried under paperwork, while a voice thinks about how it's been a few months since he became a teacher at that academy. Ammon straightens his tie and thinks that, even though he thought about bailing, this is the real deal now. He decides HES gonna give it his all to teach the students. He looks at two of his students and thinks that with their talent, they're bound to make it big. And when that happens, naturally, HES gonna ride their coattails. With a mischievous smile, the MC thinks the secret to success is latching onto your successful connections, and lets out an evil laugh. Suddenly, the director bursts into the room, screaming and scares the living daylights out of Ammon. He yells at her, asking if she doesn't know how to knock. The director apologizes and says he has a visitor. The MC, surprised, asks who it could be. The scene shows a super fancy library with giant shelves packed with books. Ammon recognizes the visitor and his jaw drops, stuttering in pure shock at the guy's presence. The visitor, a young dark-haired guy, is identified by the MC as the shameless thief who stole Chloe's victory. He then asks if Ammon is Mr. Ammon Drake from Ammon at H Academy. The white-haired man introduces himself with a smile, saying he is Rayan Belt Namark, Raman's grandfather. The story explains he is none other than the Heavenly Sword King, one of the Empire's for great sword masters. Shaking the man's hand, Ammon introduces himself himself too, saying HES the second son of the Drake barony. While they shake hands, the MC thinks to himself that he has no clue why this guy would come looking for him. With an ear-to-ear grin, Ammon concludes this is the perfect chance to make a good impression and finally ditch that failing academy. The story introduces the Heavenly Sword King, Rain Belt, a guy who radiates tough guy energy just by standing there, one of the empires for great sword masters. Sitting at a fancy table, Rain Belt comments that the way Chloe defeated his grandson was impressive. Meanwhile, Ammon, all flustered, thinks he can't believe such an important guy came there just for him and that, honestly, he doesn't feel any aura of success coming from the old man. The swordmaster keeps talking, saying he wanted to see with his own eyes who the girl's teacher was, and even gives Ammon a pat on the head, saying he holds him in high regard. Ammon, breaking into a cold sweat, thinks he only did all that for the students' sake. He remembers telling them to stop following him and a girl teasing the others. Rain Belt laughs and says Ammon is humble too, and that he came to the right person. He then concludes that since the MC trained his students so well, he must be a swordsman too. In a cute chibi version, the old man thinks he doesn't feel any mana coming from Ammon and questions if HES really a swordsman. With an awkward smile, Ammon says there's been a misunderstanding, cause he didn't teach fencing, he just showed the path of hard work. The Sword King stays silent for a moment with a very serious and thoughtful look. A girl next to the MC wonders what's up with that expression. She whispers that Ammon lied, since they call him professor, and Rain Belt mutters a hum while analyzing the situation. Rubbing his chin, the sword master, still deep in thought, asks if he can call in Chloe's fencing instructor. The blonde girl, Sloth, jumps up, introducing herself as a member of House Field and saying it's an honor to meet the Heavenly Sword King. Rain Belt looks at her and notes chess from House Field, concluding she must have experience in teaching. With a focused gaze, the sword master thinks the word but to himself. The scene focuses on the blonde, who wonders why someone so important would want to see her. The old man thinks she is, at best, an expert, and recalls hearing that the Field family doesn't let their members roam free before they become masters. Rain Belt then comments that Hermana feels like Marquis feels and decides to test her, challenging her to a spar, since someone who follows the path of the sword wouldn't refuse. The girl is completely shocked by the sudden challenge from the sword master. Pulling herself together quickly, she agrees and stands up, saying she'll take him to the training grounds right away. The scene cuts to a close-up of Ammon, with a little smirk like he just won big. The story explains that his plan to make a connection to get ahead has failed miserably. The next image shows the outside of the training ground. Already on the field, the blonde appears sweating and panting, clearly nervous about what's going to happen. The girl ends up on her knees, exhausted, while Rain Belt stands in front of her and asks if that's all she can do. The Heavenly Sword King thinks that, just as he imagined, she's only an expert and nothing more, concluding she isn't ready yet. While the blonde shakes trying to stand up, the old man thinks the Field family doesn't teach their secret techniques to just anyone, so there's no way she taught Chloe anything special. Holding a twig like it's a sword, Rain Belt says HES going to show one last move. The girl, recovering, just nods. With a quick movement, the master's foot stomps hard on the wooden floor. In the blink of an eye, the old man charges with the twig, ready to attack the girl with surreal speed. The attack comes from behind, catching the blonde totally by surprise as she tries to defend herself. The twig whizzes past her face, and she can barely react, showing the massive difference in level between them. The sword master shows insane control, stopping the twig right in front of the girl's neck and disarming her in the process. With a serious look, Rain Belt advises the girl to keep training hard. The blonde, still surprised but grateful for the lesson, thanks the master. Exhausted, the girl finally collapses on the ground, while the Heavenly Sword King turns and walks away. Back with the group, the MC points at Chloe and comments, so this is the girl who gave Raymond a run for his money? The pink-haired girl confirms, saying her name is Chloe. Rain Belt stares at Chloe and comes to a master-level conclusion. Since she's from the Kingdom of Aaron, she was basically born with a built-in survival kit. Then, the old-timer says his goodbyes, saying HES bouncing, and asks Ammon to pass a message to the director. On his way out, the Sword King stops dead in his tracks, like he just realized he left the stove on at home. He turns to the MC and asks what he meant by remarkable swordsmanship Ammon, not realizing it's a trick question, just nods along. Rain Belt explains that to anyone else, it would just look like an old dude waving a stick around, and wants to know what Ammon saw that was so special. The MC replies that he changed the trajectory about 30 times. Ammon gives a sly smirk and says the geezer's center of gravity didn't even budge, adding, "How is that not amazing?" while the other students just stand there, totally lost. The Sword King gets all hyped up and, out of absolutely nowhere, challenges the MC to a 1v1. Ammon, looking like he just got invited to a boring HOA meeting, can only wonder where this terrible idea came from. The MC tries to back out, saying he barely knows how to hold a sword. Rain Belt offers the sticks and insists on some light sparring, but Ammon knows there's going to be nothing light about it. The Celestial Sword King acts all offended, saying he thought Ammon was a rare talent. The MC apologizes for the letdown, thinking that if he had the guts to challenge a grandmaster, he would have already bailed on this broke academy. The old-timer old-timer points at the blonde in the sleeping bag and says his classmate is even more pathetic. A student agrees, pokes the bag, and asks if she kicked the bucket. Chloe yells at them not to mess with Miss Sloth. Ammon actually agrees with the geezer's critique, but the sword master plays hard to get, saying he doesn't fall for cheap provocations. But inside, HES thinking, I won't give up, and these students of his must be total nobodies too. Out of nowhere, Ammon charges at Rain Belt with speed that would make the Flash jealous, making the old man let out a little panic scream. The students' jaws drop, and they scream Ammon's name. With a scratch on his face, the MC says he can handle anything, except people bad-mouthing his meal ticket. The scene just shows the blur of Ammon's movement, slicing through the wind and kicking up leaves from the ground, total anime style. With a perfect hit, the MC smacks the stick right in the middle of the Celestial Sword King's forehead, who only has time to yell, "Oh, my head." Seeing the old-timers sprawled out on the floor, Ammon thinks he can't believe the so-called Celestial Sword King passed out from getting whacked with a stick. The students rush desperately to the fallen man, with one of them screaming that it's lights out for Grandpa. Chloe asks what they should do now, and Ammon immediately concludes the guy is a huge fraud. The MC tries to calm the kids down, saying it's fine because the guy is a fake, but they can't just leave him there. On the way, Chloe comments that the imposter's brain fluids are leaking out of his mouth, and Ammon, with all the patience in the world, replies that it's just drool. With the smile of someone already counting their cash, Ammon imagines he might even get a reward for catching an imposter posing as the Celestial Sword King. While the MC has his moment of greed, the camera focuses on the blonde's sleeping bag, which moves discreetly in the corner. From inside the bag, the girl, who is wide awake the whole time, just watches the whole mess with a look that says she's not amused. A voice screams asking what this reward nonsense is about, and right after, Ammon appears on the floor, groaning in pain after getting smacked away. The director shows up looking annoyed, saying she already knew the Sword King. A student even questions her judgment, but she tells the kid to zip it real quick. Now sitting in a fancy chair, Ray and Bell complains about a headache, and the director, all worried, asks if HES fully awake. The director bows deeply, apologizing 1,000 times and promising Ammon will be punished, but the old-timer says it's all good and nobody's to blame, leaving the director looking totally confused. The scene focuses on a Teat Abel while the Sword Master explains that he was the one who insisted on testing the MCS skills, which is why things got out of hand. Ray and Bell turns to Ammon and says he might be a total zero with a sword, but his physical strength is actually scary. In his chibi version, Ammon doesn't get the random compliment and just manages to say thanks, looking kind of awkward. The Sword King says but, while closing his hand, an energy starts forming in his palm, just like a scene from Dragon Ball. Suddenly, a giant sphere of pure energy appears in the middle of the room, lighting everything up and putting Ammon and the master on opposite sides, like they're about to fight for the last slice of pizza. The MC is completely shocked, thinking that's the Aura Blade, a technique only sword masters know how to use. He asks himself if the geezer is actually the real Celestial Sword King. In a very irritated chibi version, the blonde sloth screams in her thoughts, "I warned you guys this old man was the real deal, you bunch of morons." The Sword Master repeats that Ammon has raw physical strength, but explains that against the Empire's knights, who use mana untrained until they drop, the MC will always lose. Then, he drops that he has a proposal. The old-timer asks if Ammon wants to learn swordsmanship from him. The MC goes silent, completely caught off guard by the offer. Ammon starts daydreaming about the title disciple of the Celestial Sword King. He pictures himself swimming in money, thinking that if he gets good at fighting, success and cash will come easy. Quickly, Ammon shakes the master's hand, saying he can't wait for the lessons. To the side, Chloe offers more cookies, while the Sword King laughs and says HES going to start the oath of loyalty for him to repeat. Rainbelt starts the oath, saying that as a disciple, he will dedicate himself to the way of the sword. Ammon repeats all excited that, as a disciple, he will dedicate himself to the way of the sword. The master continues, telling the MC to swear he'll give up all material desires and focus only on training. Ammon starts repeating it like a parrot, until his brain processes the info in blue screens mid-sentence. The MC goes silent for a moment with a sour look on his face, wondering what kind of mess he just heard. Ammon, not understanding squat, asks what the old man just said. The sword master, with a smile, asks if the MC didn't hear him right and repeats the part about abandoning money and material goods to focus only on training. All sweaty and running his hand through his hair, the MC asks for some time to think about the proposal, leaving Ray and Belt totally confused by his reaction. Ammon then thinks the whole situation has been so crazy up to this point that he didn't even stop to notice there was something very wrong there. He wonders why one of the 4 great knights of the Empire looks so washed up. Noticing the stare, the old-timer even asks if there's something on his face. Out of pure curiosity, the MC asks what the master's title is, who responds with another question, not understanding what he means by title. Ray and Belt says that title stuff is just for showing off and that he even turned down being a marquis once. Ammon freaks out and screams WHY, making Sloth warn him that HES thinking way too loud. The MC then asks about his fortune, but the old-timer answers angrily that money is just paper and all he needs is a little spot to swing his sword and a shack to sleep in. The sword master gets ticked off and yells that if Ammon, as his disciple, dares to have those desires, he'll finish him off off in a single strike. A student nearby screams desperately that he can't do that. Holding the teacup with a hand shaking like a leaf, the MC thinks to hold on a second, because now that HES actually stopping to think. The scene shows a quick flashback of Ray and Belt's grandson devouring a cake, then a cookie, and finally having the snack snatched straight out of his hand. The kid, with his mouth full, asks his grandpa if he has any more of those crunchy things, while Ammon thinks this little guy has been munching nonstop for ages. The MC wonders if the old-timer is too broke to even feed his own grandson. Meanwhile, Ryan Belt pinches the boy's cheek, saying his gluttony is getting out of hand, but the kid just whines that HES hungry. On top of that, Ammon remembers the grandson was dressed like a peasant during the competition, even though HES related to a grandmaster. The MC concludes that absolutely nothing good will come from messing with this duel. He abruptly stands up, excuses himself, and grabs everyone's attention. Out of the blue, Ammon takes off running, screaming that nature calls. Sloth calls out to him, and Ryan Belt asks where his new disciple thinks HES going. The scene focuses on Ammon's little coin pouch, which comes to life with a big question mark on its face, watching its owner flee. The pouch gets squeezed tight, like it's in pain, and the story explains that the wallet has been liberated. Press F in the chat for the wallet. At a tavern, a voice says they'd like to pay, and the waitress replies that the bill comes to 20 copper coins. The MC shows up at the counter, patting down his pockets for cash. Confused, he asks himself where his wallet vanished to. The MC thinks about his wallet and, betrayed with embarrassment, asks the waitress if he can put it on his tab. The classic IOU. Walking back to the academy, Ammon wonders where the heck he dropped his wallet. Suddenly, a hand appears holding the MC's coin pouch and says they found what he was looking for. Ammon turns around and is over the moon to see his wallet, stuttering with relief and letting out a scream of joy. Ray Belt chuckles and says he can't believe the MC is that grateful. Ammon then notices the old-timer's clothes and asks why HES still there and what's up with the uniform. The master replies that HES the academy's new security guard. The scene cuts to a window, showing a night sky full of stars. Now lying in bed, Ammon thinks about that old geezer, while a chibi version of Ray Belt appears laughing at his face. The MC remembers asking why he was there. Ray Belt explains the gatekeeper position was open, so he decided to snag the gig for the time being. Ammon gets annoyed, saying the old man is supposed to be detached from the world, so why is he trying to live in it? He tells the master to go back to the mountains, but Ray Belt asks if Ray should go there too. The swordmaster explains that Ray has a master now, so he doesn't need him all the time. He adds that it was high time the kid got a proper education, leaving Ammon's jaw on the floor. The MC stammers, not believing what he just heard. Ryan Belt confirms, all smiles, that Ray is also going to study there, and since the tuition is steep, he got a job on campus. Ammon looks like HES at a funeral, totally crushed by the news. The old-timer says the MC might not know jack about swords, but he seems to believe in education, so he trusts he'll teach Ray very well. With a confident smile, the Celestial Sword King says HES counting on Mr. Ammon's help. Back in the present, the MC is in bed, grinding his teeth in rage, thinking about how raising Chloe well has turned into such a massive headache. Ammon gets up, thinking he needs water to cool off. He remembers history class starts next week, when he hears someone knocking on the door. He creaks the door open slowly and wonders who it could be at this hour, asking out loud who's there. A shadowy figure with glowing reed eyes appears in the crack, whispering potato. Ammon jumps out of his skin and screams that the person almost sent him to the afterlife. The MC asks what HES doing there and what's the deal with potato. He replies that he smelled it coming from the room and accuses him of stashing potatoes. A flashback shows Ammon's mom handing him a giant sack of potatoes. The story explains that, for Ammon, this was his comfort food away from home. Ammon and Sloth are sitting around a campfire, roasting potatoes. The MC thinks he can't believe he has to share his treasure with the last person he wanted to see. The bearded dude with a bottle in his hand arrives calling for Marion, saying they were going to eat some potatoes. The MC asks if they're from his property and offers a bite. The bearded guy laughs and accepts. The dark elf gets salty, thinking that's just another mouth to feed, while another woman arrives wondering what kind of party this is. In a cute chibi version, the MC wonders what the director, Boris, and Chloe are doing there. The blonde director comments that the potatoes look delicious. She explains she saw the students wandering around and, when she went to scold them, they claimed they saw a fire in the training hall. The guy with blue hair comments that this has turned into a potato party and says there isn't much, just enough for a taste. The MC thinks desperately that the number of freeloaders just tripled. The blonde instructor asks if there's a little for her too, but Ammon already warns Sloth that they're running low. The blonde says it's fine since she won't eat much, while thinking she just got back from a secret training session. Ryan Belt arrives with Ray and asks where that delicious smell is coming from. The elf freaks out and thinks, oh no, not him again. The elf loses it and tells Ammon to grab all the potatoes. The MC replies that he thought it was weird she was being so calm before. The MC grabs the white-haired weirdo and screams that HES a lunatic. The story explains that, in the end, he brought the whole sack, which is now cooking in a pot over the fire. In a cute version, the elf thinks my potatoes, while Ammon asks himself since when the potatoes became hers. The MC grabs the hot ones and says that anyway, they are ready and it's time to stuff their faces. The scene focuses on someone carefully peeling one of the potatoes, which is still steaming hot. With the potato peeled, the person takes a massive bite, clearly enjoying the meal. Ray and Belt eat the the potatoes and are mind blown by the flavor. The kid asks what this is, and the old timer wants to know if these are really potatoes. The dark elf gets so emotional over the taste that he starts crying while eating, his face completely messy. The MC, in his cute version, explains that these are a local specialty from his land and they take great pride in them. Rainbelt stares at Ammon and says he finally understands why HE is so strong, leaving the MC with a totally clueless look. The old timer explains it's obvious because if he eats food rich in mana every day, his body has adapted. Ammon holds a potato and thinks that, yeah, his land is full of strong people, but there's nothing special about it. The scene shows a flashback of a vendor saying those potatoes were grown with seeds from a nearby city. The MC then asks for 3 sacks and, relaxing in a field, wonders if the soil in his territory is really that good. Back to the present, Ammon is just chilling, going to town on a potato next to the blonde instructor. The camera focuses on the blonde's face, and we can already see the gears turning in her head. Then, the scene zooms in on the MC, who looks like HES in a committed relationship with that potato. The blonde stares at Ammon weirdly, and he just asks straight up, "What's with that nasty look?" She just calls his name. With a little smirk like she knows the chaos she's about to cause, the blonde instructor drops the bombshell of the century and, totally casually, asks the MC to marry her. Just like that, right in the middle of the potatoes. Ammon chokes on his potato and spits everything out. Even the elf, who was just minding his business eating, drops his jaw and asks, all stutter why, what the crazy blonde just said. The instructor looks at Ammon and repeats that she asked him to marry her. The scene shows a close-up of the blonde's face, keeping a serious and determined expression. The MC, still trying to process the glitch, wonders what kind of nonsense she's pulling now. The blonde repeats, with the patience of someone explaining the obvious, "I said we should get married." Meanwhile, Ammon is there, having a mental blue screen of death. The peanut gallery is in total shock at the proposal of the bearded guy, the elf director, and even one of the students make a shocked face. The sword master just points at the two of them and chuckles, thinking that the youth these days don't waste any time. The bearded guy, Marion, can't hold it back and starts laughing like a hyena. The director shoves him, asking what's so funny in a situation like this. One of the students can't help himself and blurts out, "Wait, isn't Professor Sloth way out of his league?" The guy next to him agrees, relieved. Phew, I thought I was the only one thinking that. Ammon, already fed up with the roasting, grabs a bottle with a mean look, ready to hand out some educational smackdown-s. In a cute chibi version, the bearded guy and the director clear their throats, pretending they weren't laughing just a second ago. The scene cuts to some white roses wilting, perfectly representing the awkward mood that just settled in. Well, later, Ammon and Sloth are walking down a hallway, and the silence between them is so thick you could cut it with a knife. The blonde finally breaks the ice and asks the MC how much he knows about the Merkeyfield family. Ammon replies that her family's swordsmanship is legendary, that every heir becomes a sword master, and that's about all he knows. She then says there's an important detail missing from that story. The MC edits that her family cares more about reputation than money, which is why they don't let anyone leave home before becoming a sword master head down. She asks where he's going with this. Ammon recalls the Swordora and her fighting skills and concludes that, at best, she's just an expert, not a master. In his cute chibi version, the MC wonders how she managed to run away from home being only an expert. She admits he caught her red-handed. The scene focuses on some trees while Sloth starts explaining that her family is, let's say, unique. Arms crossed, she reveals that her family always treated her like she was nothing, never giving a damn about her. The MC is surprised by the revelation, thinking he's never seen that look on her face before. The blonde notices his reaction and questions his sharp face. Ammon, feeling a bit awkward, says it's because she said all of that so casually. She gives a sad little smile and says it's fine because she's already used to being treated like trash. A flashback takes us to a younger version of her, facing her family. She explains that no matter how hard she trained, she just couldn't become a sword master, and that's probably why her family despised her. Sitting on a bench, she says she figured out the play. The family was going to pretend she never existed. She even tried to argue, but it was no use. The scene focuses on her father's face, who basically told her to get lost. She adds that after getting kicked out of the house, they never even sent a text. With a look of despair, the blonde says they don't need someone weak like her, so the plan was for her to fend for herself or just kick the bucket somewhere. However, she continues, saying that while eating that miraculous potato, she had a divine revelation. If she ate more of that, maybe she could rub her success in her family's face. Back to the present, she says that considering the situation, her family won't even bat an eye. If she gets married, the MC replies that he gets that feeling. Ammon explains that since he's the second son, he inherits SIP. His family might care a little, but in the end, he has to hustle to survive, just like her. The MC then asks if that's why she proposed, to eat his potatoes, get strong, and get revenge on her family. She confirms right away that that's exactly the plan. The blonde calls it a marriage of convenience and asks if that's not how nobles do it. Ammon, always practical, asks what he gets out of this whole charade. Striking a model pose, the girl says that, for starters, he gets a beautiful wife like her, but the MC shuts that down, saying he prefers personality over a pretty face. Picky, huh? In her imagination, Sloth sees herself on a throne, declaring that the House of Field is hers. She explains that if she gets strong stronger, she can win the fight for succession. Ammon, in cute mode, already gets curious. The blonde confirms the plan and asks if he can handle the job of family head because she'll be very busy sleeping. The MC lets out a panic scream, imagining the paperwork. She continues, saying he'll have most of the power. Ammon, eyes already sparkling, asks about the cash. The blonde admits she's a disaster with money, and at that moment, Ammon cracks a smile that goes from ear to ear. To top it all off, she says he can also learn the family's swordsmanship. The MC goes crazy, power, wealth, and swordsmanship. It's the perfect combo. Without even blinking, Ammon grabs her hand with the grip of someone grabbing the last slice of pizza. Holding her hands under the moonlight, he already calls her Wiffy and says they need to go break the news to his father-in-law first thing in the morning. The scene cuts to the next morning with a beautiful view of the city. All dressed up, the MC thinks his life of misery is over and now it's just easy street. Little does he know, with a serious expression, he has a random thought and says to himself, by the way, a cute version of Sloth says she's stopping by the beauty salon. Ammon, planted in front of a closed salon, wonders why someone who lived in a sleeping bag now wants to go to a place like that. Inside, an employee sees Ammon peeking through the window and immediately thinks HES some kind of creeper. The woman wonders what's up with the guy in the black suit outside, looking like HES heading to a funeral. She says HES with her, and the employee, all excited, assumes the guy is her servant. Poor Ammon. Outside, the MC has been waiting for 3 hours and wonders if she kicked the bucket in there. The employee opens the door, and before Ammon can say a word, she asks if HES seen a washed-up blonde on her last legs. A voice comes out of nowhere, asking who she's calling washed up. Sloth appears looking like a supermodel, totally transformed, and says she's almost ready. Ammon's jaw hits the floor, so shocked he can barely ask who she is. He finally recognizes her and stammers out her name. The blonde says she usually doesn't care about looks, but when she cleans up, the magic happens. Ammon, trying to save himself, says she was already pretty, she just polished up the look. She asks who's too good for whom, and he smartly answers that it's her, of course. The employee interrupts, asking the servant to step out for a bit. Ammon is left wondering why on earth she called him a servant. Sloth whispers in the employee's ear that HES not the servant, but actually her fiancé. The woman turns pale and apologizes 1,000 times. The MC, annoyed in the background, wonders what she told the woman. The flustered employee thinks it's no wonder the servant was so handsome. The story shows her smile how Ammon sees it evil as she asks the servant to wait just a little bit longer. With his back turned, the MC thinks that just because she looks pretty, it doesn't mean her role personality has improved. The scene shifts to a walled city called Ling Slay. Sloth explains that this is her father's territory. Walking through the city, the blonde comments that she never got the chance to properly get to know the place. Ammon is stunned, thinking about the sheer power of his father-in-law. Sloth looks ahead, determined, and Ammon says it's alright because in the future. With a smile, he adds that this whole city is going to be their personal playground. The blonde gets ticked off, showing that the money talk didn't please her one bit. In their cute chibi versions, she asks if HES only interested in the cash, and the MC replies that's how marriages of convenience work, duh. Arriving at Marquis Field's gigantic mansion, she warns him to keep this trap shut in front of her father. The MC doesn't get why, and the blonde explains that her father is allergic to hearing other people's opinions. She goes on, saying her dad loves holding meetings in, that all the family's 13 swords have to meet up frequently. The MC wonders what this 13 swords stuff is about. Sloth explains they're the family's 13 best swordsmen. Her dad is number 1, and the other 12 are all her older brothers. 12. Did these people not have a TV at home? Ammon glitches out, trying to process the info about the 12 older brothers. The scene shows the MC from behind, staring at a huge meeting table with the patriarch at the head and all the sons around it. The MC thinks he only grasped the gravity of the situation when he felt 13 pairs of eyes drilling into him. He tries to keep a smile on, but the sweat pouring down his forehead gives away the total panic HES feeling. He stares at the table and wonders if those sinister figures with red eyes are the so-called 13 swords of the Field family. Sitting at the head of the table, the MC deduces that the guy with the cigar is his future father-in-law. The story explains that he is Batista Lingsley Field, one of the Empire's for Grand Sword Masters. Basically, the guy is tough as nails. Sloth steps forward, greets her father, and cuts straight to the chase, saying she has something important to say. She explains she met someone special at the academy and wanted to share the news. She then introduces the MC as Baron Drake's son. Ammon, all formal, bows and introduces himself as Ammon Drake. With a nervous look, the blonde continues, saying that even though the marriage doesn't have his approval yet, she finishes the sentence, asking for her father's blessing so they can get married. A deadly silence takes over the room. No one at the table, not the father, nor the 12 brothers, moves a muscle. She gets annoyed, wondering if the words of the week are really that useless to them. In a dark thought, she sees herself alone and wonders if she's so unwanted in that family that she gets ignored like this. Fed up, the blonde just turns around and decides to leave without offering any more explanation. The MC is totally lost, watching her walk past him and head for the door like nothing happened. Desperate, he wonders what this whole mess is about and why she's just bailing. In his cute chibi version, Ammon panics, thinking if she leaves, what am I supposed to do here alone with this bunch of psychos? The patriarch finally opens his mouth and asks if he is Ammon Drake. The MC confirms. Completely out of the blue, the patriarch turns to the side and bellows at one of his sons, a blonde guy named Lang Slow, telling him to simply get him. This Lang Slow guy charges full speed at the MC, screaming that HES sending him to the afterlife. Ammon, not understanding a thing, can only think, huh? The blonde starts attacking non-stop, and Ammon, freaked out, asks why HES doing that. The crazy guy replies by asking if that's his last wish. What a lunatic conversation. With a look of pure hatred, the blonde screams that he'll deliver his last wish directly to the Drake barony. Completely desperate, the MC thinks about what to do. He came to ask for the girl's hand in marriage, not to throw hands with his brother-in-law. Fighting back now would be a terrible idea. Thinking offense is the best defense, the MC yells it's all good, and lands a punch right, and the pretty boys get the story clarifies that was the first combo, an act of pure self-defense, trust me. With the blondie on the floor, barely able to speak, one of the brothers thinks it's impressive the guy got KOD in one hit, but quickly covers it up with a lame excuse. He was the weakest of the bunch anyway. Then, another brother with long hair stands up saying it's his turn. The patriarch agrees, totally confident in his boy can slow. But before the guy can even blink, the MC lands the second combo and drops him with a single hit. Then another brother drops the classic line, "Whoa, he was the second weakest among us." Yeah, sure. The patriarch then calls on the 11th sword, some guy named Ben Slow, and says HES counting on him. The dude gives a mocking chuckle and guarantees one punch is more than enough to handle this. With the third combo, the MC plants a fist right in the middle of his face, and poor Ben Slow thinks, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Then comes the background commentary. Anyway, he was the third weakest. One of the sons turns to dad suggesting maybe it's his turn and they should use swords, but the patriarch shuts it down immediately, saying they won't show the family's noble swordsmanship to a nobody like the MC. The scene cuts to a lollipop hitting the ground, probably belonging to one of the brothers who just got wrecked. Standing over the fourth defeated brother, the MC says for sure, but him faster, while the system beeps announcing his victory. The patriarch yells for the ninth sword to get in there, but the guy suddenly fakes a massive stomachache, crushing the armrest of his chair. The patriarch gets ticked off, wondering how this punk dares to take down four of his elite knights with a single hit each. With a look that would make the devil wave a white flag, the old-timer asks if the MC is ready to sign the guest book in the sky. In his cute version, Ammon starts calculating if this marriage is worth the risk of becoming worm food. The patriarch stands up, looking like a three-door fridge in front of the MC, and says if he has any last words, he better spit them out. Ammon is practically wetting himself. Ammon, trying to buy time, asks Marky Field why HES doing this to him, and the old man, cold as ice, asks if that's his last wish. The patriarch steps on the MC's back, pinning him to the floor, and asks if he really doesn't know where he messed up. Ammon begs, asking the Marquis to at least give him a hint. Shaking with rage, the patriarch starts yelling, saying how dare you. Pointing a finger right in the MC's face, the old man screams, accusing him of tricking his beautiful, beloved daughter with his filthy tricks and having the nerve to pretend he knows nothing. Completely flattened on the floor and more lost than a penguin in the desert, the MC can only ask what. He repeats the word beloved, not understanding a thing about the situation. The other brothers jump on the bandwagon, screaming about how a scumbag like him dares to bewitch their little sister, that tiny, delicate girl. The patriarch says she might be his daughter, but she's just too adorable every time he sees her. One of the brothers agrees, saying he feels the same way and just freezes up when he sees his little sis. The MC, hand on his chest, starts to figure out this crowd's deal. The penny finally drops for Ammon. He realizes they were quiet earlier because they froze in Sluth's presence. In the background, the whole family is excited, saying it's been a while since they saw her, that she's prettier and looks just like their late mother. In his cute version, the MC comes to the brilliant conclusion that this family has a severe case of daughter fan club syndrome. Slow 3 appears at the top of the stairs, and the whole family, who is making a ruckus, gets startled and quickly straightens up. With a shadow covering her face, the girl stays silent while a cute version of the MC wonders where she was all this time. Sloth calls out to her father, who stares at her with a serious expression. Then, she calls out to her brothers, who also stare at her in silence. With her face all red, the blonde says that the stuff they just said, she heard every single word from outside. The girl continues, saying that up until that moment, she had no idea how they truly felt. The dad and all 12 brothers launch themselves at her, screaming my daughter and sister. She does the same, throwing herself at them while screaming dad and brothers, how cute. The girl is welcomed into a group hug, finally reuniting with her family. In the middle of the hug, The blonde cries and apologizes for making them misunderstand everything. The dad says it's okay and that from now on, she's going to do her best. The patriarch corrects himself and says no, she doesn't need to try hard as long as his daughter is healthy. That's all that matters to him. Well, the scene shows that Lollipop on the floor, now covered in ants. Standing off to the side, the MC also gets emotional with the scene and starts sniffling. Crying, he says things went south. Meanwhile, we see several dollar bills with wings flying away, symbolizing goodbye to his early retirement plan. The story explains the marriage proposal went down the drain, and he had to go back to his routine. On the way back to the academy, Ammon asks her why she came back, since she could have stayed at the mansion now that the beef is squashed. The blonde explains that her dad said the path he walks is harder than the world imagines, and they don't want her to go through that kind of struggle. She continues, saying they let her go so she could live freely. But even so, she's going to keep trying in her own way. The girl then mentions that, by the way, when she was leaving, her younger brother gave her a note. The note, signed by Lang Slow, just said come home sometimes. In her cute version, she asks why he looks so down and takes a jab. It's because you didn't get to marry me, right? The MC tells her to stop talking trash, thinking his plan for success went down the toilet and there's no way HE's happy about that. With a mischievous smile, the girl says that, according to legend, once a dragon messes with a lizard's heart, it's game over. Out of absolutely nowhere, the blonde grabs the MC, leaving him stunned and letting out a little surprise yelp. The scene focuses on the girl's hand firmly gripping his shirt collar. The scene shifts abruptly to the elf girl holding a letter with a worried look. She wonders what the best way is to break the news to Professor Ammon. The elf starts explaining that they visited Marquee Field. The MC, arms crossed, finishes by saying it was all just a misunderstanding. The elf, sitting at the table, just nods in agreement. Then, she leans in and asks if something is wrong and why HE's so bummed out. The MC just replies that it's about that. The scene cuts to a white-haired old man panicking outside a building, screaming what happened. Holding a bankruptcy notice, the MC bellows, the Mongol King farm went bankrupt. The paper explains that due to a monsoon and floods, his investment project went belly up. A letter explains that thanks to that ritual he did praying for a bumper crop. A historic flood hit so hard it even rattled the spirit world. In her QTB version, the elf dances and sings for the mangas to grow, thinking it's the same dance from her hometown that always works. She's left wondering why it failed so miserably this time. The girl asks how HE's gonna pay everyone back, but the MC says they'll be fine. He explains that as long as nobody links the traditional elf dance to climate change, the Imperial investigation team won't do squat. In their cute versions, the MC calls her totally shameless, and the elf just sings in response, chill as a cucumber. The girl says that even so, with the 400 gold coins they have left, they can find another investment. The MC is shocked, saying that's chump change compared to the 4,900 coins they had when he first showed up. The MC has a bright idea, but the elf, peeking through the door, shuts him down immediately, saying if HE's talking about snail racing, he better watch his head, reminding him those races only happen once every 10 years. Ammon, with his hand literally on fire, screams, then it's gonna be unicorn racing. The girl, nursing a bump on her head, asks if HE's for real, and he just hits her with a what do you think? The elf suggests investing in a mysterious new substance they recently discovered, showing him a flyer. Ammon looks at it and just asks this. Holding a book, the MC thinks, honestly, as if digging something out of the ground is a big deal. Little does he know. He keeps reading and thinks it's ridiculous, clearly a scam. The book says this substance will be distributed everywhere once it's valued. To top it off, he thinks it's absurd the guy in charge gave the black oil such a weird name, petroleum. The elf leans on the MC's arm while he complains there isn't a single decent investment option and she needs to come up with another plan. She replies that they need to tackle the most basic problem first. The elf explains that the academy is an institution educating the Empire's kids. The MC agrees, as she continues, saying that because of that, they should be getting generous financial support every year. The girl says that since they recommended shutting the place down, they won't see a single dime. The MC says there's a way, and she asks what he means by that. He throws out the bait, saying he heard Shess, an old friend of His Majesty. She confirms that yeah, it's been about 50 years, and asks what that has to do with anything. He replies there's only one answer. With a confident smile and making an AOK sign, the MC declares the answer is obvious. Bribe the Emperor. In her Q version, the elf is shocked and asks if he really wants to bribe her friend. She yells at him not to even joke about that and asks if he thinks everyone is cut from the same cloth as him. A boy peeking through the door thinks that it's the thought that counts and she knows what the Emperor likes. He wonders if this counts as an investment or just straight up corruption. With a panicked expression, the boy wonders if their academy is about to go down the drain for good. The Emperor opens a chest and is surprised to see it full of bananas, exclaiming that they're the famous dragon bananas. The bearded old man asks Princess NRL why she gave such a precious gift, and the girl replies that for the sake of their friendship, it's nothing. The Emperor grabs a spoon and with a sharp look, says that judging by her face, it looks like she has other plans in mind. The The girl gets all flustered, blushing, and stammers that she wanted to talk about a tiny little thing. The emperor, hands on his chin, dedicates it's about the negotiations to cancel the recommendation to close the academy. In her cute version, the elf says that, as expected, HES very sharp. In his cute version, the emperor replies that there are no secrets in their friendship. The old man explains that, honestly, he wanted to avoid the suspension, but because of past incidents, he can't make that call alone. The girl just says she understands. Suddenly, the emperor seems to recognize someone and asks the name Lim. Sitting with two students, the elf confirms it. The emperor thinks they looked familiar and remembers they participated in the last competition. The girl agrees again, and he concludes, "Oh, I see. They were from Ammon Academy." The bearded old man gives a wink and says it's all good. The emperor announces that, considering the remarkable achievements of these students, he'll talk to the prime minister to withdraw the suspension recommendation. The elf gets all excited and asks if HE is serious, and he replies, of course. The girl thanks him, and the emperor, taking a sip of tea, says it was nothing. Suddenly, he stops drinking and gets a weird expression asking, "What smell is this?" The elf and the students are freaked out seeing the emperor fall off the sofa and start sniffing the floor like a dog. With his eyes wide open, the emperor sniffs the air and thinks, "This smell." Outside the room, the MC leans against the door and wonders how things are going in there. The MC thinks the elf might not be the best at negotiating, but with her persistence they'll pull it off. After all, they've been friends for 50 years. At that exact moment, the emperor bursts through the door screaming FOUNDYOU, leaving the MC completely shocked and stuttering, "Your Majesty." The bearded old man screams. It's not for nothing he smelled the disgusting stench of the Drake family and accuses the MC of being the mastermind behind everything. Ammon, confused, asks Mastermind, "What?" The emperor accuses the MC of tricking Princess and Orel into canceling the suspension recommendation. The elf thinks, "I can't believe he got caught," and the MC defends himself, saying he only did his duty as an educator. Ammon asks His Majesty not to mix personal beef with business. He says the old feud with the Drake family in this matter are two totally different things. The MC continues, saying they proved in the competition that they have the competence to raise students who catch the emperor's interest. Ammon turns on the waterworks, saying the academy's situation is desperate. The students are starving, the lack of resources is ruining classes, and they don't even have supplies. With his hand on his chest, he declares that before being a Drake, he is an educator, and the fact that the academy's finances are in the red and students are starving is simply heartbreaking. The MC bows before the emperor and asks, with all the sincerity in the world, for him to be generous and withdraw the suspension recommendation. Ammon thinks to himself, the speech was perfect. Educator's pride, conviction, and a cry of despair mixed with love for the students. With a confident smile, he thinks he nailed the speech and there's no way the emperor isn't convinced. The emperor, however, just picks his ear and says it's all BS and he couldn't care less. He adds that the Drakes talk too much and asks if that was all he had to say. In their cute versions, the MC screams for the emperor to chill out and asks why he keeps holding on to old grudges. The bearded old man replies that HES finally showing his true colors. The blonde woman asks a guy named Kai what he thinks. The emperor taunts the MC, saying he looks pissed and asking why he doesn't try to hit him. The MC thinks if I could, I would have done it a long time ago. The crown prince of the Ammon Empire, Caius Ammon jumps into the conversation and declares that HES betting on young Drake's victory. The blonde, ticked off, asks if HES talking about canceling the idea of shutting down Ammon Academy, and the prince confirms that's exactly it. Then, the scene zooms in on the prince's red eyes. A memory pops up showing the MC all serious, declaring that before being a Drake, he is, above all, an educator. How cute, almost sounds legit. The prince then suggests it would be better to shelve the proposal and just keep an eye on things even with the past drama. They should support promising students. Hearing that, the MC thinks the Drake family must have really pissed off his dad for him to hold such a grudge. And wouldn't you know it, the emperor, flipping him the bird, taunts Ammon. The story explains that Belial Drake, Ammon's grandfather, and Sandrio were always taking shots at each other back when he was still the crown prince. And they even show the character in a cute chibi version flashing a peace sign, trying to play it cool. With a smirk, Ammon thinks the kid actually seems like a decent person. Hand on his chest, Prince Caius declares HES going to make sure the beef between the two families dies with this generation. Meanwhile, the empress, an older blonde woman, just watches the scene unfold. The woman thinks fine if that's what my little boy wants. With a creepy vibe around her, the empress decides she needs to put a leash on this dogfight right now. The story explains that even though the bribe was a solid idea, withdrawing the proposal didn't happen. The blonde then tells Ammon he can scram, and he just agrees without arguing. Walking down the hallway, Ammon wonders at what point in his life things went so off the rails. Holding a book and a scepter, he tells the students everything is fine and class can begin. Out of nowhere, Ammon stops dead in his tracks. Confused, thinking, what kind of mess is this? Now in the classroom, the MC looks at a student named Raymond and, with every right in the world, asks what the hell is that doll next to him. And here's the kicker, the doll is a spitting image of the kid. The boy replies it's not a doll. Ammon, no seer than a gossiping neighbor, leans in and asks what it is then. Patting the so-called non-doll on the head, Raymond starts explaining that it is. Hugging the doll like it's his most precious possession, the boy finishes the sentence. It's me. I'm on blue screens, not understanding what just happened. Poor guy, thought he'd seen it all. The sound of a broom sweeping dry leaves echoes through the courtyard, breaking the silence. Suddenly, someone calls out to the elder, an old man with white hair and beard, who turns around with the broom in hand, wondering what the gossip is this time. The old-timer, all excited, asks what's up and if Ammon finally decided to become his disciple. But the MC shuts him down instantly and blurts out, "I think your grandson has officially lost it." The geezer gets annoyed and asks if that's how kids these days challenge each other to a duel. Ammon, getting poked by the broom, screams no, that his grandson is hugging a doll and claiming it's him, and asks the old man to listen to the whole story. After hearing the full report, the old man calms down and says he understands the reason for the MC's visit. Then, the elder drops the bomb. It seems Ray has a severe case of Prince syndrome. The MC, still processing the info, asks why he doesn't just carry a mirror then. And why on earth does it have to be a life-size doll? The old man replies that, in the beginning, it actually was a mirror. The geezer continues the gossip, saying that out of nowhere, the kid made an exact replica of himself and started dragging it everywhere. Ammon asks if he made the doll himself, and the elder confirms, saying he even made a new one when he grew up and that when he tried to take it away, the kid threw a massive tantrum. A comic scene shows the old man trying to snatch the doll from little Ray, but the boy threw a fit. The MC comments he didn't see the boy carrying anything during the competition. The old man explains he ordered him to hide his skills and identity to see if it would cure his illness. The elder reveals that he actually enrolled Ray in that academy because he saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Ammon, in his cute form, wonders what kind of hope could possibly exist in that madhouse. With his hand extended, the old man starts saying that this hope. He then grabs Ammon's shoulders and declares, "The hope is you." The MC is left speechless. Ammon recalls that the elder, a swordmaster, took him down with a single hit. The old man praises the MC, saying that a teacher capable of training a normal student like Chloe to fight on par with Ray can definitely set his grandson straight. The blue sky appears on the screen, while only a sigh is heard from someone who has clearly given up on life. Slumped on a stone bench, Ammon reflects that he feels like a completely useless burden just got dumped on his back. He keeps replaying the old man's words in his head and thinks, with all the irony in the world, that he can barely get the academy as finances in order, let alone a student's head. Suddenly, the face of Ray's doll pops up in front of Ammon, calling his name. The MC gets such a fright he even lets a curse slip. The MC chews the kid out, screaming that he can't go around shoving a doll in people's faces like that. Ray, looking embarrassed, apologizes. Ammon takes a deep breath, says whatever, and asks what he wants. The boy, clutching his doll, leans on the MC's shoulder and asks if the academy is in a bind. Ammon wonders how he found out, and Ray just confirms he was already in the loop. With a smile, the MC says the adults will handle the situation and the boy just needs to worry about studying. But Ray replies no, because he had a brilliant idea, hugging his doll with a grin from ear to ear. Ray drops the genius idea of the century, only in reverse. They should open an exhibition for his doll. Ammon is so shocked he can only repeat exhibition, not believing what he just heard. Ray continues explaining his wild plan, suggesting they use one of the empty buildings, invite people, and even sell replicas of the dolls. The MC is completely speechless, and the story explains that after hearing Ray's grand plan, Ammon was certain of one thing. The scene shifts to a calm lake at night, where Swan swims peacefully under the moonlight. Suddenly, the swan gets spooked and starts flapping its wings on the water. The story explains that after that day, things got pretty weird. The scene shows that Ramen started showing up at the most random times like a ghost. He breaks into Ammon's room in the middle of the night to ask if HES thought about his idea, while the MC just wants to sleep in peace. To make matters worse, the kid stalks Salmon even to the bathroom. He peeks over the stall door asking about the exhibition, and the MC, already at his limit, screams that this is the bathroom. In another scene, Ray appears hanging upside down like Batman, asking about the plan again. The MC just thinks here he comes again. The story explains he hadn't considered squat, but after being pestered so much, he ended up saying yes. The kid, all hyped up with his dolls, guarantees that if the MC just lends him the place, he'll do everything without spending a dime, and the story adds that was exactly why Ammon agreed. Ammon holds a flyer for the Ammon at Age Academy special exhibition, promising eternal beauty. All he can think is that this kid is a straight-up menace. Staring at a stack of flyers, the MC realizes Ray even whipped up the promotional material himself. An image of the clock there pops up while Ammon thinks, well, more than half the buildings are empty anyway, so it's the harm. Clutching the stack of flyers, the MC approaches a door, thinking it's time to check out the art the kid cooked up. Upon opening the door, Ammon is so horrified, he lets out a scream of pure panic. And the scene reveals the reason for the panic. A dark room, completely jam-packed with dozens of dolls identical to Raymond, all staring forward with that creepy little smile. The camera zooms out, showing the nightmare is even bigger, with dolls filling the shelves in the floor, a veritable army of darkness. A close-up shows the details of the dolls, all neatly arranged. From the doorway, Ammon stares down a legion of mini Raymonds that have taken over the entire room. In the darkness, a hand touches the MC's shoulder and a voice calls out. Ammon, breaking into a cold sweat, can only stammer, "What in the world is all this?" The MC takes off running, screaming that it's a ghost, letting all the flyers drop and scatter across the floor. Hugging his doll, Ray gets all pouty, grumbling that Ammon Ammon is super mean for calling him a ghost. One of the exhibition flyers drifts through the city skies, announcing the most bizarre event of the year. In a fancy hall, 3 people toast with champagne while one asks if the others have heard the latest gossip. Ammon comments that, apparently, Ammon at H Academy is holding an exhibition. The woman next to him gets excited, saying she can't wait to see the masterpieces from such a renowned academy. Ray's grandfather, who is right there, is completely stunned, eyes wide, and can only let out a confused ha. Outside the academy, a crowd forms, everyone shouting undasking where this exhibition is. The old man, stuck in the mosh pit, just wonders what the heck is going on. The MC, seeing all those people, also wonders where they all came from. Just then, the old man approaches and calls out to him. The elder shows him one of the flyers and says he was looking for him, wanting to know if he had anything to do with this. Ammon, totally flustered, starts stammering an excuse. The old man says he gets the picture. The MC, looking at the mob, comments that just the 2 of them won't be enough to handle all those people. The elder asks what he means by that and where the other teachers are. Ammon, running a hand through his hair, thinks don't even get me started. In a comical flashback, the MC remembers the senior teachers took off to enjoy life, one is getting day drunk, and the other went to visit family. He continues thinking that the vice director never helps with anything anyway. To top it all off, the director is furious with him. The blonde dove turns her back and says it's his fault, so keep her out of it. Ammon then turns to the old man and asks where Raymond went off to. The elder starts to answer that Ray is. The old man finishes by saying the kid has been bedridden since yesterday from overwork. The scene shows Ray looking totally sick. Ammon, with a serious expression, says then the 2 of them will have to figure it out. He thinks that as soon as people see the exhibition, he finishes the thought, they will never come back again. The scene focuses on the closed doors of the room of terror. The doors fly open with a bang, and the crowd runs out in panic, screaming in terror like they just saw the devil himself. A priest runs desperately, praying to every saint he knows, while one of Raymond's dolls is hanging off his head. A man with a mustache scolds the crowd, calling everyone dumb and saying every artwork has meaning, no matter how ugly. A young man next to him agrees. Seconds later, that same man sprints out in a panic, screaming that it's hell on earth. 2 women watch the scene and comment on the people's lack of class, wondering what kind of art causes such a commotion. The story explains that because of these over-the-top reactions, the gossip spread and the number of visitors only went up, with people screaming that the place is hell, but they want to see it anyway. Amidst the chaos, Ammon and the old man try to organize the line, asking people not to push and to enter calmly. The MC thinks this isn't gonna work and that it's time to play his ace in the hole. With his head resting on the table, Ammon starts begging for help. In an upside-down yoga pose, the MC pleads with the respected director, vice director, and seniors to lend a hand in controlling the mob. The other teachers, including the director, stare at him speechless, probably wondering if HS finally lost his marbles. With the other teachers helping, the situation improves a bit. The director yells that anyone not forming a line will pay a fine of 10 gold coins, and the crowd, still in panic, wonders what masterpiece this is. The bearded professor praises Raymond, saying HES extraordinary for making all that in a few days. Ammon agrees, thinking that yes, he is extraordinary in many ways. The bearded professor, holding one of the dolls, comments that he doesn't know much about art, but with a thoughtful look, he says HES sure someone will see the true value of this work. And Ammon, in his cute version, just thinks only if they're a total nutbog. Clothes fly around a fancy building, creating an even more sinister vibe. Over time, people start to leave. Ammon in his suit stares at the army of creepy dolls, while someone in the background lets out another scream of terror. Ammon turns to the bearded professor and asks if they can finally close this house of horrors. The bearded guy, patting him on the shoulder, agrees. A close-up shows the dolls in detail, and someone thinks these things are actually something to look at closely. Meanwhile, a guy with a goatee and glasses goes on a philosophical trip, thinking that while the dolls are creepy in a group, up close they're kind of cute. He concludes the work is a reflection of modern society and its fake smiles, with a charm that draws you in. Ammon approaches the weirdo and lets him know it's closing time. The man is surprised and, wasting no time, asks how much one of those dolls costs. With a completely straight face, the bearded professor explains it costs 1 silver coin. He admits the price is steep, but swears part of the proceeds goes to help needy students and save the academy. The scene focuses on a basket overflowing with Raymond's dolls, all stacked up and ready to find a new home or haunt a new house. The director arrives all curious and asks Ammon what the day's profit was. Meanwhile, the bearded professor still has hope, and Ammon confirms the bad news. They raked in a grand total of 0 coins. Ammon, with the patience of someone explaining math to a brick wall, says that to make money, they needed to charge admission or sell something. Since they did neither, the result was a big fat nothing. The director can only let out an "oh my god," processing the obvious. The director feels bad imagining Raymond's disappointment, and back in his room, the misunderstood artist himself clenches his fists, thinking those uncultured plebs can't appreciate his art. Poor guy, a genius ahead of his time. To comfort the kid, Ammon even agrees, saying the world is full of of tasteless people. But Ray, sitting on his bed, throws it back in his face that the MC is first in line since he ran screaming from the exhibition. Ammon was left speechless, right? Got him good. Raymond, all ticked off, thinks he missed the big chance to spread his beauty to the world. He then decides he'll have to hold a second exhibition, this time taking over 2 buildings. That's a lot of dolls. Ammon, with a serious face like HES calculating his credit card bill, starts reflecting on the recent events. He remembers that Raymond produced hundreds of those dolls, but the kid didn't take a single nap during classes. The story explains that the quality of each doll was impressive, aside from the eyes that looked like they wanted to steal your soul. At first, Ammon thought it was just talent, but the math was adding up. With a focused look, Ammon stares at the boy and calls him by name, like HES about to give a dad lecture. The MC sits by the kid's bed and asks, point blank, why HES so obsessed with this exhibition. He continues, reminding Ray that he almost worked himself into an early grave, all while trying to keep up with his studies. He finishes by guaranteeing the adults would handle the Academy's money. Ammon tells the kid to take it easy. After all, HES just a student. Head down. Raymond finally breaks the silence and calls the MC by name, Mr. Ammon. He starts opening up, saying he never felt so at home. Back in the mountains where he came from, he was basically a one-man army. The boy continues venting, explaining he had to fend for himself to get food, clothes, and even make friends. Basically, survival mode since he was little. With a determined expression, he states he wanted to protect the good life he has now with his own hands. The MC stays quiet, just listening and letting the kid's words sink in. Walking down the hallway, Ammon thinks that, deep down, he was rooting for the academy to go under because he had somewhere to go back to. But the kids there didn't have that same luck. He remembers a little boy saying he had no one, since his village vanished from the map 2 years ago. And also a little girl, explaining she came from the kingdom of Aaron, which lost a war last year and simply ceased to exist. Folks with a full resume of tragedies. Ammon finishes his speech, reinforcing that's why he wants to protect the life he has. Then he realizes Ammon is spacing out and calls his name. Out of nowhere, the elf director pops up and asks how Ammon has been. The MC, caught off guard, can only respond with a huh. The blonde, holding to bags, says he mentioned HED only come by tomorrow. She also comments that the teacher's desk is the best place for a nap, while thinking the MC is hopeless. Curious, he asks what she's carrying. She reveals they are donations and support funds her family sent. Ammon is so shocked he almost has a heart attack, shouting what kind of mess is this. The MC and the director stare at each other, while a thought bubble announces there's good gossip coming. The director, arms up, announces that the emperor suspended the order to close the academy and the monthly financial support is back. A masked man enters the room and says there's more. He says an old man at the exhibition was so moved by Raymond's art that he decided to donate some cash to the academy. Also, the kid can keep making his dolls. Ammon's head appears in chibi mode, asking if the other teachers also have any good news to share. Just then, the bearded professor and the elf run in panic. The bearded guy yells no, he only came running because he saw the commotion and because HES hungry. Suddenly, all the teachers surround Ammon, holding his hands and thanking him, saying everything was thanks to him. The bearded professor and the director start a motivational speech, and there goes Ammon flying through the air, while everyone shouts that HES a loser. What kind of celebration is this? With a smile faker than a $3 bill, Ammon chuckles and wonders if he should be happy about this. The story then confirms Ammon at H Academy has officially been saved from bankruptcy. The story explains 6 months have passed since the MC arrived at the academy. With the money problem solved, he thought HED finally have some peace. With a flowery and bright background, the elf director announces, all happy, the inter-academy exchange competition. The story explains this competition is an event where various schools, with the royal family's blessing, duke it out in different areas to see who's the best. The winning academy takes home a fancy trophy and gains fame. That's why every year, schools kill themselves to stand out. The bearded professor, in his cute version, confirms that's right. Since they aren't closing down anymore, they can participate. The director, also in chibi mode, agrees excitedly. Ammon slams his hands on the table, in pure despair, and screams for the director to think straight, for the love of everything holy. He explains it's not the right time, since this competition has way more categories. He points out that the smaller academies have at least 100 students, and they are outnumbered. The director, with a smile like she already messed up, says they can't back out because she already signed everyone up. Ammon gets ticked off and asks why the heck they're having a meeting then. The bearded professor tries to say it could be a good experience, but Ammon, already at his breaking point, screams that losing badly would be a crushing experience, that's for sure. The blonde asks if the meeting is over, while the director comments that Mr. Ammon is very scary. The bearded guy whispers in Ammon's ear, reminding him that their students did well in the last tournament, so they have a chance at least in fencing on magic. Ammon stays silent for a moment and agrees. The bearded professor, relieved, can only let out a Jew is. The vice director then asks which academy they'll be competing against. The director starts to answer somewhat awkwardly. Well, the scene shows a gigantic building. Definitely not good news. Someone reads a news report, finding the situation hilarious. The article shows the Ammon at H director with the emperor, celebrating the reopening. Sitting in a chair worth more than the entire academy, a shadowy figure wonders who they think they are to challenge the empire's best academy, Best Rick Academy. A blonde guy with a soap opera villain smile thinks it's time to settle an old rivalry and, while he's at it, settle some personal scores. Face down on the table. Ammon has already given up, thinking they are completely screwed. The MC continues his drama, lamenting that their tiny academy is going up against the best in the empire. The bearded guy tries to comfort him, but Ammon cuts him off instantly, asking if he really thinks that's possible. Ammon explains that they have thousands of students and hundreds of teachers, and it's not just numbers, their graduates all become elite knights and mages. Hand on his head, the MC concludes is like trying to smash a boulder with an egg. The cute version of the bearded professor, chugging a bottle, asks Ammon to calm down and listen to his drunk logic. He explains that despite the rumors, most people still think they're washed up. However, if they crush it in the competition, people will be lining up around the block to enroll. Ammon complains about the smell of booze, and the bearded guy replies with an exactly. He continues, saying if they win now, the news will spread and they'll reclaim their former glory in a heartbeat. The chibi version of Ammon appears, thinking it's not that simple and wondering if they actually stand a chance of winning. The MC says he gets the director's intention to rebuild the academy fast. He sighs and, after thinking for a bit, decides they're gonna give it a shot. With a malicious smirk, he thinks that, at the end of the day, he's not the one who's gonna suffer through the training. Boris yawns while trying to read some papers. The laziness is hitting hard. Suddenly, he gets a smack on the back of the head and a voice screams for him to wake up. The startled kid swears he wasn't sleeping. Ammon, holding a stick that looks like it came straight out of a horror movie, orders everyone to read the thesis until they memorize it by heart. The students, including Raymond and Chloe, look at him in terror. The MC tries to motivate Boris by promising wealth and glory, but quickly corrects it to something that actually works: all-you-can-eat meat. With imaginary chicken drumsticks flying around, Boris's eyes actually sparkle. Ammon then turns to Chloe and asks if she's focused. Panicking, the girl starts reciting the material. The MC praises her and then calls on Raymond. Raymond, cold, sweating, stammers that he's doing his best. Ammon, out of nowhere, says that he, actually, can take it easy. The chibi version of Raymond looks totally confused, wondering what this take it easy talk is about. The MC asks if he's participating in the fencing event. Raymond, feeling full of himself, thinks it's because he's a sword master, but Ammon says nope, it'll be in another category. With an evil smile and a stack of papers, Ammon says it's a surprise and tells him to keep reading. He warns Boris and Chloe that they aren't leaving until they finish everything, leaving the two in panic. A dark aura wraps around Ammon as he declares that healthy knowledge resides in a healthy mind and orders the students to repeat after him. Looks like evil teacher mode is back. Terrified, the students start repeating the phrase. Chloe stammers, Boris finishes it, and text on the screen warns, the nightmare of the last tournament is back. A scroll unrolls, announcing the battle between Ammon H Academy and Best Greek Academy and the day of the event. A group of people walks toward a giant gate, kicking up dust and showing that the Ammon H crew has arrived. The director of Best Greek Academy, a guy named Benjamin, greets director NRL with that fake long time no see. She, totally chill, replies that it's because she's an elf and she was hoping he'd have turned to dust by now. The chibi version of director Benjamin gets salty and speechless at the director's sharp comeback. With a look of pure disdain, director Benjamin analyzes the Ammon H Academy students, clearly not impressed. He comments that their team is a mess. Boris looks like he's gonna pass out, and Chloe is yawning from exhaustion. The assessment continues, and he notices Ammon leaning on the other teachers who are hungover. He concludes the teachers are just as messy as the students. Sarcastic, director Benjamin says Ammon H Academy has so much talent and he's jealous. Director NRL plays along and replies that she knows, and that his eyes aren't just for decoration. Director Benjamin, in chibi mode, explodes and calls her a damn elf. She, also in chibi, retorts asking if he's a damn human then. The director gets furious, and Ammon, just watching, thinks he's never seen the director like this. The bearded professor is surprised and asks if that person is who he thinks it is. Ammon, totally clueless, asks if he knows the guy. The bearded guy reveals it's his Patel Zeon Nasir, a legendary magic swordsman. The purple-haired man grabs a megaphone, introduces himself as the Imperial Supervisor, and announces that since everyone is here, the show can begin. With the participants staring each other down, as Patel declares the start of the exchange event. He announces that the first round is on magic theory and magic circle construction and asks the students from each side to step up. In the audience, director Benjamin and another guy are cheering like crazy, holding signs with their favorites' names. The story explains they only had for days to prepare, so Ammon had to crack the whip, but as expected, the first opponent is already a tough nut to crack. The bearded professor, in chibi form, wonders why the student from the other academy has a flower in his mouth. The director, also in chibi, explains the kid is famous for being good at magic and handsome, but she couldn't care less. The stylish youngster adjusts his glasses and analyzes his opponent. He thinks magic is for people with talent and noble bloodlines, and that Boris looks like just some random commoner. The stuck-up kid shakes Boris's hand and introduces himself as Meyer Delmond. Boris, all shy, says his name, Delmond. Delmond immediately notices the kid doesn't even have a last name, confirming his suspicions. Supervisor as Padel explains the rules, build a magic circle and then discuss the theory. He then asks who wants to start. Delmond volunteers immediately with a smug smile. The crowd goes wild, and Boris already thinks the guy is annoying. Hand extended, Delmond tells the commoner to watch closely, like he's about to give a lecture. He then conjures a super complex and glowing magic circle, declaring that this is real magic. Supervisor as Padel is jaw-dropped, thinking about how a kid that age can do that without even needing a catalyst. The supervisor then turns to Boris and asks him to analyze the magic circle. Boris is completely speechless. Delmond, with a smug little smirk, spouts off that there's no way Boris could understand that kind of magic. But Boris doesn't even ask for permission. He cuts the guy off and says the magic circle is inefficient as heck. Delmond is totally shocked, with a face that screams, "Say what now?" Boris then cracks open his book and starts schooling him, explaining that, yeah, that's the circle Delmond drew, but if he removed the two outer lines, the mana would flow way smoother. He continues the rose session, questioning if that reinforcement line at the bottom is really necessary, seeing as that theory was debunked years ago. Supervisor as Padel, completely blown away, comments that the kid has a point and that he even knows the obscure theory by that gel IM guy. The supervisor then announces it's Boris's turn to present his magic circle. Delmond, wearing a mocking grin, thinks the kid doesn't know squat about using magic. Then, Boris shows the book and says, "Here it is," and Delmond is so shocked he almost has a heart attack. Delmond starts freaking out, wondering what kind of magic circle that is, and then he recognizes it. It's an 8th circle firestorm. The girls in the audience go wild, wondering how he drew something that complex on the spot. One of them announces Chess dropping out of Delmond's fan club right now. A guy even comments that not even the mages from the magic tower can rather easily. Ammon thinks maybe Boris just memorized the magic circle a solid last-minute cram session. The scene flashes back to Boris asking Mr. Ammon what that stuff is, staring at a bowl with a green liquid that looks like some witch's brew. Ammon, smiling, asks if HES sure it's not poison and reveals it's a secret recipe from Vice Director Bress, Lestribe, a potion to keep you awake. The kid then asks about a scroll, and Ammon reveals it's the Remember Evil for a long time spell. The next day, Ammon gives Boris a big hug and congratulates him for studying all the research papers, saying HES super proud. The victory of the first round is announced for Boris from Ammon at H Academy. The kid is totally stunned, unable to believe what he just heard. Supervisor as Padel walks up to Boris and says he'll keep his name in mind, advising him to look up a guy named B. Riling at the Imperial Court after he graduates. The supervisor hands a badge to Boris, who's left wondering what the heck that thing is. The elf director congratulates Boris, looking all proud. The kid just says thanks, even more confused than before. In their cute chibi versions, the director says congrats, and Boris asks for what? Totally clueless about what's going on. The director explains that the badge is a symbol of court recruitment and that he just secured a spot as an Imperial Mage. Boris is so shocked he stammers, "I Imperial Mage." Ammon comes up from behind, ruffles Boris's hair, and asks, "Didn't I tell you?" With a smile. He adds that if the kid hangs in there a little longer, he'll soon have all the meat he can handle. Boris, getting all emotional, looks at the MC like HES a literal angel, and then he lunges into a hug, thanking him and calling out Ammon's name. The scene shifts to Ammon getting hugged. The MC, a bit awkward, hugs the kid back and asks if he must be exhausted. With a satisfied smirk, Ammon thinks to himself about the kid landing a gig as an Imperial Mage. The MC picks Boris up and says he'll take him to his room. The director says she'll leave him with Ammon. He keeps thinking about how HES stuck in the stump while the student is already set for life. Delmond, totally salty, can't believe that commoner kid stepped all over him. Director Benjamin asks if there's anyone else from Ammon at H they need to worry about. A guy next to him replies that they have a student who took first place in the fencing competition. As Padel announces that the second round is about history and calls up the participants. A blonde kid comments that the expected student is a swordmaster and will probably show up for the fencing round, but the one stepping up to the plate is Raymond. The blonde guy gets confused, thinking, isn't he the fencing winner? And wondering what a swordsman would know about history. Director Benjamin laughs, thinking about how that dumb elf sent a swordsman to a history round. Little does he know. The blonde-haired guy explains that their student has already received offers to be a politician and a diplomat, so he really knows his history stuff. He continues, saying the history round is basically a guaranteed win for Best Rick Academy and explains that the debate will start with each side presenting a topic. The supervisor announces that since Ammon at H won the first round, they start. Raymond, all confident, asks what the significance of Markim and Anai's rebellion is. Roman stands with his back turned, facing the academy gates. The audience starts cracking up, mocking such a basic topic. Ammon, annoyed, thinks Raymond is an idiot for bringing up something so simple. The blue-haired student, John, explains that the rebellion failed but resulted in controlling the nobility's power and strength strengthening royal authority, then asks if Raymond has anything to add. The supervisor says now John gets to pick the next topic. John, with a wicked smile, agrees and promises HES going to make his opponent shut his trap. John proposes discussing a recent political conflict in the Empire's outer territories. The bearded professor comments that the student chose a pretty tough topic, and the director agrees. The story explains that Bestric's students have access to high-end info, while Ammon at H only has dusty old books. Raymond, looking thoughtful, acknowledges the disadvantage and asks John to specify which incident. Ammon, watching the scene from his sidelines, just lets out at him. Raman continues, asking if HES talking about the battle between the army and mercenaries in the neutral's own or the mysterious disappearance of the Archduke's convoy. HEB version of Ammon pops up, wondering how on earth the kid knows all that. John, getting nervous, says either incident works and pretends he hasn't even heard of them. Raman just replies with a cool, "Is that so?" Ammon, watching Raymond, thinks to himself that he thought the guy was only good with a sword. Raymond then suggests they discuss the conflict caused by the strange phenomena on Boston Nam. Ammon is shocked, wondering if the kid is a sword master of history too. Raman repeats the question, asking to discuss the conflict in the Boston Mountains. John, sweating bullets, stammers and admits he has absolutely no clue what that is. John turns to the supervisor and says HES never heard of such an incident. The supervisor explains it happened 2 years ago and made the beef between the two families even worse. The supervisor continues, saying both sides hush the case and wonders how the kid knows about it. Raman stares at the supervisor with a dead serious expression. Suddenly, a white-haired man built like a tank shows up and says it's already Ray's turn. The elf director is surprised and says she didn't expect a visit from Ray and Belt. The supervisor, shocked, is totally lost. Ray and Belt replies that he couldn't miss his grandson's history competition. The supervisor recognizes the man as the king of the heavenly sword. Ray and Belt nomarch and puts it all together. If Raymond is his grandson, obviously HED know about the incident. The story explains that Ray and Belt lives right there in the Boston Mountains, the epicenter of the drama. The story goes on to reveal that the strange incident was just Ray and Belt picking some herbs when a bunch of spoiled nobles tried to pull a prank on him, thinking he was just some lost old geezer. To the playboys' surprise, they got a bet down so bad they didn't know what hit them. Since it turned into a political crisis, both sides decided to pretend nothing ever happened. Ray and Belt stares at the supervisor with a look that could freeze hell over. The supervisor, all nervous, wonders if Ray and Belt noticed he was staring. Ray and Belt thinks his grandson didn't need to dig up this embarrassing story. With his back turned, the supervisor hears a voice in his mind telling him to shut this topic down quietly. The supervisor clears his throat and announces that since John has nothing to say, he lost. John, desperate, asks for more time, but the supervisor already starts the countdown and ends the round. The supervisor declares Raymond from Ammon at H Academy the winner. Ammon celebrates like he just won the lottery, while the rival director is fuming. Director Benjamin, annoyed, announces that the next match is math and that they're going to slaughter Ammon at H. Ammon declares that they forfeit the math category. The director is left completely confused. The supervisor explains to Ammon that forfeiting is allowed, but it's a huge dishonor at an imperial family event. Ammon explains that he only has 3 students and can't overwork them by having one participate in 3 rounds or 2 participate into rounds each. He continues, saying it would be way too big of a burden for them. Ammon declares that he values his students more than his honor. Boris and Chloe, all emotional, cover their faces and call out his name, playing along with the act perfectly. The MC, with the straightest face ever, thinks, "What a load of crap, I'm lying through my teeth." The truth is, they don't even have a math teacher. In a flashback, a hand holds a piece of chalk at the board while a voice says, "Children, look." The board shows a drawing of 5 apples, explaining that Boris ate 3 of them. The drawing continues, showing that Ryman brought 3 new apples in, that he and Chloe ate 1 each. The board then shows that, to finish it off, Boris ate 2 more apples. Ammon, standing in front of the board full of stick figures, asks how many apples are left. Chloe raises her hand to answer. Ammon calls on Chloe, who, with a dark look, says to eliminate Boris because he ate 5 apples. Boris, sweating, says he actually doesn't even like apples that much. Raymond, hugging his doll, answers 3. No 4, and even he doesn't know why he said that. Ammon asks if that's really the answer and thinks there's no hope for this class. Back in the present, Ammon declares the forfeit. Meanwhile, Ray's grandpa leaves. Director Benjamin, irritated, announces that the next match is science. Ammon says they forfeit that one too. The supervisor announces a victory by forfeit for Best Rick, tying the score at 2-2. Director Benjamin is furious, wondering what kind of joke this is. Director RL, with a mocking smile, asks Benjamin why he isn't happy, since this was the victory he wanted. The director, shaking with rage, curses the elf and thinks that this victory was earned. It was handed to him, which is way worse. He keeps thinking it's the same empty feeling he had when Ammon at H Academy closed its doors. The story explains that he spent the whole night coming up with a duel plan, all because of the suspension recommendation. Director Benjamin thinks, screw it. He continues thinking that they'll be the real winners in the final match, which will be in the fencing category with the score at 2-2. The supervisor calls the competitors. Her opponent is Oliver Basket, a sword master showing off his muscles like HES in a body butters contest. He calls out to Raymond, his eyes burning with rage. He says he thought Raymond was the only worthy opponent, but he just ran away. Chloe stares at Oliver, who thinks fighting a girl is a total drag. The elf director asks Ammon why he didn't send Raymond, a sword master, fearing that Chloe might get hurt. The MC just tells her not to worry. With a confident smile, he explains that this isn't a real battle, it's just a match. Oliver, all confident, steps up with his wooden sword and tells Chloe not to hold a grudge, because he promises to wrap this fight up ASAP. Then he charges, but Chloe dodges with some serious agility, ducking under his arm like it was nothing. Oliver just stands there, totally shook, wondering what kind of voodoo magic that was. He spins around, looking for her in the middle of the arena, absolutely clueless about where the girl went. Suddenly, Chloe pops up right behind him, sword already raised and ready to strike. With a clean hit to the back, Chloe sends Oliver to the floor, and the supervisor announces 1 point for her. Oliver, sprawled out on the arena floor, can only think about how she pulled that off. Chloe hops back, creating some distance, and she doesn't stop there. She uses a wall to launch herself off and attack from above. But Oliver manages to defend, crossing his sword with hers just in the nick of time. Chloe thinks to herself that Mr. Ammon was totally right. She remembers that by imagining the spectators as pigs, her stage fright just vanishes. In her head, the crowd turns into a bunch of angry hogs. Chloe then yells at Oliver, asking if HES snapping on the job, and charges at him with everything she's got. The story explains that, in that exact moment, the guy is standing right in front of her. The scene focuses on Chloe's wooden sword, inches away from finding its target. Is nothing but a pig, and she hits Oliver squarely, making him let out grunts of pain that sound more like a scared piglet. Ammon cracks a smile, while the director and the bearded professor are left jaw-dropped. The scoreboard now reads for 0 for Chloe. Over in the other cheering section, Director Benjamin and his buddy go into total panic mode over the results. Oliver, still on the ground, asks if she had fun and says it was pure luck she scored those points. With a smile that would even scare the devil, Chloe dares him to say that again. The scoreboard confirms the 4 points for Chloe as she stares down at the fallen Oliver. Oliver grinds his teeth in rage, and we're left wondering if he has the strength to turn this game around. In the audience, the elf director in her L asks if Chloe is really that good with a sword. Ammon, laughing, replies that she practically destroyed Raymond in the exhibition match. Ammon then puts his hand on Raymond's shoulder, who gets all awkward, and asks if it isn't true. In a flashback, we see the blonde sloth training Chloe with a wooden sword. The story explains that this Miss Sloth started teaching her the field family fencing style. Back to the fight, Oliver blocks another attack. The story reveals that Chloe always had absurd talent for fencing and that if she learned the field family style, with a focused look, she keeps attacking non-stop. The story adds that this potential would surpass any limit she had. The camera zooms in on Oliver's eye, hinting that he finally figured something out about the fight. And Chloe, sharp as a tack, finds an opening and attacks Oliver from the side. In the blink of an eye, the girl is behind Oliver again, leaving him totally lost. The story explains that Miss Sloth's training had one single goal: fly like a mosquito. We see Chloe buzzing around Oliver, who in her imagination is a giant pig. The second lesson was to sting like a mosquito. Chloe then lunges and pokes Oliver's back with the tip of her sword, making him scream. In the stands, Director Benjamin is pulling his hair out and screaming, asking what on earth Oliver is doing. Ammon comments with a smirk that since they can't use aura in a battle of pure skill, there's no way Chloe can lose. The MC, feeling confident, continues his thought that Chloe can't possibly. Suddenly, Ammon's expression pulls a complete 180, getting dead serious as he stops speaking mid-sentence. In the arena, Oliver's sword starts to glow, and he looks ticked off, wondering what the hell that brat is trying to do. And RL notices Ammon got quiet and asks why. When she looks to the side, she jumps, realizing he vanished, wondering where he went. The elf director hears a scream of pain and whips around in fear, not understanding a thing that's going on. Out of absolutely nowhere, Ammon appears in the arena, gripping Oliver's face, and OL shouts his name, shocked, while Chloe watches everything from a distance. With a dark and super serious look, Ammon makes it clear his patience has run out. The MC's hand tightens hard around Oliver's neck. Director Benjamin, fuming, screams and asks how a teacher dares to interfere in a student fight. He demands the supervisor remove Ammon right this second. But the supervisor yells NO into the megaphone, revealing that the Best Rig Academy student tried to use an aura blade. The audience gets confused, with some wondering if it's rigged since nobody saw anything. While Ammon keeps holding Oliver, the supervisor explains that aura blades are dangerous weapons that can send someone to the afterlife, and for using a weapon like that in a friendly match, Oliver from Best Rig Academy is disqualified. The MC finally lets go of Oliver, who coughs desperately. The supervisor then announces that the grand winner of the competition is Ammon at each academy. Lying on the ground, completely shell-shocked, Oliver can only wonder who the hell that guy is. Ammon walks up to Chloe and asks if she's okay, and she confirms she is. A Signabird announces that, with a score of 3-2, Ammon at H Academy took the win. Nobody messes with the MC's little girl. Director NRL turns to Benjamin and says it looks like they won this time, then corrects herself, asking if she should say again. Benjamin, being held back so he doesn't lunge at the elf, screams that he never thought HED suffered the humiliation of losing to a broke-ass academy. The director curses the damn elf, while behind her, Ammon gives a thumbs up. The MC then says it doesn't feel right to end it like this and suggests extending the friendship to the teachers too, while wondering how things even got to this point. With a dark smile, he thinks, sure, which match do you guys want first? He calms down, figuring they'll pick something physical. We see the Ammon at age teachers. The fencing lady is thinking about retirement. The magic guy looks exhausted, and the history teacher, our boy Ammon, is smiling all excited. The teachers from the other academy point straight at Ammon, yelling for the black-haired teacher to step up. A signal bird announces the second round, the teachers match. A guy named Alfred Beers, the fencing teacher from Bestrick, dares his opponent to come at him. Ammon, holding a wooden sword, complains that he already said HES, a refined scholar, and asks why on earth he has to do this. Alfred yells at him to stop playing dumb, saying his moves from earlier weren't those of a weak scholar. To top it off, Alfred says HES just like his director. Ammon gets ticked off by the comparison. Ammon yells at Alfred to open his eyes before talking more trash and throws his wooden sword away. The best trick teacher asks why he tossed the sword, but the MC thinks no one said he was forced to use it. With tears in her eyes, director NRL gets emotional over his attitude, thinking HES doing it for her. But the MC, with a vein popping on his forehead, thinks Alfred is annoyed because he was insulted. He then shouts, asking how they dare put him in the same category as that elf. Alfred, eyes shining, accepts the challenge and thinks, bring it on, cause I'm giving it my all. Suddenly, the scene cuts to Alfred lying on the ground with a massive lump on his head. While trying to get up, he wonders why HES on the floor. A signal bird announces that Ammon at Age Academy won the teachers match, so fast nobody even saw it. Someone helps Alfred up, and slowly, his memory starts coming back. In a flashback, he remembers that the moment he was about to attack, Ammon's fist came flying straight at his face. In that instant, Alfred noticed something terrifying coming from the MC's gaze. He felt an intent to send him to the afterlife that HED never felt before, coming from Ammon's sinister smile. In Alfred's vision, the MC looked like a demon extending his hand and asking if he was okay. Terrified by the image, Alfred lets out a scream of panic. He runs away in despair, screaming for help, leaving Ammon behind, who just wonders if the guy has completely lost his mind. Director Benjamin and the others watch the scene in disbelief, wondering how Alfred could run away with such fear. NRL, laughing at the situation, asks Benjamin if he saw their level. She continues, saying her teachers would do anything for the academy, unlike a certain teacher who ran away. Benjamin, annoyed, shoots back asking why such a powerful academy was about to close down. The elf director in her chibi form gets pissed and yells, what? Benjamin walks up to Ammon and says the young teacher's skills are top-notch. He then makes the offer of the century. He asks if Ammon wants to work at Bestrick Academy and offers to pay the penalty for breaking his contract. The scene shows the Bestrick Academy building, while the story explains it's currently the best in the empire. Then, it shows Ammon at H Academy, with its gates closed and a closure banner, reminding us it's a broke academy that barely managed to get back on its feet. With a little smirk, Ammon thinks that, even though the academy is in the dumps, he has a certain attachment to it, and that changing jobs just like that is an offer he can't refuse. He shakes director Benjamin's hand, thanks him, and says he looks forward to working with him, while NRL goes into total shock mode. The MC even adds that it would be good to bring the Ammon at Age students along too, since they have talent. Boris thinks Ammon has no principles, Ronan is disappointed, and Chloe wonders if they're changing schools. With a smile on his face, Ammon looks back at his colleagues and says they suck. The blonde teacher, Sloth, shows up all charming and says Ammon is very mean, asking how he could leave his beautiful wife all alone. The bearded teacher starts crying, asking if all the days they spent together were a lie. Benjamin laughs and says he likes Ammon. One of the best trick teachers suggests they leave that inferior place, and the comment makes Ammon pretty irritated. NRL shouts Benjamin's name, and he turns around with a smile, asking if she has something to say. The director's hands tremble with rage, and Benjamin keeps thinking that her early tricks are the reason why she rejected him when he confessed his love to her. The elf screams this out while sobbing, leaving every on his jaw on the floor with the gossip. The Bestrick Academy crowd stands their mouth agape, completely shocked. Meanwhile, the Ammon at Age crew watches the scene like it's a soap opera, popcorn and all. Director Benjamin stays silent, staring at the floor with a face like HES at a funeral. The camera focuses on the MC's eyes, who starts cold sweating as he realizes the vibe just got heavier than rent day. I thought pops into Ammon's mind, saying that, now that he thinks about it, there's something weird here, unlike the Ammon at Age director, who is super chill. The image focuses on director Benjamin grinding his teeth. The MC continues his train of thought, remembering that the Bestrick Academy folks seemed anxious the whole time, and now he understands why. Benjamin tries to brush it off, saying whatever, that's in the past. But Norel retorts that since she's an elf, something that happened 30 years ago feels like yesterday to her. She starts reminiscing about the day he confessed in front of the academy gate, kneeling with a bukai and saying that to him. She was a flower. The director keeps the gossip train rolling, saying that after that, he got totally plastered and caused a huge scene, throwing himself on the floor and screaming that if he downed the bottle, she'd have to date him. And the cringe didn't stop stop there, she says right after. The guy went full lounge singer mode and started belting out his love for her. Meanwhile, NRL just wanted the ground to swallow her up, and the waiter was begging him to shut his trap. NRL says that thanks to him, Chess got laughing material for the next 1,000 years. Poor Benjamin looks completely crushed, like he just took a direct hit right to the heart. Totally ticked off, the director grabs Ammon and accuses him of being a slick little schemer for dragging his teacher into this mess. The MC, already panicking, thinks, well, there goes my plan to change jobs. Just then, a voice whispers in Benjamin's ear, telling him to chill out and not fall for the wicked elf's tricks. Ammon puts his arm around Benjamin's shoulder and invites him to leave, but then he drops the fatal question. So, you really don't feel anything for an RL? The MC glitches out at his own question and thinks, wait, does this guy think him his rival now? Benjamin, upset, asks what his relationship with an RL is. Ammon, sweating bullets, just answers that Chess is boss and nothing else, while the other guy keeps huffing and puffing next to him. NRL, milking the drama, steps in with tears in her eyes, asking about all the promises he made about their future and rebuilding the academy. The director, looking like a rabid vampire, lunges at Ammon. The MC, desperate, asks the man to calm down, but Benjamin screams at him not to call him director. In a movie-worthy moment, two hands join together, signaling a new chapter for this love story. Kneeling down, Benjamin takes NRL's hand and asks her to forget the other guy and be with him, guaranteeing that he is now a changed man. The elf director is left stunned and can only whisper his name, looking touched by the declaration. With the smile of someone who already won the prize, Benjamin promises to dedicate the rest of his life to her. But then, out of absolutely nowhere, NRL swats his hand away with so much force that it sends the pro guy flying, totally ruining the soap opera vibe. The entire audience, including Ammon and the other teachers, tries to process what just happened. The director fixes her hair and screams that she already said a no, making it crystal clear that her answer has changed one bit. The story explains that the best Rick Academy director was left heartbroken. Ammon, kneeling next to him, confirms that the job change is officially dead in the water. And just like that, Ammon at H Academy wins the competition. While Benjamin is carried off on a stretcher, a teacher asks if HES okay, but the poor guy can only call out for an RL. Ammon turns to his team and tries to justify himself, asking them not to get the wrong idea and that he was only. But the teachers are forgiving the snake move. Marion says he should be ashamed of himself. Bresla yells that even a bat is more loyal, and Sloth finishes him off with a dagger. The only thing keeping his job safe is the potatoes. They then decide to go get dinner to celebrate, leaving the traitor behind. Ammon, in a panic, asks them to wait, while Chloe calls out to him, all worried. Boris, with a smile, asks if they don't need to transfer anymore. Ammon, still trying to save his own skin, begs the gang to give him a chance to explain. The MC starts a rehearsed speech, saying the academy is a place to socialize, and that he just wanted them to see a bigger world to gain experience. Chloe falls for his smooth talk hook, line, and sinker, thinking all emotional that he was thinking about their well-being the whole time. Suddenly, Director NRL pops up out of nowhere, all happy. It says she expected nothing less from Mr. Ammon, asking if he played the villain on purpose just to expose Benjamin. Ammon, feeling the relief of someone who just dodged a bullet, replies that, as expected of the director, she noticed his true and noble intentions. So fake. The director says he did everything for the academy and that she never doubted him. The MC agrees, all excited, and the two of them even do a little victory dance. Changing the subject, NRL asks Ammon how the preparations for getting his teaching certificate are going. The MC repeats the question, not getting where Shess going with this. She confirms with a smile and reveals she wants to promote him to head of education, explaining it would be a waste to leave a talent like him as just a regular teacher. Ammon, already seeing dollar signs in his eyes, asks if he becomes head of education the second he gets the certificate. The director, all happy, confirms yes. A chart appears showing the academy hierarchy, and Ammon realizes he can skip from regular teacher straight to head of education, cutting in front of a bunch of people. With his eyes shining with greed, he thinks that's a piece of cake and that he'll get the certificate in the blink of an eye. A Signabird announces it's the day after the competition, showing the front of a building that looks pretty fancy. A pair of stylish boots steps onto a stone path, indicating someone important is arriving on the scene. A white-haired man in a guard uniform stares at the newcomer and asks what she is doing there. The scene cuts to a teacup and a saucer, making it clear a serious conversation is about to go down. Kajase Arzia Ammon at H, a badass sword master and dates circle mage, confirms the decision to his father. His father, sitting on a throne, questions why he chose Ammon at H Academy of all places. Kajis answers it's to end some old family beefs, saying he felt the need after hearing young Drake. In a flashback, we see Ammon giving a speech that, before being a Drake, he is an educator. Kajis thinks the MC is a talent that shouldn't be stuck in the petty fights of the past. Kajis continues, thinking that Ammon's attitude of putting students first is the essence of a true educator. His dad just mumbles a thoughtful hum. KJS's dad admits HES not really fond of the Drake family, but agrees they can't keep passing this feud down to future generations. He then says he respects his son's decision and won't stop him. Kajis thanks him all happy, but the king, of course, imposes a condition. Just what we needed. Back to the opening scene, the white-haired guard comments that he almost didn't recognize the guy who arrived. Kajis, now looking way simpler, smiles and says that, as expected of Elder Rain Belt, he spotted the disguise right away, explaining it's just some cheap magic he used on his face. In a quick flashback, KAJS's dad sets the condition. He has to hide his identity and his powers at all costs. Back in the present, he explains he'll stay hidden there while working as a teacher. Rain Belt, surprised, asks if HES going to be a teacher. Kajis confirms and asks what an imperial knight like him is doing there. The guard answers it's for the same reason and decides to take him to the director. The scene shifts, and the director, sitting at her desk, gets ready to receive the new guy, saying, "Let's see, your name is." Ammon introduces the new teacher as Kai, from the house of Viscount Street Row. Director NRL sizes the guy up carefully. Kai confirms his name and mentally thanks his lucky stars that no one saw through his disguise. Sitting at her desk, Director NRL asks Kai why he wants to teach there. He replies that it's a prestigious academy, while Ammon thinks this guy's a bit off. The director then asks if he came because of the rumors about their tournament victory. Kai asks what tournament she's talking about. Apparently, the gossip hasn't reached the prince's ears yet. NRL and Ammon, in their chibi versions, realize the rumor didn't spread. The MC thinks the important thing is that now they have a new sucker. Team member. Ammon asks Kai if he has a preference for any subject. The rookie says he knows a little bit of everything and can take on whatever they throw at him. The MC chuckles and thanks old rookie. That statement is practically a please, bury me in work sign. The director, super hyped, says that's great since most teaching positions are vacant. But to everyone's surprise, Kai gets excited about the news, saying that if there are vacancies, it means there's plenty of room to grow. Ammon, shocked, wonders if the guy is nuts. The director stands up, hands a contract to Kai, and says HES hired. The rookie, feeling a bit awkward, asks if they aren't even going to check his skills or license. Ammon explains that the academy is so short-staffed that if the guy has enthusiasm, the rest is just details. With a salesman-esque smile, the MC continues, saying that if anything is lacking, they'll help each other grow together because that's the attitude of a true educator. Kai is completely charmed by Ammon's words, thinking he found the perfect place. Little does he know. The MC introduces himself as Ammon Drake, and Kai shakes his hand, eager to work with him. Meanwhile, the chibi director celebrates finally finding a rookie to dump all the work on. In the office, Director NRL says she's excited to work with Mr. Kai. The rookie, all pumped up, replies that he'll give it his best shot. With a proud smile, NRL tells Kai to learn a lot from Mr. Ammon, explaining that HES so amazing he was just named the new dean. He gets super impressed by the fact that Ammon is a dean while being so young. Ammon then asks which subject Kai would like to teach. The rookie, thinking it over, says he can't teach fencing or magic, but as the heir to the empire, he could teach history. Ammon, with a fake smile, thinks, "That's my subject, rookie. Don't even think about stealing my meal ticket." The silent warning makes Kai change his mind instantly and choose math. The MC says that sounds like a good choice and invites him to sit in on other teachers' classes. Kai replies excitedly, "Yes, senior." A Signabird announces the first class, fencing. Kai appears on the field, ready to observe everything. Ammon, holding a stack of books, says a deal of to watch but is super busy studying. Kai thinks Mr. Ammon is really dedicated but wonders where the teacher is. The three students, Chloe, Boris, and Raymond, show up with wooden swords, and Raymond immediately asks who the new guy is. Kai introduces himself as the new math teacher. Boris says hi, Chloe introduces herself, and Raymond drops his full name, making Kai realize that's why the Sword King is hanging around. The new teacher then asks the students where their teacher is. One of them replies that she's been there the whole time. Kai gets confused and looks in the direction they pointed, understanding absolutely nothing. What he sees is the teacher crawling along the ground inside a sleeping bag. She announces class is starting, and the students respond like this is normal. The teacher, still bagged up, asks who Kai is. He introduces himself, and she thinks, another rookie in this madhouse, leaving Kai completely lost. She introduces herself as Sloth Field. Kai, smiling, shakes her hand and wonders if she's really a swordswoman from the famous Field family. Teacher Sloth then tells the kids to start the class. Kai, with a little notebook in hand, is totally lost, wondering what kind of crazy class this is. The scene shows the teacher, from inside the sleeping bag, knocking Chloe down with a strike and yelling at her to improve her thrust. Kai, confused, asks what that is, but the teacher doesn't get it. He questions if there isn't a curriculum, and she replies, "Oh, that." Teacher Sloth explains that Boris already decided to be a mage, so he just learns the basics of fencing and spends the rest of the time studying alone. Kai thinks that, even so, he would need physical practice. The teacher continues, explaining that Ramen already has his own training methods and that HES actually better than she is. Kai insists, asking if this approach isn't bad. The teacher cuts him off and asks if HES a noble or a commoner. Kai replies that HES a noble, thinking that HES actually the prince. The teacher then asks if he knows how to cut potatoes for planting. He doesn't, and she concludes, "We only learn what we're gonna use." The teacher then changes the subject and asks if HES asks met a teacher named Ammon, showing a crudely drawn picture of him. Kai, eyes sparkling, says yes. But the teacher bursts his bubble instantly. Stay away from that trash. Kai, indignant, asks why she would say that about Mr. Ammon. The teacher says she's going to spill all the tea from yesterday. While the teacher talks, Kai writes everything down in his notebook, noting that she called Ammon trash, obsessed with money and power. She continues to badmouth Ammon, and Kai notes down her traits: lazy, slow, and a gossiper, giving her a grade of 5 out of 100 as a teacher. The scene cuts to the top of a building at sunset, indicating the end of the day. Ammon meets up with Kai and asks how the first class went. The rookie, with an awkward smile, replies that his ears are hurting from hearing so much trash talking about the senior. Ammon, worried, asks if Sloth picked on him, but he says no. The MC notices that Kai wants to say something, but the rookie dodges the subject, saying it's nothing important. Ammon then asks Miz, Sloth talked bad about me again, didn't she? Kai asks how he guessed. The MC says he can't do anything if she doesn't like him. He continues, saying it's all his fault for being so full of flaws, which leaves Kai even more confused and full of admiration. The rookie stays silent, unable to believe the guy's humility, and thinks it can't be. Kai wonders how a mediocre teacher dares to slander such an incredible person. But Kai, frustrated, thinks the magic teacher might be different and decides to give him the benefit of the doubt. So he knocks on the door, introduces himself as the new teacher who just came by to take a little peek at the class. From the other side, a voice replies, sure, just a moment, but with a suspicious hiccup in the middle. Kai finds it odd, and the story reveals the voice belongs to Marion Rumdum, a Viscount and war hero. Kai thinks Marion is famous for coming from a renowned magic tower and that his military experience must give him a great gut instinct for judging people. But the bearded professor, going totally ballistic, slams the desk and screams that Ammon is a scumbag. Kai is shocked, wondering if that guy can even teach in that state, while the students in the back just watch without disagreeing with the teacher. Marion continues his drunken rant, saying that yesterday he couldn't even tell if Ammon was human or a bat. Kai, whispering, asks the kids if what he's saying is true. Chloe, with a serious face, remembers that Ammon's decision the day before was actually very well thought out. In her cute chibi version, she continues, saying Mr. Ammon is a wise teacher who cares about his students more than anyone. Kai gets all giddy and thinks, I knew it. He chuckles and says he knew he was right. The scene shows several empty wine bottles, and the story explains that despite talking trash about Ammon while drunk, the teacher gave a flawless lesson, explaining a magic circle on the blackboard. Kai, deep in thought, admits that even though the class doesn't follow the Empire's standard curriculum, it's excellent. We see Boris, a future mage, totally focused on theoretical studies while the teacher explains the mana restoration flow. As for Chloe and Raymond, who want to be knights, the teacher explains the practical applications of magic in combat, like targeting the center of the circle to shut down a mage's attack. Kai thinks that if he teaches this while drunk, imagine him sober. Suddenly, the teacher, in his chibi form, asks if the rookie is going to beat him up, making Kai apologize. With his pen in hand, Kai thinks everything makes sense now. He concludes that the two useless teachers are clearly jealous of Senior Ammon and are slandering him. The camera focuses on Kai's notes, which now read, Marion Rumdum magic, drinks too much, smells like booze, aptitude as a teacher too. And to make the level of disdain clear, a note explains the maximum score is 100. A scroll announces the last class of the day, Ammon's history lecture, while Kai's notebook closes, showing his final note. During the class, a student gets emotional hearing how His Majesty, Emperor Ammon is the first, successfully built the foundations of the empire. Kai, crying tears of joy, thinks, as expected of Senior Ammon, while Chloe, next to him, feels like there's something very weird in the air. Ammon continues his class, explaining that during the reign of Emperor Ammon as the fifth, there was an incident that almost shook the imperial authority. Kai watches and realizes he's following the empire's standard curriculum to the letter. Kai notices that all the students are super engaged in the class. In reality, Raymond is thinking about dolls, Boris is wondering what time it is, and Chloe is telling Kai to stop staring. Kai thinks a true educator like Ammon is being unfairly persecuted. He holds a shiny amulet and thinks he should use his status as crown prince to fix this whole mess, but soon remembers he needs to keep his identity and powers a total secret. Kai stands up determined and thinks that, for now, he's just teacher Kai from the Viscount Street royal family. He concludes he can't just pull rank as a prince to solve everything. With a confident smile, he decides he's going to fix the academy's corruption using only his own strength. He then writes in his notebook, Ammon drank aptitude as a teacher, 777 out of 100. Yep, you heard that right. His score broke the limit, and he thinks everything for Senior Ammon. Meanwhile, the MC, in the middle of his class, wonders why he just felt a sudden chill. The story explains it's been about a week since a new teacher joined the academy. We see Guy, all happy, stirring a cup, while Ammon's image appears in the background like a sweet memory. This is getting kinda weird. Focused on securing the dean position, Ammon was was deep in his studies for the teaching certification exam, which was happening the next day. Sitting at his desk, Ammon thinks confidently that he's going to pass the exam with top marks. The MC smirks and thinks the other teachers haven't spoken to him for days. He imagines Marion acting salty, saying he lowered his standards, while Sloth calls him a scumbag. He leans back in his chair and stretches, saying, "Alright, that's enough for today." Suddenly, he turns around, as if he heard something, and wonders what that noise was. The door opens and Marion and Sloth appear. The bearded guy is holding a bottle and the blonde a box, both wearing very weird smiles on their faces. Ammon gets a bit confused and asks what the two of them are doing there at that time of night. Marion shows the bottle, saying it's a trendy drink. Sloth shows the box, saying it's dessert, and they offer the gifts to him. The MC takes the items, but he smells a rat and wonders what got into them. He lifts the bottle and thinks about whether it's poison, but Sloth screams that it's not, making him apologize, still not understanding a thing. He reaches out his hand and starts thinking of another possibility. Ammon holds Sloth's chin and gets close to her, turning the girl as red as a tomato. He wonders if they're so tired they lost their minds, but notices they look normal. He keeps looking at her and thinks no, their exhausted faces look the same as always. The blonde, annoyed, slaps Ammon's hand away and screams, asking what his problem is. The MC yells in pain and thinks the weird thing is them acting out of character, and that he thought they came there to take him out. Marion says he knows it's suspicious, but they just came to clear up some misunderstandings. The scene focuses on Ammon's legs, which start trembling uncontrollably because HE is so shocked by the whole situation. Sloth starts backing away, a bit wobbly, and says her legs are giving out. Ammon, still on the floor, reaches out his hand and yells for her to wait. Marion pulls Sloth and says, anyway. They apologize for everything and hope to get along from now on. They run off, leaving Ammon on the floor, completely lost in the sauce. Still on the floor, the MC wonders what got into them to act like that out of the blue and thinks the situation is just bizarre. He gets up and thinks there's no way they suddenly regretted it just by understanding his intentions, especially those two. The MC then figures it all out. Are they trying to suck up to the future dean? In his mind, he already sees himself sitting on a throne with Marion and Sloth at his feet. He bites into a cookie and lets out a satisfied ha. He licks the crumbs off his finger and thinks that this, my friends, is the sweet taste of power. Meanwhile, Sloth has a look of pure disgust on her face, thinking about cursing the MCS entire family tree going back 5 generations. She and Marion are leaving, and the blonde comments that she can't believe there's someone here worse than Ammon now. The bearded guy replies that the rookie is going to find out the truth soon enough. He continues, talking about the truth behind that crazy new teacher. A caption announces the next day. Ammon is holding a book titled How to Pass the Level to Teaching Certification Exam with just one book and thinks today is the big day. He reflects that if he fails, he'll be stuck for 6 months, but with all the studying he did, HES definitely going to pass with the top score in the class. But, even with all but self-confidence, he wonders why HES feeling this way. The story explains that, as if the sudden repentance of those problem teachers wasn't enough, the director also dropped some weird info that morning. Director and RL, looking worried, mentioned that no new applicants showed up in the last week, even with the academy recovering and their victory in the exchange battle being all over the papers. To top off the weirdness package, the students showed up looking totally wrecked, begging Mr. Ammon to come to class tomorrow. Sitting at his desk, the MC thinks that even the students are acting strange. He concludes that, for sure, there's something going on at the academy while HES out. The scene shifts to a late afternoon sky, with a few crows flying by. Around him, other candidates complain that the exam is way too hard. One of them brags about preparing in advance, while another laments that it's already his 3rd try. Ammon just thinks about how he only had 1 week to prep. With a confident smile on his face, he thinks, just wait and see. With arms wide open, he celebrates, already imagining the bright future awaiting him. While Ammon runs through the courtyard, happy as a clam, two random guys wonder if the other heard thunder and if it's going to start raining. The scene shows a huge and completely empty dining hall, with just the MC eating alone at a gigantic table. The camera zooms in on a fork spearing a sausage. While eating, Ammon thinks the food is juicy. Suddenly, Kai appears shouting for Senior Ammon. The rookie, with dog ears and a tail, holds a plate full of food and asks, all excited, if he can eat with him. Ammon says yes and tells him to sit down. Kai thanks him and approaches the table. The two start eating in silence, and the vibe gets weirder than pineapple on pizza. The MC thinks that, since HES going to become the dean, maybe he should listen to the new teacher's problems. He then asks Kai, in the 1 week HES been there, anything has been bothering him, and the rookie replies that yes, there is. Ammon turns and asks, really? While thinking about whether rookies these days have any common sense, seeing as he hasn't even started teaching yet. Kai, eating a bread roll, tells the senior to spill everything that's bothering him, but quickly changes the subject, saying it's nothing he needs to worry about. The MC eats a piece of bread and thinks the rookie is provoking him on purpose. He then says it's normal to face challenges at the start, but he'll get used to it soon and should hang in there. Kai thanks him for the encouragement, and Ammon replies that it was nothing. He then says that, in that spirit, he was thinking about watching the rookie's class the next day to see how he does and asks if that's okay. Kai, all excited and blushing, replies that it's an honor, and Ammon chuckles and says good. Suddenly, Ammon looks at Kai's plate plate and asks why he isn't eating his sausage. The rookie gets a bit awkward and replies that he was saving it for last. The MC then says, "Oh, come on, what kind of adult is picky with their food?" Ammon reaches across the table and snatches the sausage from Kai's plate, saying that since the rookie didn't eat it, he'll take care of it. While the MC devours the sausage, Kai watches him, thinking that the food there is simply incredible. Ammon asks what HES doing just standing there and why he isn't eating, but the rookie replies it's nothing. We see the MC with the sausage in his mouth, while Kai writes something in his notebook. Kai's Nino treats, Ammon Drake aptitude for teaching, minus 700 points. The reason? Stole the sausage I was saving. Yeah, guys, admiration has a limit, and that limit is the sausage. The next day in the fencing class, with Ammon watching, we see a training scene that looks like it came straight out of an army movie. Shouts of higher, faster echo across the field, and Ammon is shocked, thinking, what am I looking at here? The MC can't believe his eyes. That lazy teacher is running around the training field while singing the Imperial Anthem. Sloth appears running on singing, "Oh, children of the Empire, glory to this light," while Kai, holding a stick, encourages her to go higher and faster. Ammon, shocked, asks what this clown show is and says that, even so, it's a bit of an overkill. Sloth, crying rivers of tears, agrees it's overkill and begs Ammon to save her, thinking she can finally get the crazy rookie fired. Kai says a little jog isn't enough, and Ammon suggests that maybe they should put sandbags on her legs. Kai loves the idea and says that, as expected of the senior, he'll prepare them for tomorrow. Sloth, pissed off, thinks she was a fool to trust that's come back. Ammon watches the scene and thinks that, despite everything Chess doing well, he concludes that, in the end, there was no problem at all. The students arrive looking downcast, holding their wooden swords, and give a lifeless hello. The MC greets them enthusiastically, but wonders why everyone looks like they got hit by a truck. He thinks that as soon as the class started, he realized what was happening. We see Kai yelling for everyone to grab their swords, and the students obey, looking exhausted. Kai yells 1, and one of the students repeats the number, almost hitting the floor from exhaustion. The rookie continues the count, yelling 2, and another student repeats 2, 3, for while swinging the sword. Ammon, eyes wide open, wonders what the hell that is. The MC's hair stands on end as he sees Kai screaming that Boris is to slow and that Raymond is to fast, ordering him to slow down the pace. In that moment, he is certain the academy hired a real-life drill sergeant disguised as a teacher. The training grounds echoed with the kids shouting, counting off 1 and 2 in unison. In perfect sync, the wooden swords sliced through the air. The story explains this was supposed to be just another chill class at the academy, with the students working up a good sweat. I mean chill for everyone except Ammon, who was face-palming and wondering what kind of circus act this was, while Kai in the back looked like he was having the time of his life. The MC even covers his face, letting out that deep sigh of someone who's totally done with this nonsense. The story explains that Raymond, clearly trained in the Azure sword style, was standing there wondering why on earth he was doing this, practicing a technique from the Feeder family out of the blue. Ammon then looks at Boris and thinks, what is this poor guy doing? The kid, looking like he's about to cough up a lung, hears Kai say he needs to work on his stamina and orders him to run 10 laps around the field after class. The MC goes to confront Sloth about this mess, but Chess totally spaced out. He gets annoyed and yells that she is the teacher, so how does she not know? The blonde, looking like she hasn't slept in 1,000 years, just says she wants a nap. Then Ammon grabs her and reminds her that Boris is terrible with a sword in the deal, was for everyone to focus on what they're actually good at. Just then, Kai taps Ammon on the shoulder and drops a "you're wrong about" that the MC whips around in anger. The rookie, acting like HES got it all figured out, claims that every student deserves an equal opportunity. He keeps waxing poetic, saying that even if their futures are different, as long as they're in the same academy, the education has to be the same for everyone. Ammon stays silent for a second, processing the sheer audacity, and then throws it back in his face, saying he heard it was Kai himself who suggested tailoring the education to each student's skills. Kai, with a dead serious look, says he can't believe that he claims that, as a teacher more devoted to the Imperial curriculum than anyone else in it, exceptional educator, it would be impossible for someone like Ammon to propose such a nonsensical idea. The MC is left speechless, totally shocked by the guy's nerve. Ammon grits his teeth, clearly annoyed. The MC thinks, oh, would you look at this, while a chibi version of Kai's head pops up on the side, looking all innocent and asking, what? Out of patience, Ammon walks over to Raymond and tells him to go back to his original training. He warns the kid to forget the Feeder family techniques, because mixing everything up is just going to be a disaster, and the boy, looking relieved, agrees on the spot. Next, the MC goes over to Boris and tells him to take a break and go read his magic book in the shade. Ammon turns to Sloth and asks why she doesn't just grab her sleeping bag already. The blonde looks confused, so he explains she won't be able to teach Chloe properly in that zombie-like state. The MC then asks Chloe if she agrees. The girl nods instantly, while the teacher stands there wondering what the heck got into that guy. Sloth, with tears in her eyes, wonders if HES finally started to care about his colleagues. She celebrates that she can finally get her beauty sleep. Chloe thinks she was about to pass out, and Kai, watching the scene, tells Chloe to take a quick break too. At that moment, Ammon grabs Kai's arm with a grip that screams, we need to have a little chat. Kai, already annoyed, asks the senior what he thinks he's doing. The MC doesn't say a word. He turns and asks what exactly the rookie is doing. Kai replies that HES implementing egalitarian education. Ammon repeats egalitarian education with a mocking tone, and Kai confirms, all proud, saying HES ensuring every student has the exact same opportunities. Then, the MC grabs Kai and drops some truth. If people are different, is shoving the same thing into everyone's head actually fair? Ammon adjusts his color and states that education isn't about equality, it's about justice. Kai tries to argue, citing imperial guidelines, but the MC just stares at him and asks, "Oh, really?" with a face that says, "Try your luck, buddy." The two stare each other down, with imaginary lightning shooting from their eyes, and Ammon suggests they play a little egalitarian game between themselves. The MC says the rules are simple. Meanwhile, the students in the back are basically grabbing popcorn to watch the teacher drama unfold. Holding a wooden sword, Ammon explains they're going to take turns whacking each other with it. And the best part, no dodging allowed. He continues, saying that with Kai's skills, this should be a piece of cake. The rookie stays silent, probably recalculating his life choices. Kai thinks about how a total nobody like Ammon knows about his hidden magic power. Energy starts flowing from the sword, and the MC adds one more basic little rule. Ammon warns that Aura Blade is forbidden. Kai, indignant, asks why, and the MC explains that since HES just a regular guy who can't use it, it wouldn't be fair if only the rookie used it. He adds that magic is also forbidden for the same reason. The rookie, pissed off, says that makes zero sense. Ammon, with a little smirk, asks how that's any different from what Kai himself was doing with the students. The story explains that Boris could barely keep up with Chloe and Raymond's fencing training, but Kai, in his infinite wisdom, forced the poor guy to equally follow the other's pace. The MC then says that now HES ordering Kai not to use his abilities equally. The rookie, gripping the sword, thinks, alright, HES just a regular person. What could go wrong? Famous last words. Ammon cracks his neck and says, okay, bring it on. Kai charges with the wooden sword and yells for the senior not to regret this later. But Ammon doesn't even flinch, he just stands there, watching the attack. Suddenly, Kai stops dead in his tracks, thinking that, now that HES actually reflecting on it, this whole thing was seriously ticking him off. He remembers that the senior never taught him anything about the job. We even see a flashback of Kai asking for help and Ammon telling him to figure it out himself. The rookie continues his laundry list of complaints. The senior never answers his questions, stole his sausage, and ignored him for an entire week. And now, he comes with this whole clown show. Suddenly, a loud whack echoes, and we see poor Sloth, inside her sleeping bag, getting smacked by the sword. Ammon doubles over, faking agonizing pain and complaining about his shoulder. Kai, all worried, asks if HESO Kai and starts apologizing profusely. Little does he know, he just fell for the oldest trick in the book. The MC, with an evil grin, thinks the kid really wants to play. He reminds him that he was the one who suggested the game and says that now that the rookie's turn is over, he charges at Kai with insane speed. Ammon yells, now it's my turn. It lands a whack so hard on Kai it must have factory reset his system. Kai hits the deck, screaming in pain while some dark energy looks like it's leaking out of him. Ammon walks up and asks, with the most shameless face ever, you okay? Did that hurt bad? The rookie, on his knees, says it hurt like hell, but the MC replies he actually went easy on him. The rookie gets up and says this time, HES gonna hit a little harder. He warns HES coming again, and the MC just replies, bring it. Kai charges and jumps, ready to pay him back, screaming that the senior is gonna regret what he said. He wins up for the strike. Ammon watches the attack coming, now wearing a surprised expression. Out of nowhere, Chloe pops up in front of Kai, blocking the blow with her own sword. The rookie shouts her name, totally caught off guard. Kai asks what She's doing, and Chloe, ticked off, snaps back asking why the teachers are fighting in the middle of class. Chloe questions that if it's for their own good, they shouldn't be acting like the children. Kai is left with nothing to say. Chloe explains She's always trained in the feeder family fencing style because it fits her best, and she was practicing at her own pace. She points at the other students and complains they keep interrupting and slowing down the class. The boys in the back are shocked by the audacity. She even complains that Maze Slows doesn't even pay attention to her anymore, and the blonde, way in the back, doesn't seem to care at all. Chloe begs Mr. Kai now to change how the classes work. Kai watches the whole scene and thinks about the words equality and justice. An image of a scale appears, with the story explaining that equality is impartial, giving no advantage to either side. Then, a judge's gavel is shown, and the story continues, saying that justice, on the other hand, involves a more personal judgment. Ammon puts his hands on Kai's shoulders and says that the equality he preaches so much is important, sure, but he explains it's about giving equal opportunities for each person to follow their dreams, not forcing everyone to fit into the same mold. Ammon steps back, concluding that's why education needs to be fair. Kai, deep in thought, wonders if HES been wrong this whole time. He reflects that, having grown up in the imperial education system where you learn to idolize the emperor, maybe he forgot to look at the real world. Sitting on an imaginary throne, Kai thinks that if he wants to be as wise a ruler as his father, he needs to understand the people's struggles. The rookie kneels in front front of Ammon and says thanks. He keeps thanking him for receiving such a valuable lesson, even though he was ignorant. Ammon says it's all good as long as he understood. But what he is really thinking is, that brat is never gonna try to step over me again. The MC scratches his ear and thinks he kinda understands how Senior Marion feels, wondering why his ears are itching out of nowhere. Cut to a room full of books, where Marion looks at a note written no alcohol and thinks class is about to start. From the other side of a window, he gives a little smile and says it's time to head to his last class. The story explains that when people start acting strange, you get worried, like a lazy person suddenly deciding to run a marathon, or someone who was always drowning in booze suddenly swearing off drinking. We see Marion each in class. Ammon, just watching the scene, wonders if the guy is about to kick the bucket or something. Boris whispers to Ammon, asking what's going on since the teacher isn't drinking, but the class is. Normally, MC replies it's not quite like that and tells the kid to pay closer attention. Marion says there's a potion made to maximize that magic's effect, but then he looks at the book and gets totally confused. The page of the book shows a drawing of a bottle, just the drawing, and Marion, in full withdrawal mode, starts licking the page of the book, screaming that it's alcohol, but wondering why he can't taste it. Suddenly, the page rips, and the professor screams that the book tore itself. Ammon, shocked, just thinks, "You're either one who licked it, you psycho," while Boris is terrified next to him. Kai walks up to Ammon and asks if that was his doing too, already starting to cite Article 3, Clause 12 of the Regulations on Teacher Conduct. Ammon, completely out of patience, gives Kai a thump on the head and asks if he still hasn't learned his lesson. The rookie, with a bump on his head, says this is different and that even if classes can vary, a teacher's conduct cannot. Ammon, pissed off, yells that that man can't teach unless HES drunk and asks if Kai really wants to ruin the Academy's curriculum just to follow the law to the letter. He turns around and says HES gonna take care of it and tells the kids to study by themselves for now. Kai, confused, is left wondering what he meant by take care of it. Ammon approaches Marion, who still has his tongue stuck to the paper, and asks if he can have a quick word with him. Marion lets out a scream so high-pitched the students in the room have to cover their ears. Ammon simply drags Marion out of the room and tells him to shut his trap. The professor, indignant, asks why HES being dragged out if he wasn't even drinking. Marion, being carried by Ammon like a sack of potatoes, calls him every name in the book and yells that he's his senior. Moments later, the MC shows up holding a bottle of wine and tells Marion to drink up. The bearded guy looks at the bottle, totally confused by this plot twist. He starts crying tears of joy and screams Ammon's name like he just saw an angel. Marion, suspicious, asks if it's safe to drink. Ammon guarantees it is and even lies that Mr. Kai approved it. And he downs the entire bottle in one go without even breathing. With an expression of pure ecstasy, he shouts that that was top quality and went down smooth. Problem solved, the Ammon way. With that, Ammon starts connecting the dots and figures Kai must have used the same on telling the school board tactic on Marion. With the most shameless face ever, the MC blurts out that the senior only teaches well when HES buzzed, so he just ensured the students got a top-tier education. Then, Ammon, with a cynical little smirk, asks if he isn't a good teacher when he's sober, and the MC drops the challenge, how about teaching straight edge for the rest of your life? The bearded guy doesn't even think twice and answers no, because Grandpa's cough medicine is the secret to his pedagogical success. At this, Marion stares at Ammon with a super serious expression, looking like HES about to confess to a crime. He sits down and drops the bomb. To be honest, he was thinking about putting in his notice and leaving the academy soon. Ammon is shocked and asks what that's all about. Taking another sip, Marion says that now that a rookie full of energy has arrived, he thought about making way for the new generation. Ammon, ticked off, asks why the hell HED do that before him. That retirement spot is mine, buddy. The MC thinks he didn't realize he was like that, but soon concludes it's all just drama and Marion is only acting this way because Kai forced him to stay sober. Pulling a motivational speaker move, Ammon calls out to Senior Marion and reminds him of a phrase he said himself, as long as there are students, the academy's future is guaranteed. The bearded guy, all sheepish, asks if he really said that, admitting he doesn't remember, but agrees it must have been him. Then, Ammon says the same rule applies to teachers in that, as long as there's a single student in the room, a teacher's future isn't over yet. He continues the speech, saying that if at least one student graduates and becomes successful, that alone justifies all of a teacher's hard work. The MC, a bit awkward, admits this talk might sound a little cheesy. Even so, he goes on, saying that thanks to Marion, he learned to see things he had never thought of before and that the senior is an inspiration not just to the students, but to his colleagues too. Ammon extends his hand to Marion and asks if that isn't what a true teacher does, and the MC stands there, hand extended, waiting for the senior's handshake. Marion, his face red with emotion, says he had no idea Ammon had such a high opinion of him. Laughing, Marion offers the bottle to Ammon and invites him to take a swig to celebrate their friendship. The MC, with a smile on his face, just says, Senior Marion. But out of absolutely nowhere, Ammon smacks the bottle, sending it flying, and yells at Marion to cut the crap, chug the rest of the booze, and go teach his class already. And that's how Marion's week of sobriety went down the drain, resulting in one of the best classes of all time. Boris, super emotional, even stands up and applauds while crying. Meanwhile, Kei's idolization of Ammon just keeps growing. He kisses the MC's hand saying he always believed in him, while Chloe and Raymond in the back complain they can't see a thing. The scene shifts to the end of the day, and Ammon comments to Kai that he worked his butt off this past week. Now in the cafeteria, the MC asks if the rookie has gotten used to the academy. Kai, all excited, says yes and that the food there is amazing, and Ammon agrees, saying that's the only good thing the academy has. But Kai disagrees and says there are more things to be proud of. Ammon, curious, asks what else there could be. The rookie, finger pointing up, hands a tray to Ammon and declares that the academy's greatest pride is none other than the great Dean Ammon. The two burst out laughing, and Kai says you just have to trust and follow Dynamo. Suddenly, Sloth and Marion appear out of nowhere with their trays and ask what this is all about, wanting to know if Ammon became Dean and nobody told them. The MC, caught off guard, asks if they didn't know. Sloth replies it's the first time she's hearing this gossip. He then asks about the little gifts they gave, and she replies with a no that. Marion, all ticked off, shouts that it's all that crazy guy's fault. Sloth agrees, while Kai plays dumb. Sloth, in Chibi version, explains it was just a welcome gift and asks what he thought it was. Ammon, also Chibi, replies he thought it was a standard bribe. Totally awkward, the MC says it's not official yet, but that the director mentioned he could take on some Dean duties. Kai, all happy, already starts sucking up to Dean Ammon. Ammon tells Kai that, even with the position almost in the bag, ATS very humble but inside. The MC thinks about how this rookie is completely clueless. The story explains that power envy is serious business. The MC is already imagining Sloth and Marion furious, plotting revenge because he, the rookie, stole their spot. Except, when he looks at the duo, the deadly rage he imagined is actually Sloth complaining she's too tired to train and Marion thinking about what drink HES gonna have after dinner. Marion walks up to Ammon and says he feels sorry for him. The MC, confused, asks if he knows what a dean actually does. Ammon asks if the job isn't just creating plans for the director and vice director's ideas. Marion confirms, and the MC is left wondering why the pity then. Suddenly, Ammon's eyes go wide as it finally clicks and he realizes the mess he got himself into. The story explains that, blinded by the idea of being third in command, he forgot that being dean means having to deal with all the boss's paperwork. Then we see an image of the vice director wanting to spend a fortune to expand the cafeteria and buy fancy ingredients. And of course, there's the director's paperwork, which is a resume of financial disasters, failed investments, bankrupted the academy, bet everything on snail racing, and even tried to stiff someone on a unicorn race. Either way, Ammon panics and thinks he needs to stop this madness right now. The scene cuts to a hand writing on a piece of paper. Director Norel, sitting at her desk, says that should solve the problem. Ammon barges into the room screaming for the director, who jumps in frightened, asks what HES doing there at that hour. With full force, the MC slams his hand on the desk and yells, "What does this mean?" The director screams, startled, while Ammon, desperate, tells her to look at the paperwork he brought. He throws himself onto the desk, exhausted, and warns that if one more snail racing investment shows up, things are gonna get ugly. Just then, his hand lands on some papers on the desk, and he looks confused. With an expression of total shock, he asks himself, what kind of mess is this? With a sweat drop rolling down, Ammon stares at the documents in shock, having zero clue what he's looking at. His hand is resting on the paperwork, which is perfectly intact. He wonders why the documents didn't turn into confetti like he expected. Director Noel, standing there, asks if the papers are in one piece. Ammon, still holding the stack, says it's not exactly that and asks if she, by any chance, lost interest in shady gambling. With a little smirk, the director asks what he means and challenges him, asking if he thinks she's some clueless boss who just sits in the chair to look pretty. Ammon, in his chibi version, is left speechless. The director turns away, looking offended, and says she's doing her job right. Ammon, feeling totally awkward, tries to explain himself, thinking he managed to upset the boss. Holding the papers, the director turns back and cuts to the chase, asking what he came there to do. The MC says she has to agree that he should start working as head of academic affairs as soon as he gets his teaching certificate, and RL agrees. She continues, saying she was worried about whether he, as a regular teacher, could handle the load all at once. Ammon wonders just how high this woman's expectations go. With a serious look, the MC says that, on second thought, there's something he'd like to say, and then he offers to start working as head of academic affairs even before being officially appointed. And RL, surprised, repeats the part about taking on the duties in advance. Ammon confirms, saying that putting a rookie straight into the position would be way too risky. He thinks he learned a lesson. Even a lost cause like Kai can be trained. So, if he starts prepping now, there won't be any issues when he becomes the boss for real. With a gloomy face, the director stares at him and asks if HES serious, seeing as HES not even the boss yet and already wants to take all the work for himself. Ammon, not understanding her reaction, asks if there's something wrong with the idea. Suddenly, Anrel's face lights up and she breaks into a huge smile, saying of course she can, already calling him Chief Ammon and thanking him for his dedication. The MC smiles back, saying he does it all for the academy, while thinking about how easy she is to fool, but the director warns there's one tiny thing he needs to know. She explains that since the academy is small, she handles everything herself, even the tasks that would belong to the vice director. A chibi image shows the director on a giant ship, steering the academy, while Ammon and the vice director row a tiny little boat. She says that when the academy grows, all the boring tasks will fall to them. With the smile of someone up to no good, Ammon says that the first piece to be controlled on the board is the vice director. The story explains that as soon as the academy was back up and running, they had meetings to decide what to do with the cash sent by the imperial family. After a lot of discussion, it was decided the money would be split. The director would use her share for the future of the academy, and the vice director for the present. The next scene, however, shows the vice director sprawled out on the floor. Apparently, the present was a little too intense. Ammon is reading a request from the King Vivern hunting squad asking for oil to make French fries. A note even adds that the oil is delicious. The MC thinks the imperial family's cash flow must be huge. With a single tear rolling down his cheek, he mourns the fact that half of all that money is going to be spent on monster oil to make snacks. The vice director gets up kinda dizzy and asks what's going on, grumbling that he was working really hard on that. Ammon, totally ticked off, shows the paper and asks if blowing the academy's money sponsoring a hunting squad is what he calls hard work. The white-haired elf stands up and calls Ammon an idiot, starting to explain the culinary wonders of a pilaf made with King Vivern oil. But before he finishes the menu, Ammon grabs his face with so much force it makes a cracking sound. With the vice director knocked out on the floor, the MC complains that he still dares to defend himself after bringing a contract like this. Suddenly, Ammon's expression shifts to surprise when he reads that the contract is with the Silver Sword Mercenary Corps. We see their flag, a skeleton with swords, and the story explains that these guys are famous for their war victories and for defeating giant monsters. An image shows the mercenaries from behind, ready to brawl, while a text bubble says but. Ammon wonders if those guys even know how to read, figuring they must have just signed the contract blindly. Holding the contract, the MC thinks that, although desperate mercenaries often fall for bad deals, this was a major trading city. Ammon asks who is guaranteeing this contract. The vice director, recovering, answers that it's a city noble who sponsors the group. The MC crumples the contract in his hand, with a serious expression, and stays quiet for a moment. Ammon says, "Let's go." The elf, confused, asks where to, and he replies, "Where else?" With a confident smile, Ammon finishes the sentence, saying that, obviously, they are going straight to the mercenaries' office. The next day, the scene shows a building with a tattered skull flag. A notice on the wall says the King Vivern is dangerous. You don't say? Sitting in front of the mercenary leader, Ammon cuts to the chase and says he's worried the whole group is gonna kick the bucket, so he advises them to drop the mission. The leader of the Silver Sword, a redhead with an Ipchon aimed mate, replies with a what? Mate starts laughing, saying the MC knows nothing about his group, but Ammon cuts him off and says he does. The MC lists all their achievements, like the Great War and the defeat of various monsters, and asks if that isn't something everyone already knows. Mate, eyes closed, asks if Ammon is saying that, even with all that experience, they can't handle a King Vivern. The MC answers yes. The mercenary leader, already annoyed, asks if Ammon knows anything about the King Vivern. The MC replies that of course he does, since HES from the Arma Mountains himself, leaving Mate jaw-dropped. Mate is shocked, saying that place is hell on earth. Ammon asks if he's calling him a monster, but quickly calms down and explains that, despite the beasts, people actually live there. Finger raised, the MC states that the King Vivern is a beast just as dangerous as the Great Drake. Mate spits out the drink he was sipping and asks, shocked, if he heard that right, Great Drake? Ammon confirms, but Mate bursts into a fit of laughter. The MC, not understanding a thing, asks what's so funny. Mate, laughing shamelessly, blurts out that the Great Drake is like the boogeyman. It only exists in legends, and that it's the first time he's seen someone with the audacity to joke about breaking the contract. On the side, the vice director wonders if the drama is getting resolved easier than he thought. Just then Ammon, already out of patience, says he gets it and is gonna cancel the contract for now, but the elf cuts him off and asks about the deposit. A hand appears writing on a paper, while the story explains that, since more than half the cash was already spent on supplies, they can't return the whole deposit, and there's still the penalty fee. Ammon lays eyes on the amount written on the paper and his soul almost leaves his body, letting out a scream, SAYWHATNOW. The MC gets super ticked off and starts shaking the vice director like a ragdoll, yelling that he blew all the cash on oil. Then Ammon asks if they really think they can hunt the King Vivern and wants to know who's gonna refund the money if the whole group gets wiped out. Mate laughs, saying the MC is underestimating them way too much. Mate brags that his mercenary group has already taken care of dozens of famous drakes out there. Mate's little chibi head pops up, questioning how Ammon would know that and asking, with maximum irony, if he happens to have seen the beast up close. The scene shows a giant white dragon flying with smaller ones, while the people on the ground look up, completely terrified. Ammon's chibi head, looking like he's seen a ghost, screams that he's saying this because he has seen it, and that the monster uses drakes like chopsticks to pick up food every single day. Ammon already does the math. If this crew kicks the bucket, the deposit goes with them, thinking about his beloved dough. Mate replies that it's going down that very night. moment, the scene shifts to archers getting ready, while the leader explains the plan. Camp near the nest and attack with everything they've got as soon as the sun comes up. The MC, holding the vice director who looks like he's having a stroke, says alright, they're tagging along on the hunt. With a smirk on his face, mate asks if Ammon is sure he won't regret this decision. The story warns that the ride ahead is gonna be anything but chill. Mate asks if they're ready. Ammon, standing next to the vice director in front of that army, confirms they are. The silver sword flag waves in the wind, while the mercenary leader lets out a war cry, calling his army to action. He gives the order to attack, and the mercenaries charge forward screaming, ready to rumble. Ammon, running in the middle of the crowd, is already thinking that on the way to the nest, they're gonna bump into some pretty beefy monsters. A giant wyvern egg appears in a nest, with several smaller wyverns flying around. The MC thinks that, besides the monsters on the way, there will still be the normal wyverns near the big boss's lair. With the smile of someone already counting money, Ammon thinks they're gonna take down every single one of those beasts and recover as much of the mission's loss as possible. The story then explains what went down before, showing the silhouette of a wyvern flying. The story explains that, to avoid a loss and still try to recover the contract money from the Silver Sword mercenaries, Ammon and BRESL decided to join the hunt for the King Wyvern's oil, all for the money, as always. The scene shows the mercenaries' legs marching. The story tells that, to catch the bright-eyed wyvern by day, they had to head out in the middle of the night. BRESL, with dark circles under his eyes that would make a panda jealous, complains he's starving. From behind, Ammon asks if he's hungry again, considering he ate like 10 minutes ago. BRESL, indignant, questions if he's calling that food. BRESL completely ignores Ammon's comment, but soon changes the subject and says, by the way, Ammon's chibi wonders if the pace isn't too slow. After all, it's not a snail race. Next to him, BRESL agrees it's slow as molasses. Mate explains that usually, it takes a whole day to get there without stopping, but with their group, they'll arrive in half a day. Ammon thinks that if it's gonna take half a day anyway, he'll just chill in the back. Mate laughs and tells him to go ahead. The story explains that, in the end, the two end up at the very back of the line, like the troublemakers in class. Ammon whispers to BRESL that this is a total drag and asks if they shouldn't just pass everyone. The elf, with the most pitiful look, replies he's too hungry and has no energy for that. Ammon's chibi laughs and comments he didn't see that coming, saying BRESL is weaker than the director and even asks if dark elves are inferior to normal elves. BRESL explodes and yells at Ammon not to compare him to that pale brat. The MC, hand over his mouth, thinks it was way too easy to get a rise out of the elf. Ammon calls the vice director to come with him and simply zooms past the mercenaries. The soldiers are left behind, confused, wondering if they saw a ghost or just the wind. The two dash through the forest at absurd speed, literally leaving the mercenaries eating their dust. Running side by side, they make any marathon runner cry in the corner. BRESL comments that Ammon is actually pretty good at running. At that, the MC speeds up even more and shouts, "I'm faster," leaving BRESL behind. Suddenly, BRESL's stomach starts growling louder than thunder, and he grumbles that the hunger hit him again. With an expression of someone who can't even blink anymore, he says he can run another step, and BRESL face plants into the ground with zero strength left. May turns back, surprised, and shouts, "Captain." Wait, hold up, Captain. One of the mercenaries warns Mate that the guests who were following them disappeared and asks if they should look for them. The leader replies they must have gone back home. The mercenary says he understands, but out of nowhere, a gigantic noise echoes through the forest. Mate wonders what that sound was, already thinking if it was the King Wyvern showing up early. Suddenly, he trips over BRESL, lying on the ground like he just got beat up. The scene shows several wyverns flying in the dark night sky. Ammon is there, standing dead still in front of a gigantic nest, and says this is the King Wyvern's nest. He thinks the thing is way bigger than he imagined, and that with that size, it looks more like a watchtower than a nest. With a smile like he just found a treasure chest, Ammon thinks that, in the end, all of that is money. The story explains that every part of a wyvern is worth serious cash. The story continues, explaining that even in the armor territory they make gear out of wyvern parts, but since there are monsters everywhere there, the equipment breaks in no time. An image shows the price tag for each wyvern part, and the story explains that when you catch a beast like this in a big city, you can sell every last bit. Since there are plenty of buyers, the price is whatever you ask. Ammon, watching the flying wyverns, thinks now he's gonna catch a normal one just to start cutting his losses. No sooner said than done, a wyvern comes flying right at Ammon, ready to throw down. The MC doesn't even bat an eye and instantly gets ready for combat. With a quick move, he lands a right hook on the wyvern's chin, which lets out a scream of pain. Two other wyverns nearby seem to be laughing at their buddy's face. Ammon, annoyed, yells at them, asking what they're laughing at and warning that they're next. He jumps into the air and lands a flying kick on another wyvern. Right after, he grabs the monster's head with both hands and squeezes tight, making the beast let out a whimper. Two wyverns fall knocked out on the ground, and Ammon, looking at the scene, comments, the third one. Ammon calls the other wyverns to the fight in full bring it on mode. Suddenly, his expression changes, and he wonders what the deal is. The wyverns are just flying in circles, and Ammon wonders wonders why on earth they aren't attacking. And then, the Wyverns simply turn tail and leave. The MC, ticked off, yells for them to come back, calling the beasts brats. Ammon, revolted, shouts that just because he took care of 3 of them, the whole squad is already bailing. Surrounded by the bodies of the defeated Wyverns, he calls the beasts cowards. The scene shifts to a massive mountainous landscape. Mate, carrying BRESL on his back like a sack of potatoes, comments that the Wyvern sound is really close and it seems they're almost there. One of the mercenaries, probably hungry, suggests taking a break to eat some rice balls. BRESL, who seemed passed out, suddenly jumps off Mate's back and screams, RICEALLS. He lunges at one of the mercenaries and bites the poor guy's helmet with all his might. The other mercenaries panic and yell to hold BRESL's legs, warning him that that's not a rice ball but a metal helmet. The scene cuts to a view of the sky and trees. Ammon is there, sitting on top of a knocked out Wyvern, deep in thought. He wonders why the Wyverns ran away since it would be normal for them to attack humans. With his hand on his face and bags under his eyes like someone who hasn't slept for days, he moans about only catching 3. Just then, one of the mercenaries comes running up and shouts that they found the King Wyvern's nest. Ammon waves to the arriving group and greets them. Mate, shocked, asks how he got there and says he already thought he had kicked the bucket. The MC simply answers that he went ahead. Mate, in disbelief, repeats, went ahead? Mate keeps wondering who this guy is. He senses that Ammon is neither a swordsman nor a mage. So what is he? He then notices the Wyverns lying on the ground and wonders if the MC took care of one of them all by himself. Mate says he's gonna start setting up camp and that Ammon should rest too. He explains that after giving the crew some time to recharge, they'll act at dawn. Ammon points at BRESL, who is all tied up and gagged. Ammon, looking at the bizarre scene, asks why he's like that. One of the mercenaries explains there was no other way since BRESL literally tried to eat one of their comrades for lunch. The scene shows the sky, while a voice tells them to wait there until the King Wyvern shows up. At 8 in the morning, the chibi ass of Ammon and Mate are eating. At noon, Ammon, already out of patience, asks when the King Wyvern is gonna arrive. Mate replies for him to wait just a little longer. At 6 in the evening, Ammon wonders if the Wyvern moved out and forgot to leave a forwarding address. Suddenly, the 2 hear a noise and go on full alert. A gigantic Wyvern appears flying in the sky, blotting out the sunlight. Ammon wonders what that isn't if the big monster finally arrived, but before he could finish the thought, the beast's talons grab him. The creature lifts him into the air, and Ammon screams. Mate and the other mercenaries just stand there staring, jaws dropped. The redhead comments that that is the King Wyvern and that it's even bigger than he thought. Ammon yells from up there for them to do something. Mate lets out a chuckle like someone who has a plan, or who is just crazy. He grabs his spear and says he already said it before. With the spear in hand, he declares that the Silver Sword mercenary group is the best in the entire empire. Ammon looks up, seeming a bit more relieved. Mate smiles and tells him to chill and lead the rest to them. He shouts the attack order to his group, while BRESL, still tied up, moans from hunger in the corner. Mate gives the war cry, ordering the Silver Sword group to advance. At the same time, one of the soldiers yells all excited, ready for combat. Mate declares he's going to end this in one go and hurls his spear with all his might at the King Wyvern. The spear flies straight into the monster's mouth, but to everyone's surprise, the beast looks like a dog with a new toy and bites down on the weapon, snapping it in half like a toothpick. Seeing that, Mate's jaw hits the floor. Crouching next to BRESL, who is still off in dreamland, Ammon questions how a spear that pierces everything managed to break, and answers his own question. Oh right, Wyvern teeth are the main ingredient for the shield that blocks everything. Meanwhile, chaos is unleashed, and the mercenaries are turning into Wyvern snacks. One screams for help. Another complains he's not a bowling ball. Ammon finds the whole thing a total drag and wonders if he should watch a bit longer, or if he could already order the popcorn. He then looks sideways and wonders when the hell the dark elf is gonna wake up to help clean up this mess. Looking at BRESL, all tied up and looking like a salami, Ammon starts wondering if the elf hasn't already kicked the bucket. And as if he heard, BRESL wakes up out of nowhere with eyes wide, screaming OIL. The scare is so big Ammon even jumps, complaining the elf almost gave him a heart attack. The elf then starts sniffing the air like a bloodhound, repeating oil and delicious oil. The chibi version of Ammon, totally lost, can only think, what kind of mess is this? In the blink of an eye, the ropes holding BRESL just snap with the elf's strength, who looks like he took some expired pre-workout. The elf starts doing a soap opera villain laugh, and Ammon thinks the guy must have a loose screw from the hunger. A hand with nails that haven't seen clippers in centuries reaches for the sky, while a voice in his head says the night is the time of the Grand Lord. With his back turned, BRESL raises his arm to the light, and the mental narration continues, saying that in the shadowy land where the sun has set, he will come. The MC thinks the elf has really gone off the deep end this time. Out of absolutely nowhere, a shadowy and formless figure appears, and a voice begs, I beseech you. The shadow spreads from BRESL's feet, and the voice asks to step on that land in response to the call of a humble servant who sacrificed his blood. The scene then focuses on the full moon, shining in the sky. Ammon looks around, all scared, wondering what's happening and questioning why someone turned off the sunlight all of a sudden. Suddenly, a giant red eye opens in the middle of the darkness, surrounded by sinister smoke and a magic circle. circle. The figure that appears is the Grand Duke of the Night, Jumiyulumbam, a being with white hair and red eyes. Ammon looks sideways, completely shocked, and wonders what kind of bizarre thing he's seen now. The elf floats, while the MC wonders if that's some kind of dark magic. Mate is thrown backward with force. With a look of pure frustration, he thinks that not even with a sword made specially for battle could he leave a single scratch. The mercenary looks at the King Vivern and thinks the creature is too dangerous, concluding that even a drake would be just a snack for that monster. Holding his broken sword, Mate laments, thinking he should have listened to Ammon from the start. Amidst a purple glow and chains appearing from nowhere, a voice wonders what's the deal. The King Vivern is completely immobilized by shadowed chains. The creature roars at the moon, and a surprised voice exclaims that's exactly what it was thinking. Out of nowhere, Ammon jumps toward the Vivern's open mouth, and Mate wonders if that kid from Ammon at H Academy has a death wish. A gigantic explosion shakes the forest, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. On the ground, amidst the smoke, we see the remains of a battle axe, now just scrap metal. Ammon, hand on head, grumbles seriously, while the elf approaches calmly. The King Vivern roars in rage, and the MC thinks the thing is way too strong. Looks like it ate rocks for breakfast. Looking at Mate laid out on the floor, Ammon says he should have listened to the mercenary, all embarrassed, replies he was just taking a nap. The MC then turns to the elf, who is growling, and asks if the vice director can trap the beast with black magic again, asking him to handle the situation. The elf's hand reaches out once more to the full moon in the sky. The elf's thought echoes, saying that this is the Grand Duke's hour. The elf starts counting 1, 1, 1 and screams TWO, floating in the air while creating a dark energy ball in his hand. The King Vivern lets out a high-pitched scream as it gets tied up by chains down below. Ammon smiles and yells good job. The chains tighten even more, and the Vivern moans in pain. Ammon, with Zoro pity, yells to squeeze harder with more feeling. With a sinister laugh, the elf says the Vivern's crying is cute, and that if the monster gives him oil, it'll be even cuter. A single drop of precious golden oil drips from the King Vivern's mouth, who is already at its limit. The elf sighs and says it is really good. Someone commit him, please. The elf flies at the Vivern and screams for it to give more down below. Ammon warns him to wait, otherwise the magic will undo itself. Completely ignoring the warning, the elf latches onto the Vivern and starts sniffing the beast, talking about the flavor. Arms wide open, the elf throws himself against the Vivern and screams that this is heaven on earth. Ammon stands there frozen, not knowing if he should laugh or call the asylum. The MC runs desperately, screaming for the vice director, while the elf, getting swallowed by the Vivern, laughs and comments how delicious it is before a huge explosion happens. The dust settles, revealing a giant crater in the ground, and the only thing Ammon manages to say is awe. Holding the passed out elf in his arms, Ammon says he almost checked out for good. While fixing the elf's hair, the MC thinks he is totally useless. Still holding the elf, Ammon stares at him and asks why he threw himself in like that, saying he was worried. Ammon then explodes and screams in his face that he thought the King Vivern was gonna die. He adds that they need to capture and sell the beast alive, which startles the elf awake. The MC keeps yelling at the elf, who passes out again. Mate, lying on the ground, points at Ammon and calls him an idiot, telling him to do whatever he wants. A sword blade shines brightly, ready for action. Raising the sword, Ammon wonders if HES the only one left now. Lying on the ground, Mate grumbles that HES still there. The King Vivern lets out an surpulsing roar, and from down below, a voice yells at it to shut its trap and stop whining. In response, several smaller Viverns appear in the sky and start circling their camp. Ammon realizes the beast called for backup and decides HES gonna catch them all to make a fortune. The guy practically has dollar signs in his eyes. A flock of Viverns flies in, all screeching and ready to rumble. With a confident smile, Ammon grips his sword tight and yells for them all to bring it on. The MC leaps into the air with his sword, flying straight into the swarm of Viverns. Mid-attack, Ammon swings his sword, but the Viverns just dodge and fly right past him. Ammon is left clueless about what just happened. Watching the Viverns leave, the MC yells, totally salty, that those scumbags ran away again. Ammon falls from the sky, still screaming in rage for being completely ignored by the monsters. He lands on something soft and doesn't get it at all. Sitting there confused, Ammon wonders if there happens to be a cushion on the forest floor. Suddenly, a giant face looms behind Ammon, revealing he was sitting on the creature's belly. Realizing where he is, Ammon lets out a panic scream, with his eyes practically popping out of his head.